Traditional buildings are nestled among mountains under a cloudy sky. Master Musan then asks if someone wants to know about Wai Yonho. A young man confirms he is compiling materials to document his history. Master Musan repeats Wai Yonho's title, the Radiant Martial Sovereign. He describes him as a benevolent and upright man sent by Buddha. The young man notes his thoughts align and asks about Wai Yonho's everyday life. Master Musan hesitates to discuss his daily behavior or appearance. He then looks angry and declares he cannot continue. The young man looks surprised and asks what he means. Elsewhere, a man is thrown through a doorway of the Hubei Ping clan. Ping Dojuk, supreme elder of the Hubei's Ping clan, yells about Wai Yonho, questioning why such a wretched human came there. He stands on a porch with his sword drawn, looking down at the fallen man. The young man from earlier, now covered in scattered salt, asks what is happening. Wai Yonho is known as the Radiant Martial Sovereign, a legendary figure who ended an era of chaos. He is also called the greatest of all time and the greatest chivalrous warrior. The young man runs away, wondering why everyone avoids talking about Wai Yonho. He states his duty as a historian. His duty is to document even the hidden sides of history. Looking at a building in a forest, he believes he may finally learn the reason today. Beggar sect Divine Mad Dog laughs, mentioning he is chased by Shaolin and Hubei's Ping clan. The young man tells him responses were similar when he mentioned Wai Yonho's name. Beggar sect Divine Mad Dog smirks, saying they would react that way. The young man looks surprised and asks for clarification. Now Guangdong's Wai clan 100 years ago. That man was the absolute worst kind of person, as Wai Yonho, age 12, lies in bed. He thinks he wants to become the strongest. He was a boy who dreamed of becoming the greatest under the heavens. Born into a martial clan, he learned the chivalry of warriors. He already knew the quickest path to the top. That path was relentless effort, shown by a scarred hand and many daggers. Wai Yonho states that nothing comes without effort, regardless of talent. For a boy with such a will, effort was the only way, but there was a small issue. It was too late to begin today as the sun set outside his window. Wai Yonho sits up and looks out the window. He stares with a determined expression. He then rolls over and goes back to sleep. He calls it a shame he was supposed to lay foundations today, but decides to sleep and train tomorrow. A foot steps into the room. Wai Jianghan stands over the sleeping Wai Yonho. Wai Jianghan tells him to get up. He yells at Wai Yonho to get up. Wai Yonho sits up and asks if Wai Jianghan is there. Wai Jianghan asks him if he knows what time it is. Wai Yonho replies that he saw the sun and is still in bed because it is still going down. Wai Jianghan asks how long he has been holed up in his room. Wai Yonho guesses 2 days. Wai Jianghan shouts it has been 4 days and calls him a useless brat. He adds that even a bear would flip over from sweat after 3 days. Wai Yonho laughs and says he gets up now and then, so Wai Jianghan does not have to worry. Wai Jianghan leans close to him, looking furious. Wai Yonho explains he tried to train, but every time he opened his eyes, the sun was already setting. He concludes that when the sun sets, one must sleep to get up early the next day to train. Wai Jianghan grabs Wai Yonho by the leg and flips him off the bed, declaring he will straighten him out. In the great Guangdong's Wai household, the sun was already going down. In Guangdong's Wai clan office, Wai Jianghan sighs in frustration. Zhou Bang, administrator of Guangdong's Wai clan, asks if he is worried about the second young master again. Wai Jianghan asks who else he would be worried about, but Zhou Bang assures him Wai Yonho will mature. Wai Jianghan covers his face and blames himself. Wai Jianghan had left on a martial dual pilgrimage the year Wai Yonho turned 2. Han Sang, a matriarch of Guangdong's Wai clan, stands with Wai Yonho, Wai Sanho, and an unborn child, Wai Suryun. He thought his journey would last 2 years, but was caught up in incidents. He returned 8 years later to his clan's gate. Though he earned the title righteous chivalrous swordsman, his losses were great. Wai Jianghan looks up with a pained expression. His once gentle wife Han Sang-ah had become fiercer than a tiger. His beloved son Wai Yonho, whom he thought would be no problem, is seen as a small child clinging to his mother. Wai Yonho had grown into a lazy sloth. Wai Jianghan sighs again in his office. Zhou Bang reassures him there must still be a way. Wai Jianghan asks what way, and Zhou Bang reminds him that someone will return soon. Wai Jianghan remembers that his son will finally be back from the academy after 3 years. He mutters about Wai Yonho being a little brat. There is one person Wai Yonho is actually scared of. Wai Yonho looks up in surprise. That person is Wai Sanho, the eldest son of Guangdong's Wai clan. Wai Sanho asks Wai Yonho how long he has been asleep, and Wai Yonho asks when he arrived. Wai Sanho states he asked first. Wai Yonho stammers nervously. Wai Sanho stares at him with a stern expression. Wai Yonho quickly claims he trained early this morning and just took a break because he was tired. Wai Sanho asks if he trained, and Wai Yonho enthusiastically confirms it. Wai Sanho tells him to use a technique to split the candle into 2, which surprises Wai Yonho. Wai Sanho wants to see how much he has improved over 3 years. Wai Yonho stands with a sword in front of the candle. Wai Sanho asks what he is doing and tells him to go ahead. Wai Yonho expresses concern about being indoors and the potential danger. Wai Sanho shouts that he will take care of it and tells Wai Yonho to show what he has. Wai Yonho sighs and prepares himself. He performs a sword technique with blue energy swirling around him. Wai Yonho holds his sword forward. He is seen from above in a courtyard with the candle on the ground. His bare foot steps on the ground. He continues his sword technique. Wai Sanho watches with a serious expression. Wai Yonho performs the soaring dragon technique. He looks down with a worried expression. The candle remains perfectly intact. Wai Yonho exclaims that he screwed up. Wai Sanho states that 3 years have passed. He adds that 3 years is enough to master a sword technique and move to the next level, but Wai Yonho has not. Wai Sanho tells him he has gotten worse than 3 years ago. A night view shows the clan buildings under a starry sky. The family, including Wai Jianghan, Han Sang Ah Wai Sanho, and Wai Yonho, eats dinner together. Wai Yonho looks sullen, thinking he will get indigestion. Wai Jianghan asks Wai Sanho about his martial academy life, and he replies it is fine. Wai Sanho explains that hardships are essential for training and self-overcoming. Wai Jianghan nods and tells him he has suffered a lot in his absence. Wai Sanho says his father had it harder, then asks if there are other issues. Wai Sanho picks up his chopsticks. He then states there is one issue. Han Sang Ah and Wai Jianghan ask what it is. Wai Sanho says it is about Yonho, making Han Sang Ah look worried. Wai Yonho looks shocked and asks what about him. Wai Sanho has a thoughtful expression. Wai Sanho declares they need to bring Wai Yonho to his martial academy. Wai Yonho reacts with extreme fear. Even Master Mu San and Ping Dojuk grind their teeth at the mention of Wai Yonho's name. A sword glows with blue energy. Diagonal lines dynamically divide the scene. That was when the great history began, showing Wai Yonho with a sword. Back then, no one could have imagined. Wai Sanho and Wai Yonho ride horses, this lazy boy. Wai Yonho yells to Wai Sanho that they should rest before they go, though he would one day shake the entire world. Just like that, Wai Yonho was half forced to go to the martial academy. His younger sister Wai Suryeon cried and begged him not to leave. His family was upset but did not try to stop him, with an elder yelling for him to come back a man. As he rode away, Wai Yonho told his sister not to cry while she waved goodbye. Wai Yonho and Wai Sanho rode their horses through a sunny forest path. The journey was smooth for Wai Sanho. Wai Yonho, however, groaned in discomfort on his horse. He asked if they were almost there. Wai Sanho replied there were 10 more days left, which shocked Wai Yonho. Wai Sanho explained they would have arrived in 5 days if he knew how to ride a horse, and Wai Yonho protested he had never ridden one before. Wai Yonho insisted they rest because he was tired and his body ached. He pointed ahead to other people resting on the path. Wai Sanho looked at the scene with a serious expression. He dismounted and ran towards the resting people as Wai Yonho asked where he was going. Wai Sanho stood over several fallen figures on the ground. Wai Yonho asked what he was doing, and Wai Sanho stated they were too late. Wai Sanho looked down at the dead bodies. Wai Yonho reacted with a horrified shout. Wai Sanho told him to look at something on one of the bodies. He showed a red flower-like mark on a dead person's chest, identifying it as the flower indulging palm technique. Wai Sanho explained the technique was formerly called crimson flower palm, but was renamed flower indulging palm because of a rapist named Seo Juak. Wai Yonho was shocked to hear about a rapist and asked if he was nearby. Wai Sanho explained Seo Juak targets women climbing mountains, and these bodies meant he ambushed them while trying to get a woman. Wai Sanho concluded that a woman was in danger somewhere nearby. He then dashed away with great speed, telling Wai Yonho to stay there. Wai Yonho was horrified at the thought of staying alone with the corpses. He yelled for Wai Sanho to stop. Wai Yonho stood frozen in fear. He looked around nervously. The 2 horses stood calmly. The dead bodies lay on the ground. Wai Yonho realized he was in a bad situation. Dark clouds gathered in the sky. Wai Yonho complained that Wai Sanho was taking too long and should have brought him along. He wondered if something had happened to Wai Sanho, since he would not be this late otherwise. Wai Yonho heard a howl and a roar in the distance. He decided he needed to do something or he might become a tiger's dinner. Lightning flashed as Wai Yonho reacted with a gasp. Rain began to fall. Wai Yonho stood alone in the pouring rain with the horses and the dead bodies. Wai Yonho realized he was truly screwed. A scream echoed through the rainy mountains. Wai Yonho wondered how he ended up in such a predicament. He tried to get on the horse, but it bucked. He lamented that he could not leave the bodies to become tiger food, nor could he bury them in the rain. Wai Yonho desperately decided he needed to find shelter. The horse neighed loudly. Wai Yonho yelled at the horse, asking why it was not listening to him. Rain continued to pour onto the rocky ground. A lightning bolt struck nearby, throwing Wai Yonho and the horse into the air. Wai Yonho screamed in terror. He landed hard on the ground, groaning in pain. He cried out as he lay on the ground. Leaves flew through the air. More leaves were scattered by the wind. Wai Yonho lay on the ground, still groaning. He complained about his back and cursed the horse. He looked up with a confused expression. He saw a cave entrance. Wai Yonho cheered excitedly that he found shelter from the rain. Wai Yonho called out to his horses as they approached the cave. He grabbed the reins of the horses. He groaned that he could not even hit the horses. Wai Yonho expressed his dislike for messes and his preference to stay home. He left a mark outside the cave, hoping his brother would find him. Meanwhile, the rain continued to fall. Wai Yonho decided to just sleep. He lay down inside the cave. He thought he hoped nothing happened to his brother. Wai Yonho then reassured himself that his brother was strong. He believed his brother would be back soon. Wai Yonho fell asleep. He continued sleeping as time passed. He remained asleep. While sleeping, a blue aura emanated from his body. The blue aura intensified around his sleeping form. He floated up and then moved quickly through the air within the cave. He continued to float and sleep. The blue aura pulsed around his head. The blue energy flowed out of the cave. Wai Yonho woke up confused. He looked around the cave, seeing green mist. He wondered where he was and noticed the ceiling looked different. He thought it looked like the cave he was in and wondered if he had gone deeper or rolled in somehow. A voice called him a faded human, startling Wai Yonho. He fell back in surprise. He looked around with a bewildered expression. A glowing blue orb welcomed him to the fated place as the successor of the Radiant Sword. Wai Yonho asked if the sparkling thing was what was speaking. The orb replied that it had transcended physical form and was speaking from beyond time and space. The orb instructed him to accept its will and rule the world, but Wai Yonho screamed that it was a ghost. The orb told him not to be afraid as it was already dead and only its will remained. It explained that it prepared this for someone who would get there after it and urged him to accept its will without doubt. Wai Yonho paused, finding the situation familiar. He thought about a cave without human presence. He then considered an old man's will and looked at the orb. He realized this was a fateful chance. Wai Yonho laughed joyfully. He exclaimed that the heavens were rewarding his kindness and he would not have to go to the martial training hall if he became strong here. The orb told him there was no time and to inherit its sword and write the morals of the world, promising to teach him its radiant sword, and Wai Yonho agreed. The orb stated Wai Yonho should be talented enough with its blood and could replicate its techniques after 30 years of training. Wai Yonho reacted with a shocked expression, asking if it meant 30 years. The orb confirmed it was just 30 years and Wai Yonho told it to wait. Wai Yonho smiled and said this fate was not for him, suggesting the orb look for the next person. The orb paused in surprise. The orb flashed, seemingly shocked by his refusal. Wai Yonho laughed, stating he would rather let the opportunity go than stay for 30 years. An old man began to narrate, saying that meeting was how. He continued that the loser Wai Yonho eventually became strong. The old man concluded his narration as Wai Yonho was shown wielding a sword with powerful energy. Wai Yonho smiled, stating he did not believe this was fate and advised the old man to seek someone else. He then ran away, shouting goodbye as he departed. Suddenly, Wai Yonho stopped, turning back to question what had just happened. The old man urgently shouted for him to wait 1 second. As he waited, the old man became enveloped in glowing energy, revealing himself as Baek Myuhan. Wai Yonho looked at him in utter surprise. He then accused Baek Myuhan of being a scammer. Baek Myuhan angrily asked how Wai Yonho dared to call him a scammer, accusing him of pretending to be one thing then revealing his true self. Baek Myuhan clarified he was not pretending, but was actually a spirit who had left his body. Wai Yonho looked confused, asking if he was truly a spirit who had left his body. Wai Yonho punched forward with a burst of energy. His punch passed directly through Baek Myuhan's glowing form. Wai Yonho fell to the ground in shock, and Baek Myuhan asked what he was doing. Wai Yonho screamed in terror, realizing Baek Myuhan was a real ghost. Baek Myuhan explained this was spirit transmission arts used by high-level martial artists whom some called ghosts. He shouted again that he was not a ghost. Now night, Wai Yonho and the old man sat by a campfire outside a rundown building. The old man narrated that this was how Wai Yonho met his master. Wai Yonho asked about spirit transmission arts and if such a thing truly existed. The old man explained it was a technique only martial artists of the highest level could attain. Wai Yonho then asked who was one martial artist capable of using that ability. Baek Myuhan asked if he knew the Sword Emperor. Wai Yonho confirmed he knew the Sword Emperor was the strongest person in history and the greatest person of the Thousand Swords Baek clan. Baek Myuhan confirmed he was talking about Baek Myuhan, the Radiant Sword, who was later called Sword Emperor and was the Radiant Martial Sovereign's master. Wai Yonho was shocked, asking if he really lived 300 years ago. Baek Myuhan said he was from a forgotten generation, but it was true he made Wai Yonho into his disciple. He then corrected himself, saying it was the opposite. Baek Myuhan declared the Sword Emperor needed a disciple at all costs and shouted that Wai Yonho must become his disciple. Wai Yonho asked why he was throwing a tantrum, stated he could not learn from him, then turned to leave. Baek Myuhan asked if he thought he would let him go so easily and created a large stone gate with glowing energy. Wai Yonho stood before the massive stone gate. He looked up at the gate in surprise. Baek Myuhan laughed, saying it was a super thick stone gate and Wai Yonho would never lift or break it with his current abilities. He added that if Wai Yonho learned his martial arts, he would be able to cut it like paper and leave. Wai Yonho sighed, saying there was no helping it. Baek Myuhan shouted that Wai Yonho could not cut that stone gate with his abilities. Wai Yonho sat down and began digging at the base of the gate with his sword. Baek Myuhan asked what he was doing and Wai Yonho replied he was digging a hole. Wai Yonho explained that no matter how strong it was still stone, and he would slowly break it down by grinding it with metal, saying he would break through in a year or two. Baek Myuhan looked horrified, asking if he would do that for a year or two. Wai Yonho continued digging as Baek Myuhan despaired that he could not beat the madman. Baek Myuhan offered to let him leave after 20 years if he just tried learning, but Wai Yonho said he did not like him and asked if he meant 20 years. Wai Yonho then lay down, saying 20 years was too long and he would consider 3 years. Baek Myuhan was enraged, asking if he wanted to learn his martial arts in 3 years, stating even Zhang Sanfeng could not do that. Why Yonho said then they were not meant to be. Baek Myuhan fumed in frustration. Why Yonho proposed 5 years. Baek Myuhan agreed to do whatever it took to make him the strongest in the world in 5 years. Why Yonho considered becoming the strongest martial artist in the world in 5 years. The narration noted that he had never heard of a spirit as vivid as Baek Myuhan. Why Yonho thought the technique might not be word of mouth, and Baek Myuhan might be telling half the truth and could be the strongest master. His sword was shown stuck in the ground as he decided to become a master using this opportunity. Why Yonho agreed to try it. The narrator stated why Yonho did not know Baek Myuhan was the Sword Emperor at the time, and that the Sword Emperor was unfortunate. This was because the person he met at the end of his life just happened to be Why Yonho, who was shown sleeping. Baek Myuhan shouted at Why Yonho to hurry up and wake up. Why Yonho complained he was tired and asked if Baek Myuhan did not sleep, then remembered he was dead and said humans needed to sleep. Baek Myuhan cursed and apologized, telling Why Yonho to train. The narration explained the disciple Baek Myuhan received at the end of his life was lazy, and Why Yonho complained about training right after waking up. Baek Myuhan yelled that at this rate it would take 50 years, not 5, and Why Yonho asked if there was an easier way to learn. Why Yonho thought Baek Myuhan would be less annoying if he did not speak, and that he needed a talented master. Baek Myuhan apologized repeatedly as the narration stated he would have suffered chi deviation from anger if he had a body. Baek Myuhan complained about wanting worldly success and passing down his martial arts while enduring his spirit state. He sighed, wishing he had a body to beat and teach Why Yonho, who was shown happily rolling on the ground. Why Yonho asked Baek Myuhan how he dropped the stone gate. He asked if Baek Myuhan could use that power to manipulate his body to teach him martial arts. Baek Myuhan explained he pulled a string on a device he made in advance and that it was unrelated to having a body. He clarified he used psychic levitation to pull the string with chi alone. Baek Myuhan looked intently. He shouted, asking why he did not realize it earlier. Baek Myuhan laughed maniacally, and Why Yonho asked what was wrong with him and if he had gone crazy. Baek Myuhan said he was too fixated on not having a body and thanked Why Yonho for teaching him something good. Why Yonho asked what Baek Myuhan was mumbling about. He looked confused. Why Yonho looked shocked as a small rock floated in the air. Baek Myuhan smiled, saying thanks to Why Yonho he realized he could move rocks even without a body. Why Yonho looked worried, asking old man as Baek Myuhan stated if he could move rocks. Baek Myuhan created multiple floating energy orbs, saying he could do things like this. Why Yonho screamed for him to wait and said, "Master, let us talk." Why Yonho was then hit by multiple energy blasts. After that day, Baek Myuhan and Why Yonho's training continued day and night. Why Yonho learned swordsmanship without rest during the day. He and Baek Myuhan debated during the night. Whenever Why Yonho slept, he trained using the unparalleled dream mythic arts Baek Myuhan taught him. Baek Myuhan's entire being became the sword. Blue energy fragments scattered. Why Yonho's life became the sword as he repeatedly struck rocks. Why Yonho had no time to be lazy. That was how 5 years passed by in a flash, and when he returned, his hand touched the ground. Why Yonho emerged from the open stone gate. The stone gate closed behind him. Why Yonho looked up at the sky. He smiled, saying he was finally out, and shook the world. One day ago, Why Yonho lay on the ground hearing his name called and wished to sleep more. He then sat up annoyed, asking if they did not believe his desire to sleep. Why Yonho looked surprised by the situation. Baek Myuhan, glowing with blue energy, then told him to come closer. Why Yonho sat on the ground asking what was happening as Baek Myuhan floated before him. Baek Myuhan explained he had learned martial arts his entire life, hoping to see its end. He continued that he only focused on martial arts, becoming a crabby old man treated distantly by his clan. Why Yonho thought about his master's unusual behavior during this confession. Baek Myuhan looked sad, stating it was obvious why his clan did not come looking for him. He recalled abandoning his children and family in pursuit of martial arts. Baek Myuhan had thought seeing the end of martial arts would give him everything. He reached out with his hand, looking pained by his past choices. Baek Myuhan then stated he was wrong in his past belief. He realized martial arts is a human endeavor, and seeing its end without people is meaningless. Baek Myuhan told Why Yonho that he had helped him realize this, surprising the young man. He added that he had taught someone for the first time in his life. Baek Myuhan described feeling angry and annoyed, but also happiness and joy from seeing Why Yonho grow. Why Yonho was shown training with a sword surrounded by purple energy as his master observed. Baek Myuhan said he also learned about fondness through their time together. Why Yonho asked his master what was wrong, noting he was acting as if they would never see each other again. Baek Myuhan affirmed that it was indeed time for him to depart. Why Yonho exclaimed in shock, asking what he was talking about and if he thought he would fall for such a trick. Why Yonho reminded his master they were supposed to train for 30 years and it had only been 5, insisting he had 25 more years to exist. Baek Myuhan acknowledged, saying that, then asked what of it now. He explained the internal chi he gave Why Yonho allowed him to live without eating in the cave, then told him to eat something, adding it was not easy to maintain. Baek Myuhan stated he had no more power left and it was time to say goodbye. Why Yonho cried out, asking why he was not told, saying he would have left to find food and come back to train. Baek Myuhan responded that he understood, but was sure Why Yonho would have returned if he had left. He then continued speaking to Why Yonho with a gentle tone. Baek Myuhan said he enjoyed their shared time and wanted to watch him travel the world, but this outcome was also fine. He looked at Hwa Yonho with a gentle, knowing expression. Baek Myuhan told him that in his eyes he could already clearly see him crisscrossing through the world, showing a vision of a dragon. A powerful image of Hwa Yonho with a dragon on his arm then appeared. Baek Myuhan advised Hwa Yonho to go see the world and keep it within him, promising other things would naturally follow. Hwa Yonho looked on as Baek Myuhan told him to see people before seeing the world and not to make the same mistakes he did by overlooking what was at his feet. Baek Myuhan added that even if he could not see him again, or if no one knew about his existence, his movements, and his swordsmanship would contain his spirit within them. Baek Myuhan reassured him that even if he was not outstanding or great, that was perfectly fine. Hwa Yonho cried out for his master, pleading with him not to leave yet, as there was still so much he had not learned. Hwa Yonho pleaded for just a bit longer, for one more day together. Baek Myuhan's spirit ascended into a blue wisp, telling Hwa Yonho to just be happy as he reached out to him. Hwa Yonho then stood alone in the silent cave. He looked down, calling out to his departed master. Hwa Yonho cried, wishing his master had told him a bit earlier about his impending departure. In the present, Hwa Yonho realized this was why his master left without telling him in advance. He held up a piece of his master's clothing, wondering when he stacked all of this, calling him a damned old man who should have left nicely. Hwa Yonho screamed in frustration outside the cave, asking what all of this was that his master left behind. Before disappearing, Baek Myuhan had written a message on Hwa Yonho's clothes, summarizing his final instructions. The message stated Hwa Yonho's martial arts learned in 5 years were incomplete, so Baek Myuhan put a feature on his body to make him train. This feature was Baek Myuhan's inner elixir that Hwa Yonho had swallowed, which would cause his martial arts to improve, but it was not simply getting stronger. The message explained that if Hwa Yonho's martial arts progress was slower than the inner elixir's speed, he would be in danger. His inner energy would be sucked in by the elixir, causing him to die. Hwa Yonho read the summary that he would die if he was lazy in training, angrily concluding his master was up to no good. The message also instructed him to travel the world and see different things, to feel and learn, urging him not to be satisfied with being a small person. Hwa Yonho scoffed at the instructions, calling his master damned. The message further directed him to go to Rulin first, find the world's greatest scholar, and stay with him, promising he would feel something after Rulin, which surprised Hwa Yonho. Hwa Yonho exclaimed, asking how many places his master was telling him to go in this elaborate plan. He stretched, saying he was going home, but would resolve everything first, reassuring his mother and father not to worry. Hwa Yonho looked determined to follow these strange instructions. He resolved to do what he must to survive and fulfill his master's last wishes. He bowed deeply towards the cave entrance, a final gesture of respect. Hwa Yonho walked away, telling his master he would not be back and that he bothered him until the very end. He ran down the path, asking aloud where Rulin was located. The empty cave entrance remained now truly deserted. Baek Myuhan's spirit then emerged from the cave. He laughed heartily at Hwa Yonho's reaction. Baek Myuhan declared that if Hwa Yonho did not learn about the world, he would dry up and die, criticizing him for wanting to live in the middle of nowhere. His spirit observed the path, saying the world was too broad to let Hwa Yonho simply do that. He added that it would be a waste of Hwa Yonho's martial arts to stay confined. Baek Myuhan's spirit faded into the sky, saying he was happy thanks to Hwa Yonho and wishing him to be happy in his journey. Hwa Yonho smelled grass for the first time, wondering what it was. Time passed and he eventually arrived in Kaifeng. He was now clad in tattered clothing. His feet were dirty and bandaged from his travels. A haggard Hwa Yonho asked a passerby if this was Kaifeng. He then approached a man sitting on a log nearby. The man-beggar sect branch leader Jang Il asked who the mummy was, then responded to Hwa Yonho's query. Hwa Yonho said he came to ask something, and Jang Il asked if he needed to pay money, stating nothing in this world was free. Jang Il looked at Hwa Yonho with a skeptical expression, assessing his appearance. Hwa Yonho's inner thoughts noted Jang Il's voice sounded young, but his face looked old, adding he had never seen such a beggar. Jang Il said he wanted to give information for free since they were in the same field, but it was the rules, then clarified they were both beggars. Hwa Yonho vehemently denied being a beggar, asking how he looked like one, while Jang Il insisted he obviously was. Jang Il told him to leave if he had no money and to come back after begging, but Hwa Yonho refused, asking why he would beg if he was not a beggar. Jang Il explained that beggars do not beg, but once one begs, they are a beggar, then suggested Hwa Yonho could make money by just sitting with a basket, asking why he wasted his talents. Jang Il extended his hand, waiting for payment from the young man. He then asked Hwa Yonho if he wanted to work with him, and Hwa Yonho asked with what kind of work. Soon after, Hwa Yonho was surrounded by piles of coins. He sat across from Jang Il in a room now filled with coins. Jang Il laughed excitedly, stating he earned half a year of operating costs for his branch in half a day. Other beggars outside exclaimed that the god of wealth had come, while 2 others wondered what was happening, hearing a pathetic beggar had arrived. Jang Il asked Hwa Yonho what he wanted to know, holding a bone as he spoke. Hwa Yonho requested a list of locations, hobbies, and specialties of famous scholars, and then also blacksmiths. Jang Il was shocked by the extensive request asking if he wanted all of that information. Jang Il promised to tell him but told him to come back in 7 days, but Wai Yonho replied he had nowhere to go and nothing to do so he would stay there. Jang Il looked thoughtful then agreed to let him stay at the branch. A few days later, Jang Il came to regret those words as another beggar rushed in shouting about trouble. Jang Il asked what kind of trouble could there be for beggars, then was told they were going to starve to death. A group of people were being driven away by others who called them fake beggars and told them to buzz off. Jang Il ran with another beggar asking what was truly going on in the streets. Jang Il looked shocked and worried, realizing the gravity of the situation for his branch. A man with a goatee and topknot pointed, telling other beggars they had to be on a certain level to operate here. Wai Yonho sat on the ground surrounded by coins looking disheveled, thinking he had never seen someone pocket so much money and how pitiful it was. Jang Il looked utterly terrified by the new threat, screaming in despair. Wai Yonho smirked surrounded by coins, thinking it was easy to make money having completed taking over the beggar world. Wai Yonho, disheveled and tired, states his thirst. He yells for water, kicking a beggar who lies on the ground. Complaining the bowl is dirty, he demands a new one, hitting another beggar. Next, he complains the water is lukewarm and demands cold mountain water. Jang Il watches him, annoyed by these relentless demands. He thinks about his position as a branch leader forced to serve Wai Yonho. He considers that expelling Wai Yonho would lead to his men starving. Jang Il worries about his back and the requested information, fearing their demise as a beggar calls to him. Beggars cheer as one runs in announcing the information's arrival. Jang Il expresses relief, and Wai Yonho looks up from where he lies. Wai Yonho remains on the ground, now holding a paper bag. Jang Il questions if the meager paper bag holds all the information, asking if Wai Yonho intends to sell so little, to which Wai Yonho asks what he means. Jang Il reaches out and takes the paper bag from him. He inspects the paper bag with a thoughtful expression. Jang Il realizes it contains only half the requested information and suspects they are being targeted. He thinks this situation is bad and he needs to act before Wai Yonho does. Jang Il tells Wai Yonho he cannot beg on the streets and leads him away. As they walk towards a building, Jang Il tells Wai Yonho he will provide information. From above, Han Sang-ah remarks on Jang Il's rare presence, calling him Fox Dog. She maintains an elegant expression. She is revealed as Gui Nangnang, the Hao sect Kaifeng's branch leader. Jang Il bows and offers greetings to branch leader Gui, while Wai Yonho questions the Fox Dog nickname. Wai Yonho laughs, asking if Fox Dog is Jang Il's title, which annoys Jang Il. He repeatedly demands information from Gui Nangnang, calling her a bitch. Han Sang-ah expresses surprise at Jang Il's visit for information, acknowledging their rivalry. Jang Il clarifies he is not asking for the beggar sect, but has brought a customer, while Wai Yonho continues to call her a bitch. She looks annoyed and asks if they are joking. Wai Yonho points out the client is a beggar even if the request is not from the beggar sect. Han Sang-ah considers this an insult or provocation, stating they do not sell information to the beggar sect. Wai Yonho states he is not from the beggar sect and pokes Jang Il, who tells him to stop. Han Sang-ah warns she will take action if they continue to insult her, emphasizing their pride. Wai Yonho questions if the Hao sect is truly an intelligence organization. He criticizes Han Sang-ah for not even knowing if he is from the beggar sect, implying her lack of basic skills. Han Sang-ah looks angered by his words. She calls out Gongmu, looking down at Wai Yonho and Jang Il. She asks her attendant who Wai Yonho is. The attendant replies they do not know him, but he is not from the beggar sect. Han Sang-ah appears visibly angry. Wai Yonho, smiling, asks if she can sell information to him now. Han Sang-ah refuses and tells them to get out. Wai Yonho scoffs at her refusal. He tells her she lacks a business mindset for refusing payment. He predicts the Hao sect will soon be finished. Han Sang-ah warns him to watch his mouth unless he wants his limbs cut off, but Wai Yonho retorts he is not wrong. Wai Yonho calls Han Sang-ah an old lady, further enraging her. He asks if she is insulting him now. Han Sang-ah yells for Gongmu to teach Wai Yonho a lesson. Gongmu lunges at Wai Yonho with a weapon. Jang Il tries to stop Wai Yonho as Gongmu's attack closes in. Wai Yonho tells Jang Il to move. Wai Yonho counterattacks Gongmu with a powerful strike. Han Sang-ah looks shocked by the turn of events. Jang Il also looks surprised and fearful. Wai Yonho stands with his shirt open, revealing his muscular physique. Han Sang-ah realizes Wai Yonho is a martial master as he apologizes for his counterattack with Gongmu lying defeated. Wai Yonho explains it is his instinct to counterattack, saying he would have gone easier if warned. Jang Il thinks Wai Yonho learned martial arts but did not expect such strength. He internally calls Wai Yonho a monster and blames an old man for this situation. Han Sang-ah, with clasped hands, says she did not know he was such a prestigious customer, then asks what he is talking about. She looks intently, stating in any case. Jang Il nervously states that Wai Yonho does not seem to be there with good intentions. He clarifies he is not there to fight and needed help obtaining information the beggar sect could not get. Han Sang-ah asks if that is why he brought Wai Yonho, and Jang Il affirms acknowledging it is like bringing a tiger to a rabbit's den. Han Sang-ah says she will believe him. Jang Il thanks her. Han Sang-ah states that giving information is a separate matter, noting Wai Yonho hurt her person. She adds they will need compensation for that. Jang Il questions the demand for compensation. Han Sang-ah explains a simple rule in the unorthodox world: blood for blood, a life for a life. She calls out 4 shadows and several masked figures appear. Wai Yonho comments that everyone makes a fancy appearance in this place. Han Sang-ah warns Wai Yonho he will not leave unharmed since he hurt one of her people. Wai Yonho asks if it is that hard to understand, explaining it was a mistake, and he only hit Gongwoo lightly because Gongwoo tried to hit him first. Han Sang-ah looks intensely angry at his explanation. She reiterates that the unorthodox Murim's ways are an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Wai Yonho dismisses her words as lone shark talk while Jang Il tries to quiet him. One of the 4 shadows declares they will take a bit of flesh from Wai Yonho's face. Wai Yonho holds up a hand, interrupting the man. He says he has no fat on his face because he has not been able to eat properly recently. Han Sang-ah clenches her jaw in extreme anger. Han Sang-ah orders the 4 shadows to kill Wai Yonho and they attack him. Wai Yonho dodges, noting they initially only wanted a bit of flesh from his face. He questions why they now want to kill him. Wai Yonho remarks that this is a lot of interest and scary. Wai Yonho swiftly counters the attacking 4 shadows. He sends one of the 4 shadows flying with a powerful strike. Han Sang-ah looks utterly shocked and screams in disbelief. Wai Yonho stands over the defeated 4 shadows and commands everyone not to move. Weapons lie scattered and broken around the fallen 4 shadows. Wai Yonho states he does not really want to kill yet. Jo Bang looks distressed and sweaty. Han Sang-ah thinks his aura is powerful. Master Mu-san recalls his master's teaching about not allowing an attacker to strike multiple times. Baek Mu-hyun states he does not like that old man but acknowledges his words are true. Han Sang-ah realizes she messed with the wrong person and he is beyond her capabilities. Baek Mu-hyun thinks he needs to compose himself or the entire House sect branch might face ruin. Han Sang-ah asks Baek Mu-hyun what he wants and he replies information. She then asks what specific information. Jo Bang states he has the papers and asks her to fill in the empty spots. Han Sang-ah looks at the papers and thinks they brought a monster because they could not resolve a simple matter. She states it is not difficult and she just needs some time, asking if they can wait. Jo Bang replies yes and she asks for 15 minutes. Han Sang-ah tells Jo Bang as the beggar sect's branch leader to come see her. He reacts with a scared sound. The room remains empty after his departure. Baek Mu-hyun laughs loudly and points. He mocks Jo Bang about his face looking like a dumpling, asking if she beat him up. Jo Bang tells him to shut up. Baek Mu-hyun continues to mock him about the beggar sect getting beaten by the house sect. Jo Bang retorts, asking if that woman looks like a mere regular member. Jo Bang explains she is the daughter of the house sect leader and the future leader, wondering how he could be a match for her. Jo Bang stands defensively in front of Baek Mu-hyun as Han Sang-ah approaches. Baek Mu-hyun presents the information to Han Sang-ah and she thanks him. Han Sang-ah states they do have their own rules, making Baek Mu-hyun look confused. Jo Bang asks how much the information fees are. Han Sang-ah replies 5 nyang. Jo Bang offers some coins, saying that is cheap. Baek Mu-hyun clarifies it is 5 silver nyang and asks why it is so expensive. Han Sang-ah explains it was high security information, which is why it is pricey. Baek Mu-hyun asks Jo Bang where he is going. Jo Bang asks what he thinks. Jo Bang states he has to go earn his 5 silver nyang. Baek Mu-hyun stops Jo Bang, saying he brought him here for a reason and asks what he is supposed to do. Jo Bang cries out to wait a second and curses. Jang Il used all Wai Yonho's earned money and his hidden stash to pay the 5 silver nyang, borrowing what he did not have with an Ayu. Jo Bang holds a silver nyang and states his heart aches. Baek Mu-hyun asks if he is crying. Jo Bang shouts at Baek Mu-hyun that he had to use up all his hidden savings. Han Sang-ah thinks the information is thorough and on a different level than what the beggars bring. Baek Mu-hyun states he also wants to send a letter to Guangdong and asks if that will be expensive. Han Sang-ah says it will be more expensive than an escort agency, but she will do it if he answers some questions. She asks his name. He replies it is Wai Yonho. She asks his age and he replies he is 17. Jo Bang is shocked that he is younger than her. Han Sang-ah is surprised by his age and thinks his martial prowess is not that of a 17-year-old. She repeats Wai Yonho's name thoughtfully. She asks if he is Guangdong's Wai Yonho, the second son of the Wai clan. He asks if she knows him. Jo Bang explains that the Guangdong's Wai clan requested them to find him and asks if he is Wai Sanho's younger brother. Wai Yonho asks if Jo Bang knows his older brother. Jo Bang enthusiastically states he is his friend. Han Sang-ah asks if he is sending the letter to the Guangdong's Wai clan and states it will take at least 10 days to arrive. Wai Yonho replies it is alright as they waited 5 years and 10 more days will not hurt. Han Sang-ah holds a piece of red cloth and says also this. Han Sang-ah explains the red cloth marks him as a special guest of the house sect, and if he ties it somewhere an informant will find him. Wai Yonho asks if it is free. Han Sang-ah thinks there is no one in the Central Plains skilled enough to defeat the 4 swords at 17 years old. She replies no. She thinks creating a connection with him should be good. Wai Yonho dismisses it as useless. She then offers to give him information for free next time. He asks if she is serious. Han Sang-ah says it is specially for him because they do not want to lose him as a customer after what happened earlier. Wai Yonho asks what happened. Jo Bang complains his face is like a dumpling and he is completely broke. Wai Yonho says it happens often and calls him a loser. Jo Bang shouts he is not and laments his money as they walk outside. Why Yonho states money comes and goes. He adds that a beggar should not be greedy and tells Joe Bang to tap into his beggar roots. Joe Bang looks frustrated thinking he cannot even beat Why Yonho up. Joe Bang says Why Yonho got the information he wanted so they will not have to see each other anymore. Why Yonho grabs Joe Bang and tells him to wait saying there is a problem. Joe Bang asks what now. Why Yonho states he does not have money and smiles brightly. Joe Bang makes a disgusted face. Joe Bang curses under the clear sky. Han Sang-ah stands outside the building. She calls for Gongmu. Gongmu replies yes branch leader. Han Sang-ah instructs Gongmu to send a letter to the sect. She tells Gongmu to inform them that the second son of the Guangdong's Y clan who went missing is back. She adds that he has come back as a martial master. The Great Hanlim Institute is shown with a pond and autumn trees. A man sits by a window at the Great Hanlim Institute drinking tea. Mun Yuwen, the third grand scholar, sips tea and comments how nice it is. His daughter Mun Yunji addresses him as father. Mun Yunji informs him a guest is here for him. Mun Yuwen says he has nothing on his schedule. Mun Yunji says they wanted to play a game of Go with him. Mun Yuwen looks pleased and repeats Go. Why Yonho enters the room and Mun Yunji says the guest is here. Why Yonho says he hopes he is not intruding. Mun Yuwen replies it is an indulgence to have guests and asks if he wanted to play Go with him. Why Yonho states that is the only kind of thing he knows how to play. Mun Yuwen agrees to play offering to play the white pieces and asking Why Yonho to go first. Why Yonho states he will begin and places a black stone. He picks up a black Go stone. Mun Yuwen thinks he should not expect much from him and that he looks like he is just there for a free meal. He decides to help him out after a game. Why Yonho places a Go stone with force. Mun Yuwen looks surprised. He thinks Why Yonho is not a beginner and says that is nice. He then makes his move. Mun Yuwen thinks Why Yonho is fast with his moves and it is rare to see someone his age so experienced. They continue to play Go with rapid moves. Mun Yuwen looks contemplative as they continue to play. Mun Yuwen's hand hovers over the board. Mun Yuwen looks shocked and thinks Why Yonho is not just being fast. Why Yonho smiles and asks Mun Yuwen if he is going to make a move. The narration calls Why Yonho a war demon. The Go board displayed a complex game in progress filled with many black and white pieces. Mun Yuwen looked surprised by the game's intensity, remarking that the play was amazing. Why Yonho's playstyle was like angry ocean waves. He was like a person crazed for battles, attacking boldly even when unnecessary. If he saw a slight opening, he would charge down. Why Yonho sat at the Go board charging like a starved beast. He was truly a war demon. Mun Yuwen told Why Yonho it was a good game and that he possessed a unique playstyle, to which Why Yonho attributed it to bullying from his master. Mun Yuwen then asked if he had a master. Why Yonho thought of his strict old master who had promised intense training for losses and rest for wins. He then asked to stay over a bit, explaining his master had told him to remain in Rulan for a while. Mun Yuwen readily agreed, offering to prepare a room for Why Yonho to stay as long as he liked. Mun Yuwen instructed Mun Yunji to prepare a room and clothes, then guide Why Yonho to the bath, but Why Yonho admitted he did not have money. Mun Yuwen laughed, saying he would not expect payment and had intended to ask him to stay regardless. He then asked Why Yonho to play Go with him or a guest sometimes in return. Why Yonho agreed, stating he could certainly do that. Mun Yuwen told Why Yonho he would see him around, and Mun Yunji then instructed him to come with her. Why Yonho was soon in a bath, remarking how nice it felt. He thought he had hated baths when younger, but this water was nice and his skin felt clearer. He felt almost like crying from how nice it was, blaming his old master for his past aversion. Meanwhile, Mun Yunji walked with a stack of clothes. She wondered why her father had accepted someone like Why Yonho as a guest. Why Yonho's foot then stepped out of the bath. Mun Yunji was startled when he emerged from the bath. Mun Yunji screamed and Why Yonho asked what had happened. She said she thought he was a ghost and told him to cover up. Why Yonho took the clothes from her, simply saying, well. Mun Yunji blushed and looked away. Why Yonho stood with a towel wrapped around his waist. He then asked if that was good enough. Mun Yunji, still flustered, asked who he was. A few days later, Mun Yunji called out to her father. Mun Yunji told her father to say something to the new guest. Mun Yuwen asked who, and she clarified the new guy. She complained that Why Yonho did not leave his room and slept all day if he was not eating. Mun Yuwen looked contemplative. Mun Yuwen said he had forgot to ask Why Yonho's name, prompting Mun Yunji to remind him he had once said sloth was a sin, asking why he was not addressing Why Yonho's laziness. Mun Yuwen told Mun Yunji that he liked Go and believed one could learn a lot about a person by playing. He thought Why Yonho's playstyle revealed a person who had lived a rough life. Mun Yuwen believed Why Yonho was definitely not a lazy person, but rather someone who had lived a very rough life. He reasoned that if Why Yonho was being lazy now, it meant his life until then had been exceptionally hard. Mun Yuwen added that one should not chase away a bird that had come under the roof to avoid the rain, telling Mun Yunji to let Why Yonho rest. Mun Yunji sighed and reluctantly said all right. She looked annoyed, muttering that was what she had said. Mun Yunji stood in the doorway looking at Why Yonho sleeping on the floor amid scattered plates. She thought her father had been deceived and that Why Yonho was not at all like he described, deciding then to get him kicked out. Mun Yunji stood over Why Yonho and told him to get up. Why Yonho simply asked why. Mun Yunji pulled the blanket off him and shouted for him to get up because the sun was already up. Why Yonho sat up, asking if the sun was up and to let him know when it set. Mun Yoonji yelled at him asking what was wrong with him and why he had been doing nothing but sleeping for a week. Why Yonho replied that other people studied because they wanted to and he was sleeping because he wanted to sleep. Mun Yoonji told him to shut up complaining about his lack of bathing and who washed his bedsheets, adding they were not well off enough to feed someone who just lazed around. Why Yonho started to say her father had said, but Mun Yoonji interrupted, stating she was in charge of the money. Mun Yoonji looked sternly at him. Why Yonho then asked what he should do. Mun Yoonji told him to do the laundry. Why Yonho asked if all of this laundry would cover his food, to which Mun Yoonji replied it was not much, prompting him to mutter that she acted like she was putting gold flakes in his rice. Mun Yoonji told him good luck, and to make sure it was clean, warning she would make him rewash anything that was not. Mun Yoonji smiled, thinking he deserved this and would not be able to finish it all by today. 2 hours later, Mun Yoonji looked shocked. She stood surrounded by many lines of clean drying laundry, wondering how he had done it. Mun Yoonji looked at the white laundry, wondering if they had always been this white. Why Yonho lay on the ground relaxing while Mun Yoonji stood nearby, still wondering how he had accomplished it. Mun Yoonji clenched her fist, deciding she could not let him just laze around again. Soon Why Yonho and Mun Yoonji stood before a large pile of logs. Mun Yoonji asked if he could chop all the logs in a week, privately thinking he would run away after a day. Mun Yoonji was shocked to see all the logs chopped into small pieces, thinking it should have taken 10 people 10 days to accomplish. Why Yonho was then shown sleeping on the floor next to stacks of sparkling clean dishes, leaving Mun Yoonji looking shocked once more. He was next shown sleeping in a sparkling clean garden, with Mun Yoonji looking shocked and wondering how he managed it. Mun Yoonji clenched her fists and yelled, asking how he was so capable. Thus Why Yonho's Rulin life truly began. An old man with white hair told a younger man that it was a mistake to take Why Yonho, in prompting the young man to ask why. The old man explained that Why Yonho brought disaster and trouble wherever he went. He said it was the same with Rulin. A scholar hall that had been quiet was swept with chaos once Why Yonho showed up. The young man asked what exactly had happened. The old man replied that it all began when Why Yonho played Go. Why Yonho looked distressed, wondering how he had caused such a stir. Why Yonho thought playing Go would be occasional, but Mun Yuhwin sent a letter to everyone inviting them to play with him. The letter read that a stone remaining stagnant would rot, and a laid table waited for its owner. It continued inviting them to visit for a game of Go if the time was right. Why Yonho played Go with a look of utter exhaustion. A master of Go appeared, bowing before a Go board and declaring their loss. Why Yonho, looking exhausted, called for the next player as this all unfolded within the Great Hanlim Institute. A Go stone landed on the board with a strong impact. Jo Bang intently observed the Go board. He considered the recent move to be suicidal. He questioned if it was a mistake, but quickly dismissed the thought. He recognized his opponent as Why Yonho, the undefeated genius of Hanlim. Jo Bang believed Why Yonho had a plan and must be setting a trap. He observed Why Yonho shaking and thought he had successfully avoided the trap. Why Yonho stared back with an unreadable expression. He then shouted in frustration, asking why his opponent had backed off. He revealed his seemingly suicidal move was a ploy to lose the game. Jo Bang bowed and declared his loss to him. Why Yonho cried out in exasperation. He walked away looking utterly exhausted. He lamented that his attempts to lose only scared off opponents. He pulled at his hair in frustration, realizing more people would come to play. He complained about his back, stating he preferred doing laundry. He suddenly reacted with a surprised expression, stating he did not want to. Why Yonho then peeked from behind a structure, observing a conversation. A man named Nok Mokpung asked if someone truly did not want to marry him. A young woman with red ribbons firmly rejected the marriage proposal. Nok Mokpung warned her she would regret her decision, but she stated she would not. He insisted she reconsider, claiming he always got what he wanted. The young woman challenged him, saying the Great Hanlim Institute would not fall easily. Nok Mokpung replied that he could make it happen. She glared at him with anger. She angrily told him she hated that about him and would never marry him. She turned to leave, bidding him goodbye. Nok Mokpung then grabbed her wrist. She struggled and screamed for him to let her go. Nok Mokpung warned her it was in her best interest not to anger him. He leaned close to her and asked if she could still act so bold. The young woman looked fearful. She was startled by a voice from behind. Why Yonho stood nearby with a serious expression. The young woman asked Why Yonho if he had finished his chores. Why Yonho was surprised and explained he had been playing Go. She then asked to borrow something from him. Why Yonho took a red ribbon from her hair and used it to tie his own hair. He looked determined with his hair now tied back. Nok Mokpung asked if it was rude to listen in on others' conversations, and Why Yonho apologized. Why Yonho told him he was not one to talk about manners. Nok Mokpung recognized him as the genius of Hanlim. Why Yonho thanked him but stated he had no idea who Nok Mokpung was. He dismissed Nok Mokpung's attempt to introduce himself. Nok Mokpung's face contorted in anger. He told Why Yonho he should have continued playing Go instead of interfering. Why Yonho smiled and said he was good at getting in people's way. Nok Mokpung shouted an expletive at him. The ground shook as his anger intensified. Several men then approached Why Yonho, asking to play Go with him tomorrow. Nok Mokpung turned to leave in frustration. He warned Mun Yoonji that if she did not come to him in 3 days, he would do things his own way as he walked off. Why Yonho looked thoughtfully at Nok Mokpung's retreating figure. Why Yonho asked Mun Yoonji who that man was. Mun Yoonji explained it was Nok Mokpung, the adopted son of a powerful attendant. Why Yonho asked what he had been saying to her. Mun Yoonji explained he wanted to marry her, but his persistence was annoying. Why Yonho asked if Nok Mokpung was not alright, noting his good family and determination. Mun Yoonji clarified that Nok Mokpung wanted to use her because her father had a good network. She explained her father was considered a perfect candidate for a politician, but his current life was not due to lack of interest. Why Yonho jokingly suggested it was because of Go, but Mun Yoonji denied it. Mun Yoonji explained it was because the eunuchs of the imperial palace were wary of her father. She emphasized that the Great Hanlim Institute was different from other institutes. She explained they were not affiliated with other organizations, which was difficult, but allowed them to form deep connections. She continued that the eunuchs were in power because they were corrupt and the forces of Rulin had not unified. She stated that if her father controlled Rulin's forces, the eunuchs would be in danger. Mun Yoonji explained Nok Mokpung's father was desperate to stop her father from civil service and had found a new way. She revealed the new way was the marriage between her and Nok Mokpung. Meanwhile, Nok Mokpung's father questioned the plan due to the appearance of the genius of Hanlim. The head of the eunuchs, Nok Gi, called Why Yonho a useless good for nothing. Nok Mokpung explained Why Yonho was not the problem, but many people were coming to play Go against him. He added that too many eyes were watching, limiting his actions. Nok Gi acknowledged his son's hesitation and Nok Mokpung apologized. Nok Gi asked if his son thought this mission was just for his sake. Nok Mokpung looked startled and began to sweat. Nok Gi stated that taking over the imperial palace was a mission given by the one and only. He declared that failing this mission was not an option for either of them. Nok Gi asked if Nok Mokpung understood that he was more afraid to disappoint him than of death, and Nok Mokpung confirmed. Nok Gi then said that sometimes violence was necessary. Nok Mokpung looked worried and asked for clarification. Nok Gi, with a sinister expression, instructed him to use the crowd to his advantage and kill them all. He added that this included the genius of Hanlim while Why Yonho sat playing Go. A grand building stood under a clear sky. Inside, Royal Head Inspector Lee Wangia asked Mun Yuwen if he was still not interested in a government position. Mun Yuwen, playing Go with him, apologized. Lee Wangia then questioned why he could not see the need to be at the center to stop Nok Gi. He sighed, addressing Mun Yuwen directly. He informed him that their movements had been suspicious lately. He added that Nok Gi's influence caused instability in the military and among scholar officials. A dark figure with glowing eyes was surrounded by red energy, illustrating Nok Gi's sinister presence. Mun Yuwen paused, deep in thought. Lee Wangia assumed he wondered why a man unable to have children would start a revolution, which Mun Yuwen confirmed. Lee Wangia then posed a new question. What if Nok Gi was serving another master? A chaotic scene of figures fighting in red light illustrated the terror of political struggles between eunuchs. He explained that Nok Gi had managed to rise despite having no foundation, finding it strange. As he spoke, a red moon appeared and he stated that those who crossed Nok Gi died in accidents or diseases, as if someone paved his path. Mun Yuwen suggested it might just be a coincidence. Lee Wangia replied that he once thought so too, but now believed someone was helping Nok Gi from behind the scenes. He then stated his need for Mun Yuwen, urging them to unite against Nok Gi. Mun Yuwen said he would think about it more, then cleared his throat. Lee Wangia changed the subject, asking about the new genius Mun Yuwen had taken in. Mun Yuwen smiled, saying the genius was amazing and seemed to be hiding his true potential. Lee Wangia expressed curiosity and asked when he could meet him, to which Mun Yuwen replied that Yoonji should have gone to pick him up. Just then Mun Yuwen heard a voice announce their arrival. A wet boot then stepped onto the floor. Why Yonho entered with Mun Yoonji asking if he had been called. Both Lee Wangia and Mun Yuwen looked surprised by Why Yonho's appearance. The chapter title was then displayed. Mun Yuwen apologized to Why Yonho for calling him early and asked if he slept well, to which Why Yonho replied he slept very well if nobody had poured cold water on his face. Mun Yuwen laughed and said he wanted to introduce Why Yonho to someone. Lee Wangia winked and introduced himself as an old passerby. Why Yonho asked what Lee Wangia wanted and Mun Yuwen explained that he wished to play Go. Why Yonho firmly stated he could not play. Lee Wangia asked why he could not play, having played with everyone else, but Why Yonho still refused. Why Yonho clarified he was not refusing Go itself, but that proper orders existed and others were there before him. Mun Yuwen laughed, saying he could resolve it by asking others to be understanding. Why Yonho retorted that was not resolving things but coercion. Both Lee Wangia and Mun Yuwen looked surprised by Why Yonho's bluntness. Why Yonho told Lee Wangia that his high social status would force compliance rather than willing agreement. He further stated he valued promises and rules. Lee Wangia thought Why Yonho was more firm in his beliefs than expected, finding the situation difficult. Lee Wangia asked if he could not do something about it, but Why Yonho replied he just needed to wait his turn. Mun Yoonji then told her father Mun Yuwen that she thought she could resolve the situation. Mun Yuwen asked if she could, and she confirmed it. Mun Yoonji thought skeptically about Why Yonho's stated value for rules and promises. She told Wai Yonho that if he played this game she would cancel all his other Go games for today, prompting his surprise. Wai Yonho looked furious and demanded to know what she meant. Though tempted, Wai Yonho claimed he had morals, so Mun Yoonji then offered to cancel tomorrow's games too. Mun Yoonji firmly told him not to bargain and to make his choice if he wanted to rest today. Wai Yonho sighed and agreed to begin the game. Lee Wangia and Mun Yuhun watched them. Lee Wangia thought Wai Yonho was the worst and not a man of his word. He considered leaving but decided he should see the game through. Lee Wangia placed a Go stone, saying he wanted to see what Wai Yonho was truly like. The Go board displayed a complex pattern of black and white stones. Later that night, Lee Wangia sat by the Go board. Mun Yuhun asked him if he had not enjoyed the game with Wai Yonho. Lee Wangia looked thoughtfully at the Go board. He described Wai Yonho's Go style as violent and quick, stating such plays were not seen even on a battlefield. Lee Wangia wondered what kind of life Wai Yonho must have lived. He concluded Wai Yonho was not the right one, as his laziness and violence were not what he sought. Lee Wangia called it a waste of time, not understanding why Mun Yuhun valued him so highly, but Mun Yuhun replied it was because he had seen something. Lee Wangia asked Mun Yuhun what he had seen. Mun Yuhun explained that during one of his games against Wai Yonho, he had made a prophylactic move. He thought it was a very good move. He believed the game was over, so he took his eyes off the board. What he saw next was Wai Yonho's face. Wai Yonho had fallen deeply into a rare trance. Later, Lee Wangia and Mun Yuhun walked together at night. Lee Wangia asked Mun Yuhun if he was sure he had seen correctly. Mun Yuhun confidently affirmed he was sure. Lee Wangia scoffed. Lee Wangia stated he did not intend on taking Wai Yonho in either way, prompting Mun Yuhun to ask if that was so. Lee Wangia said he wasted his time, but at least got to see Mun Yuhun, so it was not a complete waste, adding he better get going early tomorrow. Mun Yuhun asked if he was that busy. Lee Wangia reminded him that the atmosphere had been tense lately, which Mun Yuhun understood. Lee Wangia looked at the moon and said it was a shame. He added that the night was perfect. Meanwhile, a masked man told Nok Mokpung that the preparations were complete, to which Nok Mokpung replied, "All right." Nok Mokpung stood under the moonlight with masked figures surrounding him. He instructed them to get it done quickly. A shadowy figure moved swiftly. Master Mu-san yawned as several masked figures descended from above. Master Mu-san looked surprised. Blood splattered against a door. Nok Mokpung stood adorned with his many necklaces. Master Mu-san was shown fighting off numerous masked attackers. Nok Mokpung said this was why they should have listened to him while he was being nice. He shouted to get them all. He declared that tonight the Great Hanlim Institute would become a prison that not even a rat could escape, all while Wai Yonho slept and groaned. Men in black attack others in a courtyard, striking them down with glowing blue energy. One of Nok Mokpung's men then falls from above, landing among a group of armed men who prepare to strike him. Nok Mokpung states that they should have listened to him while he was still being nice. He raises his hand, shouting to get them all. He declares he will teach her a lesson that day. Several people are tied up on the ground, surrounded by men in black holding swords. Mun Yuhun, tied up next to Mun Yoonji, asks what the meaning of this is. Nok Mokpung states his group received information about suspicious activity at the Great Hanlim Institute, including visits from high-authority people. Mun Yuhun asks how that is suspicious at all. Nok Mokpung asks what reason people with both political and martial power would have to get together. He concludes there is only one possibility: a revolution. Mun Yuhun exclaims about a revolution, insisting they are only there to play Go. Nok Mokpung asks if he expects him to believe that many people gathered just to play Go. Mun Yuhun insists he is serious, mentioning rumors about a genius, which Nok Mokpung acknowledges but dismisses as easily fabricated. Nok Mokpung looks at the tied-up people, including Mun Yuhun and Mun Yoonji. He asks one of his men who they are looking for, and the man replies it is the genius Mun Yuhun spoke of. Nok Mokpung states there are no more people remaining in the building. He wonders if the genius ran off, calling him a lucky bastard and noting escape would be impossible after their arrival. Nok Mokpung tells the tied-up group they will be freed if innocent, offering an apology if no problem is found. One of his men then finds something, shouting his discovery. The man shows Nok Mokpung a book labeled Signatures, which Nok Mokpung identifies as an agreement of the people planning the revolution. Mun Yuhun reacts in shock, denying they have ever done such a thing. Nok Mokpung holds up the book, declaring there is proof right in front of them. Mun Yuhun realizes they have been framed from the beginning. Other tied-up people also cry out their innocence, denying involvement. A tied-up old man with long white hair and a purple robe comments on the interesting incident. Nok Mokpung looks surprised, recognizing the old man. Nok Mokpung identifies him as Lee Wangia, the royal head inspector and the emperor's brother. Lee Wangia shouts for him to be called the royal head inspector. Other tied-up people express relief, believing they are saved and that Lee Wangia will confirm their innocence. Nok Mokpung bows slightly, stating he would not have acted thus if he had known Lee Wangia was present. Lee Wangia states he does not hold grudges and instructs Nok Mokpung to free the captives. Nok Mokpung says he has a question first, and Lee Wangia inquires about it. Nok Mokpung asks why Lee Wangia planned this revolution. Nok Mokpung smirks, asking if Lee Wangia truly believed he was unaware of his presence. Nok Mokpung's men hold Li Wanjia, while Nok Mokpung explains that every revolution has a central figure, and it logically would be the emperor's brother. Li Wanjia shouts that Nok Mokpung's arrogance knows no bounds, threatening him with consequences for the framing. Nok Mokpung tells Li Wanjia he is misunderstanding, adding that he will be unable to report this to His Majesty, as he will never see him again. Nok Mokpung declares that the punishment for revolution is immediate execution, stating they will all die there, and that he possesses the revolutionary signatures. Li Wanjia curses Nok Mokpung, stating the heavens will not forgive him, while Nok Mokpung dismissively tells him to keep begging. Nok Mokpung adds there is someone who has to die first. He names Mun Yunji. Nok Mokpung kneels before Mun Yunji, reminding her of his warning that he would proceed his way, and that her rejection would lead to everyone's death. He leans close, asking if she is willing to change her mind now. Nok Mokpung makes a sound of annoyance. Mun Yunji shouts that she would rather die than marry someone like him. Nok Mokpung licks his lips. He touches Mun Yunji's cheek, saying he will not kill her. He states he will make her believe death would be the better outcome, inflicting pain 100 times worse than she can imagine. Mun Yunji scoffs, stating she would rather die than be humiliated, to which Nok Mokpung asks if that is truly so. A masked man holds a sword to Mun Yuwen's neck, as Nok Mokpung says that if Mun Yunji kills herself, her father will suffer torment. Mun Yuwen screams in fear as the masked man prepares to strike. Wai Yonho prepares to block an incoming attack. Wai Yonho thinks he needs to stop the attack, then questions his own thought process. Wai Yonho blocks a blue energy attack with his arm. He blocks multiple blue energy attacks from several masked men. One of the masked men is knocked back by Wai Yonho's attack. The tied-up people look surprised. Another masked man is knocked back and enveloped in smoke. Nok Mokpung stands over a fallen masked man and looks surprised. Wai Yonho states his master taught that if an opponent prepares something big, one should back off. Nok Mokpung is surprised that Wai Yonho defeated the first darkness so easily. Nok Mokpung says his father spent decades perfecting him as the leader of Black Void, then suggests it would be convenient if they both retreated now. Wai Yonho stands holding a broom. Nok Mokpung offers Wai Yonho gold coins, prompting Wai Yonho to question him. Nok Mokpung smiles, remarking on the amazing situation. Wai Yonho smiles and laughs, agreeing with Nok Mokpung. Mun Yunji asks Wai Yonho why he is happy. Nok Mokpung smiles, observing the scene. Nok Mokpung remarks it is a shame the first darkness could not defeat Wai Yonho. He adds that from a different perspective the encounter was worth it. He says it was worth it because he met a martial artist as talented as Wai Yonho. Nok Mokpung asks Wai Yonho if he wants to work for him. Mun Yunji shouts, asking what Wai Yonho is trying to do. Mun Yunji looks angry. Nok Mokpung offers Wai Yonho power to rule the world and immense wealth. Mun Yunji thinks that anyone with even minimal morals and ethics would never fall for such sweet words. Wai Yonho says he will fall for it. Wai Yonho smiles and asks for more details, while Mun Yunji screams for him to die. Mun Yunji screams in shock while Mun Yuwen calls out her name. A credit screen displays text for Usura Scanscom along with names for the writer, artist, and original author. The panel is blank. 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 Wai Yonho looks up, exclaiming goodness at the sight above. Mun Yunji also looks shocked, her eyes wide with surprise. She continues to stare, visibly shocked by something overhead. Above them, several tied-up men are screaming in terror. Nok Mokpung looks surprised by the scene, asking what is happening. He then tells Wai Yonho that he is not bad, to which Wai Yonho replies, thanks for the compliment. Nok Mokpung clarifies he did not mean it as a compliment, and Wai Yonho responds he was just saying it too then. Nok Mokpung then addresses First Darkness, who replies yes sir. Nok Mokpung asks him how long he expects to stand there being humiliated. First Darkness apologizes and states he will eliminate Wai Yonho right away. Nok Mokpung tells him not to kill Wai Yonho, making First Darkness ask sorry. Nok Mokpung declares he will kill him himself, his hand beginning to glow, and First Darkness replies yes sir. First Darkness walks towards Wai Yonho, who is also approaching him. Wai Yonho holds up a hand telling him to wait. First Darkness stops holding a dagger and asks what. Wai Yonho says he needs a sword and asks if he can wait for him to retrieve it from his room, prompting First Darkness to call him an insane bastard. Wai Yonho asks why he cannot let someone younger get his sword, but First Darkness tells him to shut it. Wai Yonho muses that the world was not such a cruel place 5 years ago, asking. First Darkness attacks Wai Yonho with 2 daggers while Wai Yonho holds a broom, asking what. Wai Yonho states he will have to make do since he cannot get his sword and prepares to fight with the broom. First Darkness glares, asking if Wai Yonho is insulting him. Wai Yonho asks if he is mad about this too, then tells him to let him get his sword. First Darkness charges forward, declaring he will not kill him, but will make him suffer so much he would wish he were dead. He adds that this will be true even if Wai Yonho is begging later on. Wai Yonho yawns, telling him okay he gets it, asking if he can just get started as he is sleepy enough. First Darkness face twists in rage, a fiery aura surrounding him. He lunges with a glowing blue sword, shouting that Wai Yonho is a bastard. First Darkness swings his glowing sword down towards him. Wai Yonho's eyes narrow as he prepares to block the incoming strike. He blocks the sword strike with his broom, shattering the broom handle in the process. Wai Yonho then strikes First Darkness in the face with the broom head, sending him flying back. First Darkness screams in pain, his face visibly damaged. He falls to the ground defeated while Wai Yonho stands over him. Nok Mokpung looks utterly shocked by the swift defeat. Baek Muhan and Jang Il also stare in wide-eyed shock at the scene. Wai Yonho holds the broken broom handle, remarking that nothing is better than a broom. He continues that it is especially good when cleaning up garbage. Nok Mokpung reacts with a gasp of disbelief at the comment. First Darkness kneels on the ground, asking what just happened. Wai Yonho tells him he should be glad. That is the extent of what he is going to do, then asks why he would run straight at an enemy like that, making First Darkness stammer. First Darkness looks up in anger, shouting you at Wai Yonho. Wai Yonho blocks First Darkness' attack with his broom, saying he is explaining right now. First Darkness is shocked, realizing Wai Yonho is too fast for him. Wai Yonho easily dodges First Darkness' subsequent kick. First Darkness admits he does not want to believe it, but Wai Yonho has the skills to back up his dirty mouth. He adds that it is not always the strong that win in battles and reveals a lethal poison called 7-Step Soul Chasing Serpent, saying he will teach him that. Wai Yonho asks about the poison and if he is going to play dirty like that. First Darkness smiles, saying Wai Yonho can blame him all he wants. Wai Yonho replies that the poison is not going to work on him. First Darkness asks if he is immune to all poisons, and Wai Yonho says he is not immune. Wai Yonho then says it is more like him trailing off. He then attacks First Darkness with his broom, not waiting for a response. First Darkness looks terrified by the unexpected assault. Wai Yonho delivers a powerful strike with his broom, sending First Darkness flying. Wai Yonho immediately prepares for another strike with the broom handle. First Darkness thinks he needs to stop him before another blow lands. Wai Yonho looks down with a smirk, asking if he was thinking something like I need to stop him. Wai Yonho then strikes First Darkness again with a powerful blue glowing attack. He continues to hit First Darkness with multiple rapid strikes. First Darkness screams in agony as blood splatters from the blows. The several tied-up men look shocked by the brutal display. Wai Yonho stands over the defeated First Darkness, still holding his broom. Wai Yonho stands with his broom near the fallen First Darkness while Nok Mokpung watches the scene unfold. Wai Yonho explains his master taught him not to wait and just beat them up if an opponent is preparing something big. Nok Mokpung expresses disbelief that Wai Yonho defeated First Darkness so easily, noting his father spent decades perfecting him as leader of Black Void. Wai Yonho suggests it would be convenient if they both back off now. Nok Mokpung shows his hands, which are adorned with many rings. Wai Yonho looks at his hands, asking huh. Nok Mokpung praises Wai Yonho's amazing martial prowess at his age. Wai Yonho smiles and laughs, saying he is right. Mun Yunji angrily asks Wai Yonho why he is happy, and he replies Nok Mokpung is praising him, prompting her to call it bullshit. Nok Mokpung smiles slyly, observing their interaction. Nok Mokpung states it is a shame First Darkness could not defeat Wai Yonho, but from a different perspective. He continues that it was all worth it because he met a martial artist as talented as Wai Yonho. Nok Mokpung then asks Wai Yonho if he wants to work for him. Mun Yunji asks what Nok Mokpung is trying to do with this offer. Nok Mokpung offers Wai Yonho power to rule the world and immense wealth if he comes to his side. Wai Yonho begins by saying anyone who has even an inkling of morals and ethics. Mun Yunji looks shocked as Wai Yonho continues would never fall for such sweet words. Wai Yonho then smiles widely and says but he will fall for it, asking for more details. Mun Yunji screams for Wai Yonho to die while Mun Yuwin calls out her name in alarm. Nok Mokpung offers Wai Yonho world-ruling power and immense wealth if he joins him. Wai Yonho responds that anyone with even an inkling of morals and ethics. Mun Yunji looks shocked as he continues would never fall for such sweet words. Wai Yonho then smiles widely, declaring he will fall for it and asking for more details. Mun Yuwin shouts, asking what Wai Yonho is doing and if power and wealth are truly that important. Both Wai Yonho and Nok Mokpung respond with a simple yes. Mun Yunji cries as Mun Yuwin quickly agrees that such things are definitely important. Mun Yuwin then offers to give Wai Yonho power and wealth himself, asking how much Nok Mokpung can offer. Nok Mokpung dismisses Mun Yuwin's offer, stating his father can provide all the power and wealth Wai Yonho could ever want. Wai Yonho observes that Mun Yuwin is clearly losing the negotiation, causing him to flinch. Mun Yuwin asks if Wai Yonho's master did not teach him morals, distinguishing between helping evil and revealing conspiracies. He presses further, asking what his master advised in such situations, believing Wai Yonho values his master's beliefs. Mun Yuwin insists that a master would not teach bad morals and must have taught things to help them. Wai Yonho begins to explain what his master said, and Mun Yuwin eagerly urges him to continue. Wai Yonho states his master told him to stick to the side that will get him more money. He explains his master said that morals and acknowledgement have no value because they do not feed you, and to take money over kindness. Mun Yuwin looks disgusted and questions what Wai Yonho is saying. Nok Mokpung agrees with Wai Yonho's master and asks if he will work for his father. Wai Yonho reacts with surprise, asking if he has to work. Nok Mokpung quickly assures him they will not make him work, promising the best food and rest all day every day, which intrigues Wai Yonho. Nok Mokpung says he was stupid and assures Wai Yonho he does not have to work, still promising the reward. Wai Yonho praises Nok Mokpung as generous and a real man, and Nok Mokpung laughs, saying it is nothing compared to him. Mun Yuwin and Mun Yunji look shocked and disgusted by the exchange. Wai Yonho then asks what he has to do and Nok Mokpung replies with an ah. Nok Mokpung grins widely with a sinister expression. He asks Wai Yonho to kill all the tied-up people, first explaining that those who commit treason are sentenced to death. Wai Yonho points at Mun Yunji and asks what she said while Mun Yunji glares angrily. Wai Yonho asks the tied-up people why they committed treason, and one shouts that Nok Mokpung is making it up, cursing him for finding the Book of Signatures. Wai Yonho says he feels it is a bit much to kill them as he has never killed anyone before. Nok Mokpung tells Wai Yonho to move, saying he will do it himself, and asks for a sword. He takes a sword from a guard, saying he does not like to dirty his own hands, but there should be no hesitation in carrying out sentences. Mun Yuwin shouts for Nok Mokpung to stop calling him a learned man and asking how he can be so disloyal to the nation. Nok Mokpung raises the sword, saying what he is doing now is out of loyalty to the country. Mun Yunji screams for her father. Mun Yuwin looks distressed and apologizes to Yunji. Wai Yonho suddenly appears between Nok Mokpung and the tied-up people with a blue aura, saying that is enough. Nok Mokpung looks surprised and wonders how Wai Yonho is so strong. Wai Yonho asks if Nok Mokpung forgot what they just talked about, saying he has had enough of playing along. He then asks if Nok Mokpung knows what is necessary in order to be lazy. Wai Yonho states that avoiding trouble is necessary. Mun Yunji recounts breaking an ink slab her father liked when he was not home. She explains her father returned 3 days later and those days felt like death. Mun Yunji describes being beaten by her father when he returned but feeling much better afterward. Mun Yuwin comments that her father should have killed her back then. Nok Mokpung asks Wai Yonho what he is talking about. Wai Yonho says his master also taught him not to forget his hatred. He continues his master's teaching that a person who does not give back what they received will end up in more trouble and to pay back debts before interest compounds. Wai Yonho then states he thinks it is about time that he pays back his debts. Mun Yuwin and Mun Yunji look surprised by Wai Yonho's words. Nok Mokpung understands that Wai Yonho means he is going to stop him. Nok Mokpung laughs loudly. He then looks at Wai Yonho with a smirk. Nok Mokpung asks Wai Yonho if he thinks he was trying to scout him because he was afraid. Wai Yonho replies not really, saying it did not seem that way. Nok Mokpung raises his hand and says if he wants he can kill Wai Yonho like he is nothing. He unleashes a powerful attack of golden energy and lightning. He tells Wai Yonho he should consider it an honor that he is the one killing him. Mun Yuwin looks shocked and asks if Nok Mokpung also knows martial arts. Nok Mokpung's attack continues to expand with crackling energy. The golden energy forms a dragon-like shape as it surges forward. Nok Mokpung tells Wai Yonho to stop being lazy in his next life as his attack intensifies. Wai Yonho closes his eyes as the golden energy surrounds him. The tied-up people shield themselves from the intense energy. Wai Yonho opens his eyes, saying it is strange and he has seen this somewhere. Nok Mokpung thinks he used an ultimate technique from the start because Wai Yonho seemed skilled. His thought continues, but Wai Yonho cannot even react in time. Wai Yonho suddenly unleashes a blue energy attack that counters Nok Mokpung's golden energy. Wai Yonho appears behind Nok Mokpung and asks if he is done. Nok Mokpung looks shocked and sweats profusely. Nok Mokpung asks what happened and how Wai Yonho did it, but Wai Yonho says he watched the whole process. Wai Yonho then prepares to kick Nok Mokpung. He delivers a powerful kick to Nok Mokpung, sending out a burst of blue energy. The kick creates a massive blue energy explosion that sends Nok Mokpung flying. Wai Yonho observes that it was just one kick. Wai Yonho observed the result of his single kick. Several men looked on in shock, their eyes wide and mouths open. Wai Yonho stood ready in a martial arts pose while tied-up people lay on the ground around him. Mun Yuwin then asked if Nok Mokpung was dead from the blow. Wai Yonho replied he had not kicked that hard, adding that Nok Mokpung's size should keep him fine. He then asked if they should continue, but Nok Mokpung suddenly shouted for him to wait. Nok Mokpung suggested they pretend none of the incident had ever happened. Wai Yonho and the others stood silently looking at Nok Mokpung after his proposal. Mun Yuwin dismissed the suggestion and ordered Nok Mokpung's arrest. Nok Mokpung pleaded to be let go, but Mun Yuwin stated a royal inspector would not release a criminal. Nok Mokpung warned that if he did not return home, his father would think things had gone wrong. He added that his father would resort to a final gamble, causing irreversible damage to the palace. Mun Yuwin called Nok Mokpung an evil bastard for the threat. Mun Yuwin thought he must send Nok Mokpung back to prevent a palace bloodbath and stop Nok Gi from using more cunning methods. Wai Yonho asked if he was supposed to watch villains mess up the royal palace, but Mun Yuwin explained it was about temporary peace through blackmail. Mun Yuwin told Nok Mokpung that eunuchs dig many holes to escape like rats. Mun Yuwin then told Nok Mokpung to screw off and turned away from him. Nok Mokpung then asked Wai Yonho if he wanted a piece of advice. Nok Mokpung told Wai Yonho that his martial arts were great, but their force decreased when using a technique to minimize his physique. Nok Mokpung advised Wai Yonho to let go of that disguise to fight him properly. Wai Yonho said he would keep Nok Mokpung's advice in mind for next time. He then added that he did not want to see Nok Mokpung again. Nok Mokpung replied that Wai Yonho would not see him again, at least not in this appearance. Wai Yonho watched the departing Nok Mokpung and his guards. Why Yonho thought it was finally over now. Mun Yuwin and Mun Yunji stood with other people as the sun rose. Why Yonho yawned and said he was going to sleep now, telling them they could take care of the rest. Mun Yunji shouted at Why Yonho, asking if he was going to sleep again and reminding him of his rights. Why Yonho ran away, telling her not to wake him as he was going to sleep until tomorrow. Mun Yunji looked annoyed as Mun Yuwin and another man stood behind her. Why Yonho's life became very comfortable after that day. He slept soundly while Li Wanjia and Mun Yuwin were struggling with problems, but it had nothing to do with him. Why Yonho's life was paradise with delicious meals and no one yelling for sleeping in late. Sunlight shone into a room through the doors. Mun Yunji's foot tapped on the floor next to Why Yonho, who was sleeping. Mun Yunji stood over Why Yonho and told him to get up. Why Yonho continued to pretend to be asleep. Mun Yunji said she knew he was pretending and told him to quit it and get up. Why Yonho asked what happened to his guaranteed rest and if he could see his father another day. Mun Yunji pulled Why Yonho up by his clothes and shouted for him to get up. Mun Yunji told her father that Why Yonho was here and he replied to let him in. Why Yonho entered the room where Mun Yuwin and Jang Il were seated at a table. Jang Il told Mun Yunji and Why Yonho they were excused. Mun Yunji and Why Yonho bowed. Mun Yunji stopped Why Yonho from bowing and told him not to. Why Yonho asked if she meant him and she told him he was supposed to stay behind. Mun Yuwin looked frustrated by the exchange. Why Yonho sat at the table and Mun Yunji stood behind him. Mun Yuwin and Jang Il looked relieved. Mun Yuwin held a shining golden rod. Mun Yuwin called out to Why Yonho. Mun Yuwin placed the golden rod on the table in front of Why Yonho. Why Yonho picked up the golden rod. Mun Yuwin asked if Why Yonho knew what that was and why he took it without saying anything. Why Yonho replied that it looked expensive. Why Yonho stated his master said to always take something if it looks valuable and told Mun Yuwin not to be petty. Why Yonho said he already spat on the item so it was his now. Mun Yuwin angrily shouted that the item was the royal inspector's divine relic and granted his status wherever one went. Why Yonho looked at the relic thoughtfully. Why Yonho asked if that was all and if it was something more practical like food or a house. Why Yonho asked why Mun Yuwin was acting dumb and said what he did was worth more than that. Why Yonho said he wanted something more realistic and modern. Mun Yuwin asked if Why Yonho wanted money instead of the divine relic. Why Yonho replied he could not be that direct as he did learn manners. Mun Yuwin slammed his hand down looking angry. Why Yonho asked if Mun Yuwin was also giving him his favorite ink block because it looked expensive. Mun Yuwin sighed in frustration. Mun Yuwin explained that the ink block was the royal inspector's gift and granted good treatment with a title befitting a royal inspector. Why Yonho asked if that meant he would have more work to do. Mun Yuwin asked if an official position was the same thing, but Why Yonho disagreed. Why Yonho agreed to take the position since Mun Yuwin was older. Jang Il explained that royal inspectors had been dispatching secret inspectors to Zhongyuan and the position had been empty. Why Yonho asked if he got the position with just the relic and Mun Yuwin offered more. Why Yonho said that was good as it could have been annoying surprising Mun Yuwin. Mun Yuwin realized Why Yonho was going to sell the relic. Mun Yuwin asked about Why Yonho's household and master and if he did not trust him. Mun Yuwin angrily asked why Yonho refused to trust him and hid his identity. Why Yonho replied that it was not a matter of identity. Why Yonho stated he could not trust someone who hid their martial arts and was obviously acting. Mun Yuwin asked how many seconds Why Yonho needed to take down Nok Mokpung. Why Yonho stated he really did not like to. The scene showed a red grid pattern with white pieces scattered. Why Yonho looked up at a giant hand making a peace sign. Why Yonho said he did not like to be played in someone else's Go game. Why Yonho declared he disliked being a pawn in someone else's Go game. Mun Yuwin then asked if Why Yonho knew he possessed martial arts skills. Why Yonho explained he found it strange that people traveled solely to play Go. He continued that he suspected a plot, and when Nok Mokpung appeared he had to choose a side. Mun Yuwin questioned if his group was not the obvious choice. Why Yonho replied it was more likely Nok Mokpung was truthful about the royal head inspector gathering forces. Mun Yuwin listened, as Why Yonho concluded the entire situation amounted to treason. Mun Yuwin then asked why he helped them if he believed it was treason. Why Yonho recalled a girl calling for him and admitted he was planning to run away. He explained he could not leave because the girl seemed to know nothing of the plot. Why Yonho added that his master taught worldly matters are useless if one cannot see a person, and Mun Yuwin's attempt to observe him felt wrong. Mun Yuwin intently looked back at Why Yonho. Why Yonho directly asked Mun Yuwin if he was planning to commit treason. Mun Yuwin asked what he would do if he said yes. Why Yonho replied he would simply go to sleep comfortably, having no loyalty to the emperor or anyone else. He added that at least Mun Yuwin had given him gold. Mun Yuwin continued to look intently at him. Mun Yuwin laughed, admitting he knew Why Yonho was clever but found him better than anticipated. Mun Yuwin admitted Why Yonho was right, swearing they were not planning treason, but gathering forces against Nok Gi, which Why Yonho said he understood. Mun Yuwin then stated the problem was that Nok Gi had caught on to their plans. He asked if Wai Yonho knew why Nakgi had sent Nak Mokpung. Wai Yonho looked back at Mun Yuwen. Mun Yuwen explained Nakgi wanted him to kill Nak Mokpung to expose his martial arts and the people he had gathered. Wai Yonho stated that was precisely when he had stepped in. Mun Yuwen apologized if playing him on the Go board was displeasing, explaining he and his ally were desperate. Wai Yonho simply said, "Alright then," repeated it when asked to believe him. Mun Yuwen asked if Wai Yonho would take on the secret royal inspector role. Wai Yonho stated he was never going to actively seek out work. Mun Yuwen replied it did not matter because the world would not leave him alone. Wai Yonho asked if that was an insult, but Mun Yuwen said it was the path of a hero. Wai Yonho declined the offer, but Mun Yuwen told him he could not deny fate. Wai Yonho stood up and declared he was leaving. He stated he was leaving today and hoped they would never see each other again. Mun Yuwen replied he felt they would indeed meet again. Wai Yonho called him creepy and then walked away. Mun Yuwen turned to Jang Il and asked what he thought. Mun Yuwen said Wai Yonho was more than he expected, admitting he did not think he would catch on to Mun Yuwen knowing martial arts. Mun Yuwen mused he had picked up a dragon, but it was a monster who might devour them if they were not careful. Jang Il responded that the risk was worth it. Jang Il added that Wai Yonho was not just strong but smart, wondering who raised such a monster. Mun Yuwen instructed Jang Il to investigate everything about Wai Yonho, especially his family, even if his master could not be found, and Jang Il responded yes. Wai Yonho lay on a rooftop bathed in moonlight. Jang Il approached him and asked if he was leaving. Wai Yonho sat up and looked at Jang Il. Wai Yonho said he would not leave without a proper goodbye after Jang Il had let him stay and fed him. Jang Il acknowledged he was planning on leaving soon, which Wai Yonho confirmed. Wai Yonho stated he had learned a lot while he was there. Jang Il asked what he had learned. Wai Yonho explained the two most important things he learned were that scholars often did not act according to their texts and that Rulin was a scary place. Jang Il questioned why Rulin was scary. Wai Yonho said he never imagined the strongest person he had seen since coming to Jianghu. He continued that this person would be in Rulin, and Li Wanjia's martial prowess was impressive. Wai Yonho smiled and asked Jang Il why he did not give up the act. Jang Il looked surprised and asked if Wai Yonho had known. Wai Yonho confirmed he knew from the start, and Jang Il asked for a favor, promising not to tell anyone and wanting to continue living as a scholar. Wai Yonho agreed, but asked Jang Il to tell him one thing in return, to which Jang Il told him to go ahead. Wai Yonho said his master told him to see the world in Rulin, and he expected justice, but instead saw the world's dirtiness. Jang Il explained that everyone held an ideal, but it varied, and when ideals clashed, people learned they must surpass reality to bring their ideal to life. He continued that people knew they must undo ties with the world, but it took too long with no guarantee of success. He concluded that those without patience cut the knot, leading to arrogant people who sacrificed others or their adoptive sons. Jang Il asked Wai Yonho if the entire world was like that, adding the palace was worse, but other places were not very different. Wai Yonho wondered what his master wanted him to see and feel, adding the world was too fast for him to figure things out. Jang Il asked if that was not good enough and advised Wai Yonho to chase the fast world slowly. Jang Il explained that fast people learned a lot, but lazy people might see details better. Wai Yonho asked what the point was in knowing what to see and feel ahead of time. Jang Il told Wai Yonho to walk at his own pace and experience the world as he was. Wai Yonho closed his eyes and focused, sensing to feel. His hands were shown in a meditative pose. Energy glowed around his hands as he embraced himself as he was. He meditated on the rooftop, surrounded by blue energy connected to the moonlight. Jang Il watched him with a knowing expression. Wai Yonho continued his meditation with Jang Il's ethereal form standing behind him. Wai Yonho's face was shown as blue energy and stars swirled around him. Wai Yonho opened his eyes, looking exhausted as Jang Il observed him. Jang Il asked if he felt like he had learned something. Wai Yonho scratched his head and said he honestly did not know. Jang Il laughed and said it was fine as long as Wai Yonho grasped it with his mind. Jang Il turned and walked away. He hoped Wai Yonho would find his answer one day. Jang Il walked further away as Wai Yonho remained on the rooftop. Wai Yonho looked thoughtfully. He then lay down on the rooftop. He felt something and wondered if the orb his master gave him had done something. Wai Yonho looked up at the full moon. His master appeared as a spiritual projection and asked if he understood now. Wai Yonho looked up at the moon. Wai Yonho lay back down on the roof and replied, "Not yet, master." The scene changed to daytime, showing Wai Yonho sleeping on a cart as a man asked if he had items to transport. The man then confirmed Wai Yonho himself was the item to be transported. Wai Yonho slept soundly on the cart, becoming an item for safe transport. Wai Yonho sleeps on the floor as Mun Yuwen stands over him. Mun Yuwen asks if he plans to leave soon, but Wai Yonho replies it is late, so he will depart tomorrow. A promise Mun Yuwen notes he has made for 2 weeks. Wai Yonho simply states that it happens. Mun Yuwen then thanks the Swift Dragon Escort Agency of Tradition and History for their arrival. Mun Yunji asks what item they are tasked with transporting. She points her finger, declaring that thing. Her finger points directly at Wai Yonho, who asks if she means him. Wai Yonho sits on the floor surrounded by Mun Yuwen, Mun Yunji, and 2 escort men. Mun Yunji explains that while Wai Yonho is technically a person, he merely looks human and is a burden. An escort man explains their agency escorts people, but they have a different carriage for them and are only prepared to transport goods. Yunji reassures them, stating they transport animals and Why Yonho is essentially one. She instructs them to throw him in a carriage, feed him 3 meals, and he will not complain, offering double pay to take him away. The escort man mentions rules, to which Yunji immediately shouts triple. Yunji and the escort man shake hands, after which he tells Why Yonho this way please. Why Yonho shouts, asking if they are sending him away like trash, and Yunji replies he is quick to catch on. Yuen asks what is happening, and Yunji responds that it is time to get rid of this parasite. Why Yonho shouts about the morals of the Jianghu, questioning how they could treat him, their savior, this way. Yuen agrees with Yunji that they are indebted to him, suggesting they should let him do as he pleases. Yunji replies that if they do that he will likely stay until next year. Yunji claims they are basically helping him, prompting Why Yonho to shout, asking how this is helping. Yunji reminds Why Yonho he said he was headed to Hubei, explaining he can go with the escort agency since they are also traveling there, adding he is too lazy to walk the far distance, which he agrees with. She explains that Why Yonho gets a carriage ride to Hubei and the escort agency gets paid, making it a win for everyone. Why Yonho looks at her, admitting she is very convincing. Yunji tells him to go with them, but Why Yonho replies his mom told him not to follow strangers, to which she assures him they are trustworthy people. Why Yonho sits on the cart, stating he is going to get going, though he did not expect to leave so suddenly. He says goodbye to Yuen and Yunji, who both tell him to take care. Why Yonho comments that Yunji seems really happy, and she asks if it is obvious. As the cart begins to move, Why Yonho tells the escort let us go. He then lies down comfortably on the goods piled on the cart. The cart rolls away from the house, watched by Yuen and Yunji. Why Yonho is startled by a sudden shout. He slowly looks over the edge of the barrel he is resting on. Yunji waves goodbye to him. Why Yonho complains about being kicked out, and Yunji tells him to stop being so lazy, to which he replies yeah. Why Yonho stretches out again on the moving cart. Yuen tells Yunji to go inside, and she replies yes father. They both turn and walk towards the entrance of the house. Yunji smiles faintly as she walks. Her smile is subtle. As she and her father walk away, Yunji thinks goodbye, strange lazy boy. The Swift Dragon Escort Agency head escort leader Gok Biheng wonders about the item they are transporting. Gok Biheng looks at Why Yonho sleeping on the cart, wondering if this is the item. Another escort replies yes, prompting Gok Biheng to ask if they are kidding him and if they know what to prepare when escorting a person. The escort explains they wanted to turn down the request, but it came from the Great Hanlim Institute. Gok Biheng asks how long he has been in that state, and the escort replies ever since they left. Gok Biheng wonders if Why Yonho is not sore or anything, finding it impressive. The escort says the Great Hanlim Institute told them if they just feed him like a cow or chicken, he will not cause trouble, to which Gok Biheng replies he does not get it. Gok Biheng calls out to Why Yonho. He taps on the cart and calls out hey. Why Yonho looks up from his sleeping position and asks what. Gok Biheng introduces himself as the head escort leader and asks if Why Yonho understands. Gok Biheng explains this trip is for transporting goods, not people, and if he comes along he might be uncomfortable, but Why Yonho replies not to worry, he is here as a good, not a person, though Gok Biheng thinks he will still be uncomfortable. Why Yonho states that is fine. All he has to do is sit still, and they will take him to his destination, making Gok Biheng think he is optimistic. Gok Biheng says then they will get going, and Why Yonho replies alright. 5 days after leaving the Great Hanlim Institute, Why Yonho yawns. He stretches, saying he is getting tired of this. He recalls Master Mu-san telling him if he is awake he falls asleep, but if he is sleeping his dreams are harassed, a consequence of the damned dream training mythic arts. Why Yonho wonders how long this will last, fearing it might be for his entire life. He then says oh whatever and lies back down on the cart. Suddenly Gok Biheng tells the escorts to wait. The escort agency cart stops on the road. Gok Biheng shouts, asking who is there and requesting to meet them. Why Yonho, still lying on the cart, wonders if they are bandits. Gok Biheng looks at the bushes, thinking no one is coming out, which is not good. He considers that if they are stalling, it means they are either amateur bandits or a dangerous person targeting their carriages. Gok Biheng draws his sword, thinking it would be nice if it were the former, but he cannot get a proper read on the presence in the bushes, indicating it is not some amateur bandit. He repeats his introduction and asks them to come out, otherwise he will take it as an intention to fight. A man in a red robe with a sword on his back emerges from the bushes. Gok Biheng looks surprised. The man steps forward. The man introduces himself as Ping Dojuk of the Hubei Ping clan. Gok Biheng introduces himself and asks what brings Ping Dojuk here. Ping Dojuk replies he is being chased by enemies and cannot lose them, asking for help. Why Yonho, still lying on the cart, thinks that this might become a threat to the Jianghu. A younger escort member narrates that is how he met him. The narration continues, referring to the guy who slammed the door in their face. The narration reveals the man is Ping Dojuk. At that moment Why Yonho looks at Ping Dojuk. The narration states Why Yonho did not know. Why Yonho looks at Ping Dojuk with a slight smirk. This meeting would push him into a river of misfortunes. The Ping clan, known for their chivalry, often acts more on instinct than intellect. Ping Dojuk, a member of this clan, realized the situation he was in must be truly serious. He informed a man that people were pursuing him and promised to repay him for helping him escape the mountain. The man agreed to assist Ping Dojuk, telling him to hide with the other items, and Ping Dojuk complied. Ping Dojuk then looked on with a slight smirk. Meanwhile, Wai Yonho lay down nearby, his eyes half closed. The man helped Wai Yonho conceal himself inside a large barrel, and Wai Yonho thanked him. The man instructed Wai Yonho not to make a sound, to which Wai Yonho agreed. Wai Yonho internally noted the man's nosy nature. As the man drove a cart with Wai Yonho hidden inside, Wai Yonho considered it not a bad situation. He thought he was sorry for endangering the man and resolved to repay everyone if things went well. However, Wai Yonho then realized that repayment would be pointless if he ended up dead. The man for his part thought Wai Yonho lacked conscience for putting them at risk and believed he should have pretended not to see them. Wai Yonho told the man to stop talking because he intended to sleep, and the man replied all right. The man continued driving the cart, maintaining a stern expression. He thought they were almost out of the mountain and had not encountered anyone looking for Ping Dojuk, wondering if they were in the clear. Suddenly, a man in green robes appeared in front of the cart and shouted stop, causing Wai Yonho to be thrown from the cart. Several more green-robed men then surrounded the cart, their swords drawn. One of these green-robed men stood ready with his sword poised. The cart driver recognized the attackers as members of the Green Forest. The cart driver introduced himself as Gok Bihang of the Swift Dragon Escort Agency and greeted the masters of the Green Forest. A masked man among them asked Gok Bihang if he had seen a young man in red clothing, and Gok Bihang replied he had not. The masked man pressed him, asking if he was sure, and warned that if he was lying he would not leave this mountain alive. Gok Bihang claimed he did not know what the man was talking about, questioning why the Swift Dragon Escort Agency would hide someone unknown and make enemies of the Green Forest. The masked man then pointed to Wai Yonho on the cart and asked who that was, surprising Gok Bihang. Wai Yonho, still lying on the cart, stated he was merely an item to be transported. The green-robed men were confused, wondering what Wai Yonho had just said. Gok Bihang quickly explained that Wai Yonho was ill in both mind and body, and they were taking him to a physician, telling the masked man to ignore him. The masked man repeated Gok Bihang's earlier statement about having no need to make enemies, and Gok Bihang agreed. The masked man then stated that was precisely the problem, reiterating his question about seeing a man in red clothing. Wai Yonho sat up and asked if he was wearing red, while Gok Bihang quickly denied that Wai Yonho was wearing red. The masked man pulled out a knife, held it to Gok Bihang's neck, and asked if he was being mocked. Gok Bihang realized the masked man already knew they were hiding Ping Dojuk and suggested they handle it a different way. The masked man explained they would kill one person at a time until someone revealed the man in red, guaranteeing someone would talk before 3 were dead, which shocked Gok Bihang. The masked man then asked who wanted to go first, pointing to one of the other escort guards who was terrified. The masked man asked the terrified guard if he had seen a young man in red clothing, and the guard hesitated. The masked man stated the guard's life depended on his answer, and the guard replied he had not seen anything. The masked man declared the guard would die and moved to strike him with his sword. Gok Bihang quickly intervened, blocking the sword with his own, shouting damn it, then saying over here. Both Gok Bihang and the masked leader looked surprised by this. The masked man and the targeted guard also looked surprised by the intervention. Wai Yonho remained seated on the cart as Gok Bihang blocked the masked man's sword. Wai Yonho sat calmly on the cart, his arms crossed. The masked man looked up at Wai Yonho and asked what he had just said. Wai Yonho responded by kicking the lid off a barrel on the cart. Wai Yonho stood on the cart and pointed to the open barrel, revealing the Ping guy. Wai Yonho looked at the masked man and stated it was the one they were looking for. Wai Yonho told Ping Dojuk he had been caught and to come out, adding it was stupid to throw away his life for someone else. Wai Yonho then asked what Ping Dojuk was doing and if he would only emerge after everyone else was dead. Ping Dojuk subsequently emerged from the barrel onto the cart. He continued climbing out of the barrel. The masked man told Ping Dojuk he was a fool for not running and asked if he was pretending to be a hero. Ping Dojuk replied that if he ran, everyone would be killed. Ping Dojuk shouted that he was not villainous enough to let innocent people die in his stead. Ping Dojuk thanked Gok Bihang for his help and said this was his problem to resolve, telling him to keep going. Gok Bihang started to object, but Ping Dojuk insisted he was fine. Ping Dojuk looked determined, stating he could not run from them forever. Gok Bihang looked thoughtful, considering the situation. Gok Bihang then told Ping Dojuk good luck and ordered his men to depart. Wai Yonho, however, told Gok Bihang to wait. Wai Yonho told Gok Bihang they could not simply leave and would have to go through those guys. Gok Bihang asked why, and Wai Yonho explained it was obvious they would attack them and they would all die. Wai Yonho asked Gok Bihang if he was stupid, explaining the consequences if the Green Forest killed someone from the Ping clan and the escort agency reported it. The masked men realized the Ping clan would then seek them out with swords drawn and understood they would be killed to prevent that. The masked leader agreed with Wai Yonho and admitted he had not thought that far ahead. Wai Yonho was surprised they had not considered it and called Gok Bihang a crazy person. Ping Dojuk stated he had started this mess and would resolve it, telling everyone else to get out. Wai Yonho thought Ping Dojuk was funny for hiding, then playing hero, wondering how much time he could stall if he could not handle them in the first place. Wai Yonho told Ping Dojuk he was bringing them down like some river ghost, then asked what to call him since river ghosts only bring down one person. Wai Yonho explained that if they ran, the Green Forest already knew this was the Swift Dragon Escort Agency and would destroy them before the Ping clan received news. Gok Bihang asked what they should do. Wai Yonho replied they would have to fight, and if they fought now they would at least have Ping Dojuk to help them. Gok Bihang said he understood. Ping Dojuk asked the masked leader if they were truly not going to let them go, and the leader replied nope. The masked leader then ordered his men to attack them. The Green Forest members charged forward, telling them not to hate them if they died. Ping Dojuk immediately clashed swords with one of the attackers. Ping Dojuk thought Jianghu was a vast place. As Ping Dojuk fought multiple enemies, he thought if he had known the world was this vast and dangerous, he would not have gotten involved. He recalled being praised for his talent and potential, which had made him arrogant and caused him to let his guard down. Ping Dojuk gritted his teeth, realizing it was all his fault. He fought surrounded by enemies, thinking everyone here was going to die because of him. An attacker struck down at Ping Dojuk, declaring it was over. Kid. Ping Dojuk closed his eyes, thinking he was sorry. Ping Dojuk was then hit by a powerful blow. He fell to the ground, dropping his sword as another fighter stood over him. Ping Dojuk looked up with a shocked expression and shouted. He looked towards Wai Yonho, who was sitting on the cart holding a small object. Wai Yonho looked at Ping Dojuk and stated he was a handful holding a glowing object. Ping Dojuk looked at a downed fighter and a glowing object on the ground, questioning what was happening. His face showed a shocked and intense expression as he processed the scene. He realized the glowing bowl was the object that had knocked out the other fighter. Wai Yonho then told Ping Dojuk he was getting distracted again just as Ping Dojuk blocked an attack. Wai Yonho complained that Ping Dojuk brought all the enemies and was not doing his share of the fighting. He warned Ping Dojuk that he would die at that rate as Ping Dojuk continued to fight. Wai Yonho used a blue energy to deflect a projectile while another fighter was sent flying. Wai Yonho asked what Ping Dojuk was doing, even as Ping Dojuk looked determined. Ping Dojuk then looked around in surprise as 3 masked assailants surrounded him. He told himself to focus, realizing this was not the time to be curious. Ping Dojuk thought about what he could do in that moment. He activated a powerful technique called 5 Tigers Gate Destroying Blade, manifesting a tiger-like aura. The technique sent multiple energy slashes towards the masked assailants. His eyes showed intense resolve as he executed the attack. The energy slashes impacted the ground around the assailants, creating explosions. Ping Dojuk realized this was not a duel, and he did not need to deflect or block attacks. He continued fighting against the multiple masked assailants. Ping Dojuk thought he was going to die as he was hit by several energy projectiles. Wai Yonho, observing the struggle, told Ping Dojuk to just die. Ping Dojuk shouted at Wai Yonho to come down and help him. Wai Yonho reminded him that he was an item to be transported. Ping Dojuk agreed, but thought it was not the time to consider that while fighting multiple attackers. Wai Yonho explained that a girl told him to stay put to avoid causing more trouble. Ping Dojuk begged Wai Yonho to help, promising he would take responsibility. Ping Dojuk asked if Wai Yonho would be uncomfortable on his journey if they died. He then offered 2 days of rest at an inn and all the food Wai Yonho wanted. Ping Dojuk yelled for Wai Yonho to help him, calling him a donkey. Ping Dojuk looked confused by their ongoing conversation. Wai Yonho asked if Ping Dojuk promised, and Ping Dojuk confirmed with a shout. Wai Yonho then threw multiple bowls from a box. He smiled as he unleashed a powerful blue energy attack with the bowls. The bowls flew with intense force, striking the masked assailants. Ping Dojuk looked shocked by this sudden turn of events. The masked assailants were knocked down by the glowing bowls. One masked assailant realized Wai Yonho was a martial master. The masked assailant quickly ran away from the scene. Wai Yonho called out to the remaining assailant. Ping Dojuk looked at the assailant and asked if Wai Yonho was speaking to him. Wai Yonho told the assailant he should try his best to help if he had any sense of guilt. Wai Yonho then continued to scold Ping Dojuk for getting into trouble and not fighting properly. He instructed Ping Dojuk to think and use his blade strong and heavy but not slow. Ping Dojuk agreed, and Wai Yonho told him to wait for his turn or go for one guy at a time. Wai Yonho then grabbed Ping Dojuk's blade, telling him to give it to him. Ping Dojuk was shocked that Wai Yonho took his blade before he could react. Wai Yonho then demonstrated the technique, saying this is what Ping Dojuk did. He performed Ping Dojuk's 5 Tigers Gate Destroying Blade technique. Ping Dojuk wondered how Wai Yonho knew his technique and if he copied it just by watching. Wai Yonho advised that when fighting multiple people, Ping Dojuk should swing faster. He explained there are times to sacrifice strength for speed and times to be slower for more strength. Wai Yonho demonstrated a fast and powerful strike, creating an explosion. He asked Ping Dojuk why it was so hard to understand, and Ping Dojuk apologized. Wai Yonho told Ping Dojuk to do better as he handed the blade back. Ping Dojuk then faced the remaining masked assailant, preparing to fight. He decided to focus on speed and precision, even if it meant less chi in the blade. Ping Dojuk's eyes showed fierce determination as he prepared to attack. The masked assailant quickly fled, saying they would come for Ping Dojuk later. Ping Dojuk looked frustrated as Wai Yonho laughed. A man thanked Wai Yonho for everything, but Wai Yonho said it was easygoing because they were getting paid. Another man thanked Wai Yonho and said they would never forget him, saving their lives. Wai Yonho looked disappointed and asked if it was just verbal gratitude. Wai Yonho told the man he was just kidding and would take whatever from Ping Dojuk. Wai Yonho then told Ping Dojuk to go away, saying there was no need to chase him out like a ghost. Wai Yonho called out to the man again. He stated that the man and the others would have died if he had not been there. The man admitted it was true and said Ping Dojuk seemed to have good reasons for his actions. Wai Yonho asked if he meant something good and the man confirmed it. Wai Yonho then asked if doing something good justified killing people. He explained that his master said it was stupid to risk one's life for something unrelated and to prioritize oneself. Wai Yonho continued that he needed to be happy before others could be happy, making himself his priority. The man asked if Wai Yonho did not suffer enough damage to care about Ping Dojuk. A flag for the Venerate Heaven Orthodox Murim Alliance representing the 5 great clans and 10-sex union was shown. The man said he hoped to see Wai Yonho again. Wai Yonho replied that he probably would not, which made the man tell him not to say something so ominous. Wai Yonho waved goodbye to the man as he walked away. The man thought it would be nice if Wai Yonho were a bit more disciplined. Wai Yonho arrived at his destination stating he was finally there. He walked towards a grand building identified as Nature's Hand Manor. An aerial view showed the vast complex of Guangdong's Wai clan. Meanwhile, Wai Jianghan and Han Sang-ah discussed not finding Yonho again and wondered where he was. A man rushed in calling for the patriarch and stating there was a message. The messenger reported that young master Wai Yonho sent a letter causing Wai Jianghan to exclaim Yonho's name. Nok Mokpung was frustrated that a simple plan had failed. He then asked a kneeling man if he feared death, to which the man replied no. The man clarified he feared a meaningless death, not death itself, wishing for a useful end for his father. Nok Mokpung instructed him to develop a skill if he wished to remain by his side, and the man agreed. Nok Mokpung then excused him and the man bowed before departing. Internally, Nok Mokpung dismissed the man as a useless, ambitious pig. He believed such individuals were destined to self-destruct. As Nok Mokpung walked away, he remarked that the eunuch knew no fear. A masked subordinate appeared advising him to keep the eunuch alive for now as he remained useful. Nok Mokpung acknowledged the subordinate's presence. He inquired about the eunuch's utility, and the subordinate explained his existence restrained the royals before mentioning another task. The subordinate reported a summons from the pavilion requiring Nok Mokpung's immediate presence. Nok Mokpung smiled, stating his understanding. He thought he would finally be free of his current sickening appearance. He planned to discard Nok Gi once his usefulness ended and claim everything that was his, while the subordinate noted the royals were not rushing. Nok Mokpung then asked about the activities of the others. The subordinate reported they were getting involved in the medical field, a phrase Nok Mokpung repeated thoughtfully. The scene shifted to an exterior view of Nature's Hand Manor. Inside, a man informed another that he was in the wrong place, prompting the second man to ask for clarification. The first man explained the recommendation was for Sacred Hand Manor, and this was Nature's Hand Manor. An attendant at Nature's Hand Manor offered to write a recommendation to Sacred Hand Manor citing its medical advancements. Wai Yonho asked if this was not Sacred Hand Manor, but the attendant confirmed it was not and directed him to an alleyway for the correct location, adding he would be disappointed. Wai Yonho walked away looking at the recommendation paper. He then heard a man pleading for help to save his wife. Other people also pleaded for help for their father, but a physician stated he could not treat anyone without money. Wai Yonho thought physicians should save people regardless of payment. Observing the scene, he concluded that money was the most important thing in life. Wai Yonho continued walking, recalling the attendant's directions to the alleyway. He looked ahead as he proceeded. A stone tablet on the ground marked the location of Sacred Hand Manor. Wai Yonho stood before a gate, realizing this was the Sacred Hand Manor with 500 years of history. He called out, asking if anyone was inside. A young person named Jin So-ah appeared, asking what brought him there. Wai Yonho stated it was business and asked if the manor master was in, to which Jin So-ah confirmed it and told him to proceed. Wai Yonho reiterated his desire to speak with the manor master, and Jin So-ah asked if his father was not home. Jin So-ah then revealed her father had died last year, and she was now the Sacred Hand Manor master, surprising Wai Yonho. Wai Yonho internally cursed the previous attendant's recommendation for good treatment and expressed his frustration. Jin So-ah asked Wai Yonho what he wanted, just as a young boy told her there was another guest wishing to see their late father. Jin So-ah looked down, repeating the word father. Wai Yonho looked on with a surprised expression. A beautiful woman named Jin Yurin then asked Wai Yonho what brought him there. Jin Yurin was introduced as the Sacred Hand Manor master. Wai Yonho looked flustered and acknowledged her. He handed her the recommendation letter. Jin Yurin took the letter and looked at it thoughtfully. She concluded that Wai Yonho was there to learn about physician manners, which he confirmed. Jin Yurin explained they had lost their former glory, but could not turn away a guest sent by Grand Scholar Mun Yuwen, inviting him to make himself comfortable. Wai Yonho tried to decline, saying he could leave if it was too much trouble, but Jin Yurin insisted that sending away a guest would lead to bad talk. Wai Yonho internally thought it was acceptable to lack means for guests, but Jin Yurin firmly stated she could not send him away. Wai Yonho sat alone in a room provided for him. He sighed, thinking he should have known better than to expect anything different from a friend of Grand Scholar Mun. He then decided it was still a physician manner and fell backward onto the bed. Wai Yonho lay on the bed and responded to a knock. Jin Yurin entered with a table laden with food. She explained she prepared food because he might be hungry and asked him to enjoy it, shocking Wai Yonho with the amount. He asked her to eat with him, but she replied she had already eaten and not to worry about her. Why Yonho sat at the table and thought they were not as poor as he initially believed. The young boy from earlier asked Jin Yurin how she got all the food. Jin Yurin told him to be quiet as Why Yonho was eating, but the boy then asked what she did with her necklace. The boy exclaimed that she never took off her mother's heirloom and asked if she had sold it, which Why Yonho overheard. Jin Yurin explained she pawned the heirloom at Milky Way Manor for money and would get it back when things improved, justifying it by saying Why Yonho came to see her father and they should not treat him poorly. Why Yonho looked distressed and said he could not eat the food. The camera focused on the ceiling. Jin Yurin asked if the food was not to his liking and offered to make new dishes, while Why Yonho internally wondered if it was too late to get a refund on the dishes. Why Yonho walked through a busy street. He was full and regretted eating all the food, thinking she should have just served what she had. He arrived at a building labeled Milky Way Manor. Inside, Why Yonho told a man he was there to look for something. The man asked what he was looking for, and Why Yonho specified a necklace that Sacred Hand Manor had pawned yesterday, prompting the man to invite him inside. The Milky Way Manor branch owner Ha Difeng explained that Sacred Hand Manor pawned the item instead of selling it, so he could not give it to Why Yonho unless he was from there. Why Yonho stated he was from Sacred Hand Manor and had come yesterday. Ha Difeng smiled and asked if this amount of money would suffice. Why Yonho looked at the money and said it was not enough, but Ha Difeng stated there were more than 2 silver nyang, enough to feed a family for several months. Ha Difeng explained Jin Yurin took 1 silver nyang for the necklace, and they required 3 times the price for retrieval within 3 months or 6 times the price after 3 months. Why Yonho realized it was a high-interest loan, and Ha Difeng stated these were the rules, and he could sell the item if he did not want to pay. Why Yonho asked if the money he brought was not enough, which Ha Difeng confirmed. Why Yonho sighed, realizing Sacred Hand Manor would not be able to retrieve the necklace, believing Jin Yurin knew this when she pawned it. Why Yonho then asked if Ha Difeng could take his things instead, and Ha Difeng agreed if he paid 3 times the price within 3 months. Why Yonho offered a gold item to make up for the missing amount for the necklace, noting it should be expensive because it was gold. Ha Difeng confirmed it was gold and offered 1 gold nyang for it, but stated the repayment would be 3 gold nyang. Ha Difeng's eyes widened in shock. The gold item was revealed to be a royal inspector's staff. Why Yonho asked for 3 gold nyang, and Ha Difeng internally cursed, realizing his predicament. A man in a hat reports that there is a problem. The man with long hair asks if Nakgi did not listen after their failure to take over the palace. The man in the hat explains that the royal inspectors were strong, decreasing Nakgi's influence, so they might have to abandon the plan, which the man with long hair understands. The man in the hat then mentions the Hubei Ping clan got involved while they tried to take over the Green Forest, prompting the man with long hair to ask if the Ping clan noticed their scheme. The man in the hat clarifies it was actually the Orthodox Murim Alliance, who mistakenly thought it was just a light bandit raid. The man with long hair remarks that problems always occur with grand schemes and that resolving them is key, which the man in the hat acknowledges. He states that matters with the physicians are progressing smoothly and it is almost time to finalize their arrangements. He adds that they have built enough power since his retirement and do not need to concern themselves with his absence. He concludes that they will soon debut in the world and demonstrate how terrifying their sword is. Meanwhile, Ha Difeng's eye widens in shock. He realizes the item in question is a royal inspector's staff. Why Yonho asks about the 3 gold nyang, and Ha Difeng internally curses his predicament. Ha Difeng immediately kneels and apologizes to Why Yonho for not recognizing him. Why Yonho looks at him with a calm expression. Ha Difeng internally debates whether to first fix ripping off the woman or demanding a ridiculous interest rate. He tells Why Yonho the interest rate is high because many people pawn items and never return them. Ha Difeng claims that with compound interest their profit is only 4.5%, prompting Why Yonho to ask for the annual interest rate. Ha Difeng nervously states it is not much, at most 60%. Why Yonho questions 60% yearly, saying he has never heard such numbers, while Ha Difeng tries to justify it by claiming white jade is worth at least 10 silver nyang. Why Yonho reminds him that he earlier said it was worth 1 silver nyang and now it is 10. Ha Difeng reacts in extreme panic. He yells to lock the doors and screams that he is going to see this through. Now at Sacred Hand Manor, a woman sits at a desk holding a brush. She wonders who is knocking so late and looks out a window. She finds a letter with a blue amulet attached. She holds the amulet and thinks of her mother. She looks around wondering who could have left it there. Why Yonho is seen lying on the roof above the woman. He hopes the item pays for the food. Now at the Venerate Heaven Orthodox Murim Alliance General Strategist's Pavilion, a man in red stands before a map. He nervously wonders why he is there and if he did something wrong. Another man walks towards the map table. The new man tells the man in red to have a seat and he quickly complies. The new man is introduced as Jo Hyun, the Orthodox Murim Alliance's general strategist. The man in red wonders why the divine strategist wants to see him. Jo Hyun says he heard about the Green Forest and asks if he met the 10 Swords of Green Forest. The man in red reacts in shock to the mention of the 10 Swords of Green Forest. Jo Hyun confirms they were after him, and it is a great fortune he is alive, to which the man in red replies no wonder. Jo Hyun states he will handle the Swift Dragon escort agency business, which will expose a bigger matter, but the problem is the young man who helped him. Jo Hyun explains that the Swift Dragon Escort Agency is an elite group of the Green Forest, and while Ping Dojuk is talented, it would be hard for him to handle even one of them, then wonders how someone could beat 10 of them alone. Jo Hyun asks the man in red if he got the young man's name, and he replies it is Wai Yonho. Jo Hyun recognizes the name Wai Yonho from a message the beggar sect sent him. He wonders if the second son of Guangdong's Wai clan truly returned and notes his martial prowess after just 5 years. Jo Hyun observes that the eldest son Wai Sanho is also skilled and concludes that Guangdong's Wai clan might be the core of this chaos. He asks the man in red if Wai Yonho told him where he was headed, and he replies Sacred Hand Manor. Jo Hyun muses that someone who returned after 5 years is heading to Hubei instead of home. He tells the man in red he needs more information on Wai Yonho, but he is the only one who knows what he looks like. Jo Hyun asks the man in red for his help. The man in red kneels and enthusiastically agrees. The man in red looks determined. Wai Yonho is seen sleeping on a roof. A young boy looks up at Wai Yonho on the roof. The boy wonders if Wai Yonho is from the Murim but dismisses the idea because he looks homeless and just sleeps all day. He thinks Wai Yonho has only learned the basics. The boy calls out asking if anyone is home. A group of injured workers from a quarry are brought in, and the boy is told they need help from a falling boulder. A man explains they have no money and asks the boy for help. The boy curses and calls out to Jin So-ah. Jin So-ah commands them to bring in the patients, and the boy calls her sister. Jin So-ah instructs them to categorize patients, sending non-urgent ones to rooms and looking at urgent ones first. People respond yes and carry patients while Wai Yonho watches. Wai Yonho wonders what is going on. Jin So-ah tells them to lay the urgent patients on the floor and attends to one. She swiftly uses acupuncture needles. Jin So-ah performs acupuncture on the patient. The patient coughs up blood. Jin So-ah has blood splattered on her face. She tells the boy to hurry and help the other patients or they will all die, and the boy agrees. The boy asks for help with a patient. He looks at Wai Yonho on the roof and calls for help. The boy tells Wai Yonho he should know about acupressure points as he is from the Murim and asks him to take care of the patient. Wai Yonho states he did not learn it properly and asks what to do. The boy instructs Wai Yonho to stimulate the Tianta acupoint halfway and the Zhangfu acupoint fully. Wai Yonho presses the points, but the patient reacts strangely. The boy yells that Wai Yonho is pressing the wrong spot and tells him to do it lower and again. Wai Yonho complains he does not know it well but observes the patient is breathing. The boy explains the patient's airways are unblocked, and Wai Yonho needs to make him cough up blood and mucus. The boy tells Wai Yonho to inhale it with his mouth because they are in a hurry or the patient will die. Wai Yonho says the boy could have just said to make him spit out what is stuck in his throat and questions why he made him press acupoints. Wai Yonho performs mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on the patient. The boy reacts in shock and asks what Wai Yonho is. Wai Yonho punches the patient's chest, causing blood to splatter. The boy looks on in horror. Wai Yonho asks if the boy cannot tell he is saving a life. Wai Sanho stands under a full moon holding a letter. He reacts in surprise, asking if his mother did this. The letter from Han Sang-ah to her beloved son explains a pressing matter. It reveals that Wai Yonho is alive after 5 years. Sanho clenches his hand as the letter expresses hope this news lightens his burden. Han Sang-ah's letter continues saying Yonho is not allowed home, and she and Wai Jianghin are going to look for him. Han Sang-ah and Wai Jianghin are shown departing as the letter states Yonho's message came from the Hao Sect's Kaifeng branch. Sanho looks up at the moon, processing that his brother is alive. He tells himself it is not the time to get emotional. Sanho takes a determined step forward. He states that Kaifeng is where Jang Il is located. Sanho moves with great speed, surrounded by blue energy. Wai Yonho knocks on a door asking if someone is sleeping. The boy responds yes, but Yonho says it does not seem that way, asking how he can be a physician without trusting people. The boy tells Yonho he was greatly helpful today after saving a patient, and Yonho agrees. The boy then asks Yonho where their problem lies. Yonho asks what problem the boy means, as there are many. The boy explains he wants to restore the Sacred Hand Manor and sought an outsider's objective truth. Yonho states there are many problems, but the biggest one would be. He reveals the biggest problem is money. The boy asks sorry and Yonho reiterates money. The boy argues medicine is most important to a physician's household and money is a secondary problem. Yonho tells him to think about the beginning, asking what brought on his household's downfall and reminding him the giant physician's place across the street used to be theirs. The boy sighs, looking down. He explains his father was a very friendly man with no enemies who treated patients for free. His father did not take payment from the poor even for expensive treatments. He states they had generational wealth, but the gold began running out by the time he was born. An empty chest is shown, as the boy says the storage was empty by the time he matured. The boy explains they spent a lot because many physicians worked there at that time. He says the debt was not crushing thanks to their skill and fame, but his father eventually realized his method was unsustainable and sought a way to repay it. Yonho asks if his father was scammed or assassinated, but the boy dismisses it, saying Yonho has read too many novels. The boy then explains his father found a way to gain a lot of money quickly with very high risk. He reveals his father turned to gambling. Yonho summarizes that his father gambled to repay debts, bringing the family to ruin and passing away from nutrient deficiency and alcohol poisoning. Yonho reacts in shock. He asks the boy why he wants him to revive the Sacred Hand Manor and why he would ask him given his recommendation letter from Manhua. Yonho tells the boy he is wrong and is an ordinary person, suggesting he ask a professional. Ha Difeng, the royal inspector and Milky Way Manor branch owner, asks about a physician for medical matters and a pharmacist for medicine with money. Ha Difeng asks if Yonho wants him to invest in the Sacred Hand Manor, and Yonho confirms it, asking if the manor would be in its current state if Ha Difeng managed it. Ha Difeng replies of course not, stating they have medical skills but not administrative skills, and asks if Yonho would help with that. Ha Difeng smiles, saying that would definitely bring in money. Yonho says he does not want to work with him, but the boy insists he has no choice and cannot be picky. The boy argues their household is renowned for medical skills and asks why he would work with a lone shark who blows money away. Yonho asks the boy where he thinks their fame came from and if the Sacred Hand Manor would have lasted so long if they gave free treatments. He explains that the ancestors, the boy is proud of, all received money from their patients to build their grand pavilion. The boy asks if that is true and Yonho confirms it. Yonho tells the boy that if he has pride in his family, he needs to bring in money and have a grand pavilion. He adds that all truly famous physician households are immensely wealthy and patients do not spare money when their lives depend on it. The boy looks down, thinking he thought medicine was about the people. A bright image of the Sacred Hand Manor is shown. The boy looks glum. Yonho wonders if he was too straightforward. He thinks the boy has been down since then but decides it is none of his business. Yonho is startled by a loud voice telling him to come. He looks up, asking what is going on. A man yells to talk to the owner, asking where Jin Yurin is. The man named JWA Jul demands to know where the damned matriarch is. A woman, Jin Yurin, asks JWA Jul what he is doing and why he is dragging a patient from their room. JWA Jul acknowledges her and asks if she has any empathy. JWA Jul shouts, asking if she is borrowing money from them because of empathy, stating her father borrowed money in the manor's name and she needs to either shut down or repay the debt. Jin Yurin tells JWA Jul to talk to them if he has a problem, asking what the patients have done. JWA Jul asks if she wants him to talk to them and shoves a man away. JWA Jul grabs Jin Yurin's arm. Jin Yurin cries out as JWA Jul states he did not want to use this method either. He leans in close, saying since she wants to take care of it herself. JWA Jul suggests selling her to a brothel would pay off the debt in about 10 years. The boy yells at JWA Jul to let her go and hits him. JWA Jul kicks the boy, sending him flying. Jin Yurin cries out for So-ah. JWA Jul says it will not take long as her shocked face is pretty, and her brother should worry about how to use her for money instead of her safety. Other people try to stop JWA Jul, yelling no, and for him to take them instead of the physician. One man bites JWA Jul's arm, saying he will take him with him if he is going to die anyway. JWA Jul looks down at the man biting his arm. Jin Yurin yells for them to stop, saying this is not their problem to deal with. She tells JWA Jul not to put his hands on the patients and says she will go. JWA Jul laughs, saying all right. The boy asks Jin Yurin what she means. Jin Yurin tells the boy not to worry about her, saying she will repay the debt somehow and to just think about restoring their household. JWA Jul leads Jin Yurin away. The boy cries out for his sister. Someone says to wait as JWA Jul holds Jin Yurin. A voice states she cannot go as bare feet step onto the ground. JWA Jul turns to ask who the speaker is. Why Yonho stands wrapped in a blanket. Why Yonho introduces himself. Why Yonho declares that the woman cannot leave. JWA Jul, surprised, demands to know his identity. The man introduces himself simply as Why Yonho. He stands wrapped in a blanket, confronting JWA Jul and the woman. JWA Jul questions Why Yonho's sense and tells the woman to leave immediately. Why Yonho reiterates that JWA Jul cannot take her away. JWA Jul, annoyed, asks what is wrong with him. Why Yonho explains that if she is taken, no one will prepare his food. JWA Jul asks if the woman cooked for him, and Why Yonho confirms it, stating he is a guest. Why Yonho then asks if JWA Jul is stupid, insulting him further. JWA Jul angrily declares he will ensure Why Yonho never eats again. The woman shouts for them to stop the impending fight. Why Yonho, however, punches JWA Jul with a powerful glowing fist. The woman looks on with a shocked expression at the sudden attack. JWA Jul is sent flying into the ground, creating a large crater upon impact. Why Yonho asks if JWA Jul is alright, claiming the action was unintentional, while JWA Jul acknowledges his strength. JWA Jul quickly gets up from the damaged ground. He then asks Why Yonho where he is from. Why Yonho adjusts his blanket and states he is not a martial master. JWA Jul warns him not to intervene, mentioning a government contract, and Why Yonho agrees that seems to be the case. JWA Jul again tells Why Yonho not to intervene. Why Yonho replies he cannot, explaining his need for someone to cook for him. JWA Jul dismisses this as an excuse, accusing him of interrupting the Dark Earth branch sex business. Why Yonho asks about the Dark Earth Branch sect, and JWA Jul explains it is his affiliated sect to whom the Sacred Hand Manor is indebted, stating they will not let this matter go. Why Yonho clarifies he does not mean to interrupt and understands money is the current problem. JWA Jul asks if he means to pay off their debt. Why Yonho states he does not have money but will make and send it within 2 weeks, telling them to leave. JWA Jul looks at Why Yonho, trusting he will keep his promise. Meanwhile, an older man named Guak Dawson asks if there is a martial master in the Sacred Hand Manor. JWA Jul confirms there is, mentioning the man called himself a guest. Guak Dawson, identified as the Dark Earth Branch sect leader, holds a large piece of meat. Guak Dawson questions if the guest is an acquaintance of the former Sacred Hand Manor master, stating it complicates things. Guak Dawson accuses JWA Jul of running off when he saw Why Yonho was skilled, but JWA Jul denies being a coward. JWA Jul explains that Why Yonho promised to pay the debt in 2 weeks, so he reported the situation first. Guak Dawson calls JWA Jul an idiot and asks if he was told to collect the debt. Guak Dawson throws food, revealing he had told JWA Jul to use the debt as an excuse to bring down their business. JWA Jul explains he thought it made more sense to figure out who Why Yonho was first. Guak Dawson becomes enraged, declaring he will cut off JWA Jul's tongue for talking too much. Guak Dawson worries about the consequences if the plan fails, saying they will be reduced to ashes, prompting JWA Jul to ask if he should kill Why Yonho. Guak Dawson refuses to kill him, saying there is no need to provoke a martial master like that. He decides to keep an eye on Why Yonho for now. A young boy asks Why Yonho what he is going to do, and Why Yonho asks about what. The boy reminds him that he said he would pay off the debt in 2 weeks, to which Why Yonho asks if he did. The boy is shocked Why Yonho had no plan and questions him, but Why Yonho claims he has one. Why Yonho explains it is an ancient method and the best way to deal with a lone shark. The boy asks what the method is. Why Yonho reveals the plan is called running away in the night, which infuriates the boy. The boy expresses disbelief in Why Yonho's idea, then asks about the debt amount. Why Yonho estimates the debt is about 20 gold nyang or 20 silver, wondering how it became so large. The boy sighs and explains it used to be over 100 gold nyang, but they paid most of it with their savings. Why Yonho finds the situation ridiculous, and the boy agrees that everyone says so. Why Yonho decides they should go, and the boy asks where. Why Yonho states they are going to get money following the principle of an eye for an eye. The boy asks what he is talking about. Why Yonho smiles, hinting at the method he will use to acquire money. The boy exclaims that it is the same method his father used to ruin their family. The method is gambling, and the scene shifts to a secret gambling house called Golden Flower Manor. Inside the Golden Flower Manor, master Kang Chenlip asks if today is another failure. Kang Chenlip wonders if everyone knows they rip off newbies, suggesting their past actions with the Sacred Hand Manor might be why. A person rushes in to inform the manor master, asking if the government is there. Kang Chenlip asks what the big news is. The man reports an idiot customer has arrived, as Why Yonho and Jin Yurin are seen entering the gambling house. Jin Yurin worries if it is really okay for Why Yonho to gamble his way out of debt. The gambling house manager greets Why Yonho, calling him young master, and Why Yonho asks if he knows him. The manager replies that he knows him and welcomes him to enjoy the day. Why Yonho asks what he should do, and the manager tells him not to speak so formally. Why Yonho asks what he can do there, and the manager enthusiastically explains they have all kinds of games. The manager describes games with dice and cups, saying anything that can be bet on is available. The manager leads Why Yonho and Jin Yurin, suggesting they see a game for themselves. They arrive at a game with 2 cups and 4 small marbles. Why Yonho asks what the game is, noting its dice-like appearance, and the manager says it is called Yin and Yang. The manager explains it is the most popular and simple game there. He demonstrates by putting the marbles in the cups and shaking them. He explains that shaking divides the marbles into the 2 cups. He places 1 cup down. He states one just needs to guess if the marbles under the cup are odd or even numbered. Why Yonho remarks that it is easy, and the manager agrees, saying that is why people like it. The manager adds that while complex games have charm, fast money comes from games with a 50% chance of winning, suitable for Why Yonho's fiery personality. Why Yonho agrees that he does not like to wait and decides to play this game. Kang Chenlip, the manor master, observes Why Yonho and notes that he is doing well. Kang Chenlip thinks it is easy to draw in a newbie by letting him win big once to get him addicted. He observes Why Yonho, noting he seems to be having real fun. Kang Chenlip is shocked by the amount Why Yonho has won, feeling like the Golden Flower Manor is being robbed. A large stack of silver ingots is shown. Why Yonho correctly guesses odd, again surrounded by piles of silver. Why Yonho holds a silver ingot as onlookers are astonished by his success. Jang Il, the beggar sect branch leader, declared he would finally collect his money with Why Yonho gone. He recalled finding sturdy doors before winter a good omen for his plans. Jang Il considered himself fortunate, but a sudden violent impact abruptly interrupted his thoughts. A man's mouth was shown, asking if Yonho's disappearance was truly confirmed. Why Sanho, Why Yonho's older brother, then appeared before him. Jang Il looked shocked, demanding to know his identity. Sanho grabbed Jang Il by the collar, fiercely demanding to know if Yonho was truly alive. Jang Il struggled, confirming it was true, and pleaded for Sanho to release him. Sanho released Jang Il, then immediately asked for Yonho's current location. Jang Il coughed, telling Sanho that was the How sex information and advising him to ask them. Why Sanho grabbed Jang Il once more, declaring they were now going to the How sect. Jang Il looked distressed, cursing under his breath at the turn of events. They soon arrived at the How sect's Kaifeng branch, where a woman watched their approach from above. The How sect leader scolded Jang Il for bringing the demon-slaying sword Wai Sanho to her, though Jang Il protested he had not wanted to. She then threatened both Jang Il and Sanho, stating they would die today, as the entire building began to shake. Meanwhile, back at the gambling den, onlookers discussed Wai Yonho's potential winnings of 1,000 or 10 gold nyang. A man at the gambling table appeared stressed by the increasingly large amount of money involved. Why Yonho, looking bored, asked what was wrong with the man, adding the word even. The man noted Yonho had won 9 times in a row and wondered if he would win yet again. The dice were then revealed to be 4, an even number. The crowd cheered for Wai Yonho, calling him a gambling god for his 1,000 nyang win. Wai Yonho smiled confidently as people continued to praise his victory. A flashback showed a young Wai Yonho dodging objects by sound, thinking gambling was too easy. He reflected that he could determine odd or even by sound alone, making it an ideal way to earn money. Wai Yonho laughed, considering stopping, but thought one more win would reach his goal amount. Kang Chenlip, the Golden Flower Manor master, then approached Wai Yonho. Kang Chenlip greeted him as an important guest, surprising the other onlookers. Wai Yonho looked at Kang Chenlip, stating he was just a regular guy. Kang Chenlip laughed, saying interesting games made him an important guest, but Yonho replied he found the games uninteresting. Kang Chenlip laughed again, calling Yonho extraordinary, though internally annoyed that Yonho found winning 1,000 nyang boring. Kang Chenlip suggested there were better places for him and asked him to move to a bigger stage. He smiled, inviting Yonho to a proper gambling stage for more fun. Wai Yonho looked up at Kang Chenlip, considering the enticing offer. Wai Yonho declined, saying he did not want to, as his companion collected the winnings. Kang Chenlip looked displeased, wondering if Yonho would simply leave after winning 10 gold nyang. Kang Chenlip offered 5 gold nyang if Yonho stayed for bigger games, then agreed to 10 when Yonho asked for more. Kang Chenlip laughed, agreeing to give 10 gold nyang, but with a specific condition. Wai Yonho agreed to play if he received the 10, saying he was too lazy to return tomorrow, a response Kang Chenlip liked. Kang Chenlip smiled, thinking Yonho had fallen for his trap, and called for the opponent to come out. A hand with a distinctive pattern sleeve was then shown. The crowd exclaimed that Dokbai had arrived. Dokbai, the gambling king, one-armed, was shown skillfully manipulating dice. Dokbai asked if Wai Yonho had won all that money just by playing yin-yang. Wai Yonho looked at Dokbai, noting he did not look like a gambler. Dokbai replied that winning much in gambling made one a gambler, not their appearance. Wai Yonho asked Dokbai if he was his opponent and what game they would be playing. Dokbai smiled and recommended a dice game, shaking them in his hand. Dokbai explained that dice might seem normal, but it was the most certain game to bring out a gambler's true skills. Wai Yonho yawned, while others whispered that no one could win against Dokbai and that dice games were fairer. Dokbai explained that the one whose dice roll was higher would win, asking if Yonho was against the rule. Wai Yonho said no, agreeing that the game would continue until one side ran out of money. Kang Chenlip laughed, adding that the stakes would double with each game. He further explained that if a player lost all their money, the winner would decide whether to continue. Wai Yonho agreed to the challenging terms. Kang Chenlip declared the game would begin, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Wai Yonho's companion asked if he could do well, and Yonho confidently replied by asking if he had ever seen him not do well. Wai Yonho and his companion soon looked worried as he continued to lose. His companion exclaimed that this was his 10th time losing, and Wai Yonho confirmed it. The companion yelled at Wai Yonho for telling him to trust him, fearing they would go bankrupt. Dokbai held the dice, stating this seemed to be the last game with this round now for 2,000 nyang. Onlookers commented that Wai Yonho had lost all his money and might be in debt, concluding that kids should not gamble. Wai Yonho looked at the table with a bored expression. Dokbai smiled confidently and prepared to roll the dice, saying let us go. Wai Yonho looked intently at the table. Dokbai's dice roll then revealed all 6s, the highest possible score. The crowd was amazed by Dokbai's roll of all 6s, praising his skill. Dokbai asked if Wai Yonho wanted to continue, and despite his companion's worry, Yonho decided to proceed. Wai Yonho asked his companion if he trusted him, and the companion enthusiastically affirmed his trust. Wai Yonho patted his companion's head, remarking that no one had ever said that to him before. Wai Yonho took a deep breath and held his dice, preparing for his turn. He thought that winning this round would earn him 40 gold nyang. Wai Yonho then threw the dice onto the table. Dokbai's previously confident expression turned to shock. The crowd looked stunned as the dice rolled. Wai Yonho's dice showed all ones, the lowest possible score. Wai Yonho and his companion reacted with extreme shock and anger at the unexpected outcome. Elsewhere, a masked figure sat, asking who the person was. Baek Myuhan replied that he had not yet identified the target. The masked figure described the target as a mysterious young boy skilled in martial arts. Baek Myuhan was then ordered to kill him. The masked figure ordered Baek Myuhan to kill the target, stating there was no need to leave doors open, but Baek Myuhan expressed concern about not knowing the target's skill level. The masked figure called Baek Muhen useless and ordered him to go right now, promising more skilled martial artists if needed. The masked figure commanded to kill him while Wai Yonho looked determined with his companion panicking behind him. The onlookers react with shock. The dice reveal the lowest possible score, all ones. Wai Yonho and his companion are shocked, with the latter cursing in anger at their loss. The gambling house owner smiles, telling Wai Yonho he was simply unlucky. Wai Yonho asks what happens next while his companion panics beside him. The owner states Wai Yonho has no money left and must repay the 10 gold nyang he borrowed. Wai Yonho clarifies he is asking how much he needs to continue playing, to which the owner replies 40 nyang. Wai Yonho then asks if he can continue the game with that amount. The owner agrees they will continue if Wai Yonho brings the money, secretly planning to rob him. Wai Yonho asks for a promise, and the owner agrees, stating a gambling house runs on trust. Wai Yonho smiles confidently, though his companion still looks worried. Wai Yonho tells someone to come in as people watch from outside. Ha Difeng enters with 2 men carrying trays of gold, apologizing for his delay. Wai Yonho complains he almost became a slave, but Ha Difeng reassures him. The gambling house owner recognizes Ha Difeng from Milky Way Manor and asks his purpose. Ha Difeng greets the owner, stating he brought the requested gold. Wai Yonho reminds them of their promise to continue, adding that the minimum bet is double the last round. Wai Yonho then says to add even more money, shocking the gambling house owner. He states the next amount is 100 gold nyang. The owner asks if he heard correctly, and Wai Yonho asks if he is scared. Dokbai asks his associate what he thinks and if he can win, while Wai Yonho's companion looks surprised. Dokbai tells his associate he is trusting him with this. Dokbai declares they will continue making the game much larger and asks if this was Wai Yonho's plan. Wai Yonho denies losing on purpose, stating he is not filthy rich. Dokbai asks why he called Milky Way Manor ahead of time, and Wai Yonho replies his mother always told him to have a lot of money. Dokbai looks thoughtful at this response. Wai Yonho asks if he starts the next round. He skillfully throws the dice. The onlookers watch the dice intently as they tumble. The dice tumble and spin rapidly within the cup. 5 of the dice land on 6. The crowd is shocked by the 5 sixes and eagerly awaits the last die's result. The final die lands. The last die is a 5 and the crowd cheers, calling it great despite not being all 6s. Dokbai remarks it was just one less, calling it a shame. Wai Yonho pretends not to understand, stating 35 is still a high number. Dokbai smiles menacingly, stating Wai Yonho underestimated him and he will show him. Dokbai declares he will show why he is called the gambling king, then throws the dice. 5 of the dice land on 6. The crowd is astonished, asking if it is all 6s again and acknowledging Dokbai as the gambling king in this biggest game. Wai Yonho's companion panics, asking what they will do and why Wai Yonho remains so calm. The companion shouts they will be broke if they lose, asking if Wai Yonho is sure about this gamble. Wai Yonho asks if his companion's sister is good at dancing, making the companion yell in confusion. The onlookers and Dokbai look down expectantly at the last die. The last die is revealed to be a 5. The die shows a 5. The die lands on a 4. The crowd cheers that Wai Yonho won by just 1 point, with a total of 34, shouting about the 100 gold nyang. The crowd praises his amazing win, calling him the first to win so much from Golden Flower Manor. Wai Yonho's companion excitedly hugs him, calling him young master, and celebrating their 100 nyang win. The crowd is ecstatic, celebrating the game and shouting at Dokbai that he lost. Dokbai's associate confronts him, asking why he claimed he could win. Dokbai tells his associate he may be the gambling king, but Wai Yonho is a gambling god. Dokbai's associate despairs about losing Golden Flower Manor's money. Ha Difeng announces to everyone that the financial relationship between Golden Flower Manor and Wai Yonho is now settled. Ha Difeng declares everyone present a witness to the passionate game, and the crowd agrees. Dokbai tells Wai Yonho it was a good game. Wai Yonho bows in response. Ha Difeng tells Wai Yonho he will put the money in the manor for now, and Wai Yonho agrees. Wai Yonho's companion says he is not cut out for gambling and is tired from just watching, asking if Wai Yonho is alright. Wai Yonho tells his companion that Manor Master Ha will take care of the money and that they should go home to eat and sleep. His companion bumps into a large man while trying to rush off. Wai Yonho looks at the large man and his group, who are now confronting his companion. Wai Yonho narrows his eyes at them. Ha Difeng tells Wai Yonho that the symbols on their clothing indicate they are from the Dark Earth Branch sect. The large man with white hair asks who Wai Yonho is. A woman with red ribbons in her hair asks if he is Wai Yonho's older brother. The man with the ponytail affirms he is, then asks where Wai Yonho is, stating he is not here and went to Hubei with the Swift Dragon Escort Agency. The woman thanks him and bows. The man with the ponytail tells his companion to go, who asks where. He says they are going to Hubei, making his companion protest. His companion dramatically falls to the ground, refusing to go to Hubei after running all the way without food or water. The woman sighs. The woman tells them to rest before they go, but the man with the ponytail refuses, making his companion protest again. The woman explains that turning away guests so late at night would reflect badly on them offering to prepare a bath and food. The companion still protests, saying they should just kill him, but the man with the ponytail accepts the offer. The man with the ponytail and his companion are seen relaxing in a bath. The companion remarks that the leader of the beggar sect would be furious if he saw him a beggar having a bath. The man with the ponytail stands up in the bath, revealing a muscular physique. He steps out of the bath, showing his well-defined muscles. The companion compliments Jo Hyung's body and asks if his scar is from fighting the tailless phantom demon. Jo Hyung asks about the tailless phantom demon, and the companion says he heard Jo Hyung almost died back then. Jo Hyung states the scar from that fight is nothing compared to another he received, surprising his companion. The companion asks how Jo Hyung got that scar and which demonic martial artist could have given him such a giant one. Jo Hyung looks down and repeats the words demonic martial artist. The companion looks shocked as Jo Hyung reveals the scar was made by his little brother. Jo Hyung says his little brother made the scar when he did not know how terrifying the sword could be. Jo Hyung questioned who Wai Yonho was. Wai Yonho pointed to himself, confirming his identity. Jo Hyung stared intently at Wai Yonho. His companion then confirmed that Wai Yonho was indeed the one they sought. Jo Hyung exclaimed that Wai Yonho was too young, but his companion reminded him of the earlier report. Jo Hyung complained the report exaggerated him as a martial master. Jo Hyung declared that even a kid must pay for interfering in their work as his men drew their swords. Wai Yonho told them to wait. Meanwhile, Jo Bang held out a document and a brush to a young boy. Jo Bang instructed the boy to sign the document there, promising an explanation later, and the boy agreed. Wai Yonho then asked how much the Sacred Hand Manor owed them. Jo Hyung stated the debt was 20 gold nyang and 50 silver nyang as a large chest appeared before him. He looked surprised at the contents of the open chest. Wai Yonho explained that the Sacred Hand Manor's debt was now paid off, owing nothing, and told them to write a guarantee of payment and take their money. Jo Hyung asked if Wai Yonho intended to resolve everything with just this much. Wai Yonho replied that he had added more than what was owed, and Jo Hyung observed that it did appear that way. Jo Hyung's companion reminded him that their leader wanted the Sacred Hand Manor itself, not just money, asking what if they reconstructed themselves, which Jo Hyung acknowledged. Jo Hyung then stated that the debt was not important right now, and he could not let them get away with interfering. Wai Yonho asked if they wanted to fight as men around him drew their swords. Jo Hyung replied it was not a fight but a punishment. Jo Hyung ordered his men to bring him Wai Yonho's head, and they responded by lunging at him. Multiple swords clashed in a burst of light. Wai Yonho smiled slightly and questioned the word punishment. He sat calmly as several swords were aimed at him, stating they would regret this. A man with scars on his face looked shocked. A blue energy blast then struck a man in the face. A glowing blue fist hit another man. Another man was sent flying by a blue energy impact. Wai Yonho, surrounded by blue energy, deflected multiple sword attacks. Jo Hyung looked astonished and exclaimed in surprise. His companion reminded him that he had reported Wai Yonho was a martial master. Wai Yonho then told Jo Hyung he wanted to get this over with and for the person in the back to come out. Jo Hyung looked surprised and asked how Wai Yonho knew. Jo Hyung called for help as several cloaked figures appeared. 5 cloaked figures with swords stood before Wai Yonho. Wai Yonho looked at the figures, wondering if they looked familiar or if they had met before. He dodged a swift sword attack from one of the cloaked figures. Wai Yonho landed and commented that the attack had scared him. He observed the cloaked figures, wondering if that was the hidden sword, noting the attack was sudden. Baek Myuhan appeared as a ghostly image next to Wai Yonho, explaining that hidden sword is a swift killing sword art mostly used by assassins to kill without being noticed. Wai Yonho asked Baek Myuhan what he should do, then admitted he did not know. Baek Myuhan warned Wai Yonho that users of that sword art were murderers who had killed countless people and must not be underestimated or treated easily. Baek Myuhan's voice told Wai Yonho to kill them all right away if he found them. Wai Yonho thought he had to give it his all, since the old man said that despite feeling too lazy. Wai Yonho asked Jo Bang to hand him a sword, and Jo Bang replied that here it was. Wai Yonho drew the sword and warned that it was going to get a bit loud. He told Jo Bang to stay away as blue energy surrounded him. One of the cloaked figures noted that Wai Yonho had managed to dodge and was no ordinary kid. The cloaked figures were told not to underestimate the opponent and to work together as Wai Yonho was surrounded by blue energy. Wai Yonho gripped his sword with both hands. His eyes were closed in concentration. Wai Yonho attacked with a burst of blue energy. One of the cloaked figures looked intently through his mask. Baek Myuhan advised Wai Yonho not to let himself be held back by movement, and Wai Yonho replied that he knew. Wai Yonho parried a sword attack, and Baek Myuhan stated that the start is an unbending spirit. Wai Yonho was surrounded by the cloaked figures, and Baek Myuhan advised him not to let his mind be shaken just because an opponent's sword was approaching. Wai Yonho exhaled, and Baek Myuhan told him to wield the sword with a cool head to respond accordingly to any situation. Wai Yonho's foot slid across the ground. He dodged an attack and retaliated with his glowing sword. Baek Myuhan explained that next is to imbue the sword with one's mindset. Wai Yonho deflected another sword attack with a powerful clash. Baek Myuhan stated that a sword may be two blades of steel, but if one does not put themselves into the steel, it is not a proper sword. Hwa Yonho fought multiple cloaked figures with swift sword movements. Baek Myuhan stated that a sword with one's will is powerful even as Hwa Yonho was surrounded by glowing swords. Baek Myuhan added that such a sword can split even mountains. Hwa Yonho unleashed a powerful vertical sword attack. Baek Myuhan explained that what can be filled can also be emptied as a cloaked figure was struck. Baek Myuhan instructed Hwa Yonho to channel himself into the sword like land directs a river as Hwa Yonho moved gracefully. Hwa Yonho then faced one of the cloaked figures. Hwa Yonho struck the cloaked figure, causing a splash of blood. Baek Myuhan said what he taught was not a move as Hwa Yonho stood over fallen figures. Baek Myuhan explained it was a seed that might grow into anything as Hwa Yonho glowed with purple energy. The remaining cloaked figures observed Hwa Yonho. Baek Myuhan stated that a perfect sword is created with one's mind. Hwa Yonho looked intently. Hwa Yonho raised his sword as blue energy radiated outwards surrounded by the cloaked figures. Baek Myuhan instructed Hwa Yonho to create his own sword as he was bathed in blue light. Hwa Yonho had a determined expression. A powerful burst of blue energy then expanded. Multiple pillars of blue light erupted from the ground. Jo Bang and the young boy shielded their faces from the intense aura. Hwa Yonho stood calmly as the cloaked figures lay defeated around him, engulfed in blue smoke. Hwa Yonho stood with a powerful blue aura as Baek Myuhan's spirit hovered behind him. Hwa Yonho stated he had cut their chi veins and closed their ability for martial arts so they would no longer wield a sword or harm others. He declared they would pay the price for oppressing others and thought these people felt familiar. Hwa Yonho said he would figure it out one day as Jo Hyung watched him. Jo Hyung trembled with fear. Hwa Yonho approached Jo Hyung, who recoiled in terror. Hwa Yonho yawned and asked Jo Hyung if he was not going to punish someone. Hwa Yonho yawned, asking Jo Hyung if he was not going to punish someone. A terrified Jo Hyung called out to the young master. Hwa Yonho explained his master considered an action against those who wronged him a personal insult, a principle he lived by. Jo Hyung prostrated himself on the ground, promising to change his life and live as a good person if forgiven. Hwa Yonho questioned who would believe him after all he had done. When Jo Hyung asked what he would do, Hwa Yonho replied that killing him was too much, preferring an eye for an eye. Jo Hyung questioned this. Jo Hyung then looked at the unconscious bodies of other men on the floor. He asked if this meant removing his ability to use martial arts. Hwa Yonho confirmed it, stating he liked quick understanding, but Jo Hyung still asked if there was no other way. Hwa Yonho smiled brightly and crossed his fingers in an X shape. Jo Hyung screamed in despair. Soon after a bright light, an explosion erupted from a building. Jo Hyung lay unconscious on the ground as Hwa Yonho asked another man to guide him, who then questioned where. Hwa Yonho directed him to their base, marking the downfall of the Dark Earth branch sect that day. A woman stood on a balcony looking out. She wondered where her brother had gone. Suddenly, a young boy ran towards her, shouting, "Sis." The boy excitedly asked his sister if she knew what he did. She asked what he was excited for, and he declared they had repaid all their debts. She dismissed it as a dream, but he denied it and began to explain what happened. Under a full moon in the night sky over a building, the conversation continued. The woman looked surprised, asking if it was really true. The boy confirmed it, saying they were free now thanks to Mr. Y. She understood, expressing gladness and acknowledging their debt to him. She then looked at So-Ah. She scolded him for trying to repay the debt through gambling, but let it pass this time since he was not the one gambling, warning him not to go near a gambling house again. So Ah asked if the method they used to repay the debt was that important. His sister stated that a person not walking the orthodox path is bound to hit a wall, questioning how he could be okay with gambling after their father's experience. So Ah protested that she might have been dragged off to the escort house, otherwise asking if she could still call it bad. She firmly said yes, stating a physician must walk the orthodox path. So Ah mumbled that she was too stuck up. She explained her best efforts and lecturing were all for his sake. He told her to look at their current situation, saying if they did things her way they would be stuck there forever. He questioned if her actions were truly for him. He then stated he learned a lot from Mr. Y and did not want to live her way. He declared he wanted to live his own life. The brother and sister stood facing each other under the full moon, their disagreement clear. The scene shifted to the Pine Forest Great Hanlim Institute. There, a man in blue robes welcomed a visitor. Another man in black and red robes with a dragon design expressed honor at being welcomed despite their unannounced visit. The host stated he heard the guest was Mr. Y's older brother, welcoming him as an important visitor. Y Gang apologized for any rudeness from his brother. The host dismissed it, asking if Y Gang was looking for him. Y Gang asked if he could say something, to which the host replied yes. Y Gang then asked if the host knew of great potential. He explained that great potential cannot be restricted, and considering the host's personality, trying to shape his brother to expectations would only ruin him, like squeezing a horse into a small house. A rope was shown broken in two, illustrating his point. Y Gang concluded that one day his brother would become a horse running through the plains. Y Gang looked up thoughtfully. The host thanked Y Gang for his consideration, promising to think about his advice. Later, Wei Gang and his companion walked along a path through the trees. His companion asked why he looked so displeased after they were fed and rested. Wei Gang asked how his brother was when the companion saw him, and the companion expressed surprise at the mention of his brother. The companion stated he only treated Wei Yonho well because he was Wei Gang's brother, otherwise he would not have considered him human, deeming him lazy, evil like the unorthodox Murim, and more cunning than a politician. The companion almost finished saying Wei Yonho was annoying. Wei Gang looked serious. Wei Gang said, "So that is what you think." Wei Gang thought that most normal people cannot see through Yonho's talent otherwise. Wei Yonho yawned loudly in his sleep. He woke up with a start, wondering how long he had slept. He complained about the sleep training, feeling beaten up in his dream and in real life. Jang So-hyun told Wei Yonho that what he had done for them was greater than anything, causing him to scream. Jang So-hyun knelt before him, saying she could not possibly repay him. Wei Yonho told her to get up, asking why she was doing this. Jang So-hyun then asked if she could ask him for a favor. Wei Yonho asked what it was, wondering if his ancestors were cursing him. Jang So-hyun asked him to please change So-ah's mind, leaving Wei Yonho confused. She explained that So-ah had to inherit the sacred hand manor and revive the household to regain their honor, but he was shaken, so she pleaded with Wei Yonho to change his mind. Wei Yonho said he did not get it, asking if becoming a great physician and reviving the sacred hand manor were not two different things, and which was more important. He asked if he was supposed to pick one, musing they were two different things after all. Jang So-hyun looked at him and stated the revival of the sacred hand manor was more important. She explained that even if So-ah became a great physician, their father's will could not be kept without resurrecting the sacred hand manor. She added that if the sacred hand manor was revived, they would have a chance of getting a great physician in the future. Wei Yonho said he understood her meaning, confirming the priority was the revival of the sacred hand manor. Jang So-hyun looked at him expectantly. Wei Yonho smiled, saying there was actually a really simple solution. The scene shifted to a building lit with pink lights at night. Inside, a woman with red lips gritted her teeth, thinking she should have killed that beggar. House Sect Kaifeng branch leader Gui Nangnang was still furious, wondering how he dared bring the demon-slaying sword here, and vowed to act when she saw him next. Gongmu ran in, shouting about a problem, to which Gui Nangnang angrily asked, "What now?" Gongmu looked back at an old man with a beard and a woman standing behind him. The old man asked Gui Nangnang if she was in charge there. Gui Nangnang looked annoyed and replied yes. The old man introduced himself as Wei Jianghin. Gui Nangnang reacted with shock, recognizing him as the righteous, chivalrous swordsman Wei Jianghin. Wei Jianghin confirmed it was him, saying since she knew him, he would not have to explain as much. He then roughly pushed Gongmu aside, stating they were looking for their son, causing Gongmu to groan. Jang Il asked why Wei Jianghin was flexing when they were busy enough. Wei Jianghin said he was just famous, but Jang Il thought that was not important. Gui Nangnang looked surprised, realizing this was the righteous, chivalrous swordsman. Jang Il cleared his throat. Jang Il smiled and stated that Yonho sent a letter to them from there, asking if Gui Nangnang could explain what happened. Gui Nangnang asked Jang Il if he was referring to Wei Yonho as his son. She confirmed it, adding that Yonho should have arrived at the Sacred Hand Manor by then. Jang Il inquired about the Sacred Hand Manor, and Gui Nangnang explained Yonho had been at the Great Hanlim Institute before that. Wei Jianghin then asked if Yonho was hurt, given the Sacred Hand Manor is a physician household, but Gui Nangnang replied she heard no problems with his health. Wei Jianghin looked at her with suspicion. He stated his son was very lazy and not one to keep in regular contact, then questioned how she knew all this about him. Gui Nangnang reacted with surprise at his inquiry. She realized she had revealed too much and that he was asking if she had been monitoring Wei Yonho. Wei Jianghin demanded a proper answer, sensing the situation might be serious. A flashback then showed the Sacred Hand Manor's reconstruction had been completed quickly. The manor utilized the Dark Earth Branch Sect's building funded by money looted from it. To repay their debts, Wei Yonho confronted Jin So-ah, who looked surprised at a document he presented. Yonho showed her a promissory note for 20 golden yang, pointing out her signature and reminding her she had signed it previously. Jin So-ah expressed that she thought he was doing them a favor, but Yonho believed nothing in this world was free. Yonho told her he repaid her debt as an investment, instructing her to reconstruct the Sacred Hand Manor to repay him with an easy plan of 1 golden yang per year for 20 years. Jin So-ah reacted with shock at the 20-year repayment plan. Yonho smiled, telling her to sign if she understood or repay the 20 golden yang immediately. Jin So-ah hesitantly held a brush, thinking this was essentially a slave contract. Yonho stated that took care of things as Jin So-ah walked away, muttering about being scammed. The other person present then asked Yonho why he had done that. Yonho responded with a question of his own. Jin So-ah meanwhile thought there was no contract as foolish as hers. She wondered why Yonho was being so kind to her. Yonho stated the conditions were too good, explaining that even if Jin So-ah tried hard, he would not be able to return the Sacred Hand Manor to its former glory in 20 years. He agreed the Sacred Hand Manor might be renowned, but it was not something he truly needed. The other man asked Yonho his reason for helping them by paying all the fees and what he was gaining from it. Yonho replied that he gained connections, prompting the man to ask what he meant. Yonho explained that Jin So-ah, though young, would become a great physician one day. He added that once Jin So-ah revived the Sacred Hand Manor and became a great physician, he would be able to save many people. Yonho stated he would believe in him and watch his progress, giving him the opportunity to do that which Jin So-ah found hard to understand but accepted if that was Yonho's wish. Jin So-ah then realized Yonho was being considerate. She regretted complaining without even knowing his true intentions. Jin So-ah ran off, determined to work hard to repay Yonho's trust. The other man asked Yonho if Jin So-ah was truly gone. Yonho confirmed he was gone. Yonho laughed, stating it was so easy to fool a kid. The other man laughed as well, remarking that Yonho had not even truly fooled him. Both Yonho and the man shared a laugh together. A sign for the Sacred Hand Manor was prominently displayed. As the manager of the Sacred Hand Manor, Ha Difeng quickly prepared for the business opening day. Ha Difeng gave orders to make more food and invite everyone they knew, promising handsome rewards. He also ordered unused patient rooms opened and every space prepared to accommodate all people despite concerns about running out of ingredients. Jin So-ah was identified as the Sacred Hand Manor Master. People discussed that Jin So-ah had grown up and was qualified to inherit the place, wondering what would happen to the fake Sacred Hand Manor. More people continued to arrive at the manor. Jin So-ah and Ha Difeng looked surprised by the turnout. A person in formal robes stepped onto the grounds. This person continued to walk towards the entrance. People bowed as the great administrator arrived. Ha Difeng bowed deeply to Administrator Zhou Bang. Zhou Bang looked around the manor grounds, assessing the scene. Zhou Bang stood formally with Ha Difeng nearby. Jin So-ah bowed low before Administrator Zhou Bang. Zhou Bang expressed his joy at seeing the Jin family's Sacred Hand Manor reconstructed. Zhou Bang then asked if Jin So-ah was the former Sacred Hand Manor master's son. Jin So-ah nervously confirmed it. Zhou Bang officially recognized the Sacred Hand Manor's reconstruction and stated his belief that Jin So-ah would do his best for the people. Jin So-ah bowed again, agreeing to do his best. The crowd cheered that the Sacred Hand Manor had been revived and that their city's pride was back. Zhou Bang encouraged people to visit the Sacred Hand Manor whenever they were sick, stating that a healthy nation requires healthy people. The crowd excitedly discussed the great administrator's visit and the opening of the real Sacred Hand Manor. Ha Difeng laughed and asked Jin So-ah if he was listening. Jin So-ah stated he would do well and asked his father to watch over him. Zhou Bang looked nervous and asked if that performance was good enough. Yonho replied that it was perfect. Zhou Bang told Yonho to keep his promise and Yonho confirmed he would. Yonho stated he would keep a record of bribes to ensure Zhou Bang kept his word. Zhou Bang groaned and then announced he would be getting going. Yonho waved goodbye to Zhou Bang as his carriage departed. Zhou Bang thought he better behave for a while to prevent such records from ending up in the hands of a royal inspector. The next morning, Jin So-ah looked surprised. Ha Difeng shouted at a large crowd to get in line and not to push. Jin So-ah wondered where the line ended while Ha Difeng exclaimed that he smelled money. Ha Difeng's eyes glowed with greed as he repeated that it smelled like money and expressed a desire to extract it all from them. Meanwhile, at Nature's Hand Manor, a man wondered why there were no patients. Another man explained that a new Sacred Hand Manor had opened and everyone had gone there. The first man reacted with shock, asking about the Sacred Hand Manor. He angrily questioned how there could be a Sacred Hand Manor when the Sacred Hand Manor master did not exist, to which the other man stated his son established it. The man wondered how the son could have money to set it up again after his father had put them in huge debt from gambling. He looked frustrated, thinking everything had been going so well after he got that bastard into gambling. The angry man at Nature's Hand Manor asked what they should do, stating they were responsible and he would take the blame if things went wrong. The other man at Nature's Hand Manor asked what they could do since the new manor was already established. The angry man declared that if they could not undo the knot they would cut it, then said it was a shame. The young master of the Sacred Hand Manor had just managed to stand back on his own 2 feet. The angry man smirked, thinking the young master would meet an untimely death from a robber in the night. He continued to think they should stash away enough money to donate at the funeral. The young master of the Sacred Hand Manor lay tied up on a roof. His captor, an angry man, smirked, anticipating the young master's untimely death by a night robber. He mused about stashing money for a funeral donation as the scene shifted to the Venerate Heaven Orthodox Murim Alliance. Orthodox Murim Alliance leader Sama Chinsei inquired about recent news, revealing the Green Forest had contacted the Iron Blood sect. Another man confirmed Ping Dojak of the Ping clan verified this, having narrowly escaped the Green Forest's 10 scythes. Sama Chinsei concluded that the Green Forest and Iron Blood sect must already be allied if the 10 scythes were involved. The present-day Jianghu was in chaos, with a lack of major incidents prompting each force to expand its military and power. The Heavenly Will and Orthodox alliances stood at the center, their small conflicts often escalating into bloodshed. Minor disputes frequently led to the eradication of entire sects and clans, leaving behind only blood and weapons. Sama Chinsei then asked about the Heavenly Will alliance, to which the other man replied they remained inactive. The man explained the Iron Blood sect's long-standing good relations with the Heavenly Will Alliance, making a Green Forest alliance under their guidance a grave concern. Sama Chinsei cleared his throat, wondering how much more blood would be shed if they antagonized the Heavenly Will Alliance. He inquired if Ping Dojak had defeated the 10 scythes, and the man replied that Wai Yonho had assisted him. Sama Chinsei asked about Wai Yonho learning. He was the second son of Wai Jianghin from Guangdong's Wai clan, who had recently reappeared after a 5-year disappearance. Recognizing Wai Jianghin as the righteous chivalrous swordsman, Sama Chinsei exclaimed that only he could raise such a child. He smiled, noting Wai Yonho's 5-year absence, but surmised his father had trained him to become a dragon. The other man added that Wai Jianghin's eldest son was Wai Sanho, the demon-slaying sword. Sama Chinsei believed Guangdong's Wai clan might become the strongest in 10 years, then called out Wai Yonho's name. He laughed, declaring Wai Yonho must be a good child given his righteous swordsman father and the birth of a dragon from the Wai clan. Sama Chinsei stated they would do great things for the Jianghu as the scene shifted back to Wai Yonho still tied up on the roof. Wai Yonho remained bound on the roof. The man below asked about So-Ah and another replied he had passed out, needing careful attention. The man mentioned ordering herbal food and reminded Wai Yonho of a bet he owed, to which Wai Yonho apologized. Suddenly, several men in black began attacking. The man told Wai Yonho he had warned him of their arrival today and asked if he was ready to face them. Wai Yonho declared a broomstick would suffice, wondering how they dared interfere with his source of income. He held a broomstick, confronting several attackers wielding glowing blue weapons. Wai Yonho prepared to strike with the broomstick. With a menacing expression, Wai Yonho yelled for them to die. The scene shifted to the Hao sect Kaifeng branch at night. A woman with dark hair and red lipstick looked surprised. Wai Jianghin stated his son was lazy and rarely in contact, then asked how the woman knew so much about him. The woman realized she had said too much, sensing Wai Jianghin suspected her of watching Wai Yonho. Wai Jianghin demanded a proper answer, making the woman fear the situation was dire. He grabbed her arm, causing her to flinch. Wai Jianghin yelled at the woman, saying asking how many times he had to tell her not to interfere. He questioned if her intention was not obvious given she was a woman past her prime marrying age. Wai Jianghin asked if Yonho was in Hubei. She replied yes, then asked where the Sacred Hand Manor was. The woman said finding him was not hard, but she did not know how long he would stay, noting his brief time at the Great Hanlim Institute. She offered to help track him down with informants so they could meet him. Wai Jianghin thought the woman was bold and brave for being friendly despite knowing his identity. He stated he would consider this a personal debt to her, not the Hao sect, and would repay her goodwill later. Wai Jianghin asked who the informant guiding them would be, and the woman next to him told him not to be obtuse. He asked her age. She replied 26, adding her father was well, but her mother had passed away young. Wai Jianghin acknowledged her hardship but dismissed it as a current issue, then questioned if she, seemingly weak, could make it to Hubei. Offended, she asked what he meant, as Wai Jianghin reiterated his appreciation but stressed Hubei's distance. The woman looked angry and told him to wait. Wai Jianghin mused about the righteous chivalrous swordsman Wai Jianghin, demon-slaying sword Wai Sanho, and Wai Yonho believing Guangdong's Wai clan might become one of the most powerful. The woman smiled slyly. She told Wai Jianghin not to worry, asserting she was stronger than she looked, and went to get ready. Wai Jianghin laughed and said all right as she walked away. Wai Jianghin then remarked that Sang-Ah did not seem interested in Yonho. Han Sang-Ah called him honey, asking if he seriously thought Yonho could get married. She said no, but now that he was back, they needed to prepare for it as he was old enough. Han Sang-Ah suggested they could meet often and grow on each other even without initial liking, describing the woman as smart, pretty, and capable of handling Yonho. Wai Jianghin screamed that women were scary and terrifying. The scene shifted to a long corridor with a pond. Wai Yonho ate a bowl of noodles while the other man So-Ah slept on the table, complaining about his body. Wai Yonho offered him some, saying it tasted good, but So-Ah asked how he could eat while dying from exhaustion. So-Ah questioned if he could truly become a better physician, this way, to which Wai Yonho affirmed, explaining that medical prodigies were non-existent, and So-Ah would improve rapidly by seeing many patients. So-Ah asked if something happened last night, having heard screams, but Wai Yonho replied no, stating he had captured them all and handed them to the officers. Wai Yonho then declared the Sacred Hand Manor would take over Hubei. A maid in uniform called for the manor master. The maid announced a woman was there to see him, and So-Ah looked confused. A beautiful woman with dark hair and elaborate accessories appeared. So-Ah, still at the table, called her sister as she walked towards him on a bridge. The woman asked what all this meant. She told So-Ah to quit it and return immediately. She stated that medical practice was for humans by humans, not a merchant business, accusing him of using medicine for profit. So-Ah looked down as she asked what he was doing and told him to pack up. So-Ah asked if physicians were not humans. He argued that everyone else sought money for status and fame, questioning why physicians must live in poverty, to which she asked if he had forgotten their ancestors' teachings. The woman stated their ancestors lived in wealth, earning money through medicine and comfort, but this came naturally from goodwill, not from a desire for profit. So-Ah yelled that she was the one who did not understand. He said he did not think he was walking the orthodox path either, and was not arrogant or self-righteous like her, adding that her way would never resurrect the Sacred Hand Manor. The woman replied that she was not a doll he could control, and that he walked his own path. She declared she would resurrect the Sacred Hand Manor her own way, as So-Ah ran away, calling out his name. Wai Yonho smiled and told So-Ah that was not how he should speak to his older sister. The woman glared at Wai Yonho. Wai Yonho looked confused as she walked towards him. So-Ah's sister glared at Wai Yonho, declaring this was all his fault. A carriage traveled at night under a full moon. A masked man instructed another to order the erasure of all traces just in case, and the second masked man replied, "Yes, young master." The masked man asked the young master if he was not sad to abandon everything. The young master replied he was, but it was better than obsessing and losing everything, adding there had not been a real problem. He stated the mysterious boy was the problem, as small issues always snowballed, thinking that acting against him would draw out his trainer. The young master stated it was better to leave, as staying would have caused unnecessary attention, and the masked man replied he understood. He noted his older brother was achieving much and his younger brother doing his share, adding that wasting time was the biggest problem, then wondered who that boy truly was. The young master thought he needed to send a letter to the family. He considered warning them about a boy who could interfere with their great business. The scene shifted back to So-Ah's sister sighing under a pavilion at night. So-Ah's sister poured a drink, stating it was not good to drink alone. Won-ho appeared, asking if she was no longer angry. He then asked if he could have a drink too. A drink is poured into a small cup. So-Ah's sister sits under a pavilion at night sighing to herself. Holding the cup, she murmurs that it is not good to drink alone. Won-ho then appears, asking if she is no longer angry. He asks if he can have a drink as well. Won-ho sits beside her and she offers him a drink, stating that drinking alone is poisonous. He jokes that looking at her face is more poisonous. She suggests he lie down to avoid seeing it, and he replies that is a solution only he would offer. So Ah's sister bows and apologizes to him, which surprises him. She explains she got angry despite all he did for them and could not apologize, but he tells her not to mind it. She then looks down thoughtfully. She mentions the sacred hand manner, and So-Ah, noting that nothing is easy. She adds that she honestly does not understand his worries. Won-ho explains his master said one should achieve what they want themselves, believing it is the same for the sacred hand manner, adding that the person who thirsts should dig the well. She asks if he means she should resurrect the sacred hand manner, and he asks if that is not what she wants. She states that So-Ah is the successor but not the only one who can resurrect it. She smiles, adding that she is a woman too. Won-ho asks why it must be a man, then adds moreover. She looks surprised as he asks since when gender mattered in saving people. She then asks if she can do it though, and he replies no one can answer that. Won-ho states that So-Ah becoming a great physician and resurrecting the sacred hand manner are two distinct things. So-Ah's sister says he thinks only So-Ah has the right, which is why he projects his wishes onto him. Won-ho tells her if she wishes to make the sacred hand manner the ideal physician's hall, she envisions she has to do it herself. She looks surprised and asks what he means. She calls him a strange person, and he replies he hears that often, but she insists he is truly strange. Won-ho states someone who does not move or try and only thinks can never achieve anything. She asks if that statement is aimed at himself. He replies he is satisfied with being like this and does not really want to achieve anything, thinking he is happier than her right now. He adds he is already doing what he wants and has to do things he does not want to because of his master. So-Ah's sister comments that his master sounds like a really good person who makes him move. Won-ho and So-Ah's sister continue to sit under the pavilion at night. The full moon shines brightly in the night sky above them. Now a different building complex at night. Won-ho stands before Jang-il, asking if he can have a drink as well. Jang-il asks how he knew he was there. Won-ho asks if Jang-il has connections with the Hao sect, as there are people who have answers to these types of things. Won-ho grimaces after drinking, stating this is his second drink today, yet he still does not understand why anyone drinks this bitter liquid. Jang-il then asks why he did it. Won-ho states that Jang-il lost on purpose. Jang-il finds this interesting and asks what he means by losing on purpose. Won-ho explains that with Jang-il's skills he could have made a 6-6 at the end but deliberately did not. Won-ho tells him he should have lost and wants to know why he did it. Jang-il asks what Won-ho thinks gambling is about. He explains it is about winning, with gamblers getting together and trying to win. Jang-il adds that these days there are all kinds of interferences like plans and strategies. He insists he has never lost on purpose, and that was just the limit of his luck. Jang-il smiles, saying thanks to that no one will bring their entire household down by gambling in the Golden Flower Manor, adding that a new gambling house will open and repeat the cycle, but until then it will be genuine gambling. Won-ho points out that Jang-il lost everything because of it, including money, fame, and followers. Jang-il replies that what is important is the vessel. If his cup is empty, he can just fill it again, saying if he lost everything it is like having lost nothing. Won-ho thinks it sounds like an excuse, but Jang-il says if he thinks that way then it is that way. Won-ho thinks about Jang-il as the gambling king Bai who lives in a world where winning is everything but does not consider it everything. Jang-il asks if it is strange, and Won-ho asks what is strange. Won-ho thinks he has been with the nicest people recently but has not truly learned anything from them. He feels like they are walking down a path he could never imagine, and though he understands it with his brain, his mind has not accepted it. Won-ho tells Jang-il that when he talks to him, something feels different. Jang-il explains that is how human relationships are feeling different things in the same situation and gambling on the path chosen in life. He says that is life, and that is why gambling with Won-ho was so fun as they clink cups. An exterior view of a building is shown at night. Now the Sacred Hand Manor during the day. An attendant is panting and calling for the manor master. The attendant holds a paper and tells the manor master something, who then asks what it is. The attendant says Mr. Y left a message and just disappeared. The message on the paper reads, "I am leaving." The message continues stating if he did not leave now he would stay forever, and he is not really any help to the Sacred Hand Manor. The manor master asks what this is about and where Mr. Y is going, while the message instructs them to manage the Sacred Hand Manor well and not to be too greedy. The message concludes that So Ah will become a great physician, and he believes the manager will do well too. The postscript reminds them not to forget the money they owe him, as he will come back for it when the time comes, surprising the manor master. The manor master tells his attendant to send people after Mr. Y, and the attendant asks what he means. The attendant thinks Mr. Y could not have gone far and is highly likely somewhere nearby. In a different outdoor location, a woman tends to patients, saying she thinks that is good enough and thanking them for coming all this way. The woman physician Jin Yurin smiles and says she will leave medicine here to be applied when it hurts. Wai Yonho watches her from a distance, thinking she cannot be stopped. He approaches Jin Yurin, saying he wants to see it too if it is so effective, and she looks surprised to see him. Wai Yonho and Jin Yurin stand near a waterfall in a natural setting. He asks Jin Yurin why she is a physician who goes to patients without any pay, and if she realizes how much she has spent. He asks why she is doing all this, saying she does not need to walk such a harsh path, and asks if it is a sense of duty. Jin Yurin replies it is not a sense of duty and reminds him he said it himself. She says someone who only thinks can never achieve anything, and this is her way of resurrecting the Sacred Hand Manor. Wai Yonho smiles at her words. He tells her to take something, saying it does not seem important since she keeps selling it, but he brought it just in case. Jin Yurin looks at the items and recognizes them, asking if he also brought these things. Wai Yonho tells her not to sell them again and asks if she can promise that. Jin Yurin smiles and promises. Wai Yonho tells her he is leaving now, and she asks where to. He explains he cannot stay too long because of his master's death wish, and they will meet again if it is meant to be, but Jin Yurin tries to stop him. Jin Yurin offers him a small gift, a blue ribbon for his ponytail, saying his hair always gets loose. She ties the ribbon around his ponytail. Wai Yonho thanks her. Jin Yurin waves goodbye and thanks him for everything as he walks away. Wai Yonho thinks she has decided to gamble on this difficult path. He thinks So Ah walks his own path, Yurin walks her own, and he will walk his own path too as he continues walking. Wai Yonho complains his legs hurt and he does not want to walk. He then sees an old man with a horse-drawn cart in the distance. Wai Yonho collapses onto the ground as the cart stops. He rolls around on the ground. The old man with the cart looks down at him. Wai Yonho begs the old man to give him a ride. Wai Yonho lay on the ground as Baek Muhan's cart approached. He collapsed fully as the cart came to a stop beside him. Wai Yonho then rolled around on the ground. Baek Muhan looked down at him, asking what he wanted. Wai Yonho begged Baek Muhan to give him a ride. Baek Muhan questioned if he truly wanted a ride, and Wai Yonho confirmed he only needed to go in the same direction, which Baek Muhan found strange but agreed to. Wai Yonho thanked him and quickly climbed into the cart. He lay down, finding this automatic transportation pleasant. Later that night, Wai Yonho relaxed in the cart while Baek Muhan continued driving. Baek Muhan told the sleeping Wai Yonho to get up. Wai Yonho woke and Baek Muhan stated they should part ways there. Wai Yonho realized he had slept for too long. He asked if a town was nearby, adding he could sleep in a tree or dig a hole. Wai Yonho thanked Baek Muhan for the ride. Baek Muhan told him to take care and drove away as Wai Yonho thanked him again. Wai Yonho stood alone in the moonlight as the cart moved into the distance. Baek Muhan continued driving his cart away. He looked back glowing with energy and thought Wai Yonho was an interesting child. He then called out for Scarlet Moon. A man with an eye patch appeared, responding, "Yes, sir." Baek Muhan's hand glowed with power. He stated that the child had noticed his presence. Scarlet Moon asked if the child had noticed him. Baek Muhan ordered Scarlet Moon to investigate the child, and he agreed. Baek Muhan told Scarlet Moon to find out who that child was, while Wai Yonho decided to sleep in a tree for the night. Meanwhile, a woman ran quickly through the forest. She thought she was at her limit with stamina and internal energy, unable to run anymore. She realized she had to hide but did not know where. She then spotted a large tree. She jumped up and hid within the tree. She calmed down, believing she could hide by controlling her breathing. She then felt something was off, as if someone else was there. She looked around warily. She saw Wai Yonho hanging upside down in the tree and screamed. Wai Yonho groaned and the woman quickly covered his mouth. She told him to shush. She explained she was being chased and if caught he would also be in danger, asking him to be quiet. A man passed below them, saying he could not find any traces. Another man ordered his subordinates to find her and they responded, "Yes, sir." The woman looked at Wai Yonho with a worried expression. Wai Yonho struggled to breathe as the woman asked if the pursuers were all gone. Wai Yonho told her to move. The woman remarked he was heavy and moved off him. Wai Yonho jumped up, complaining he had been sleeping well. The woman apologized to him. She told him it was dangerous to stay there and he should leave as the pursuers would not spare him even if he was not involved. She told him to follow her, stating she would take responsibility and help him escape since it was her fault. The two of them walked together through the forest. The woman introduced herself as Ximen Daein from the Ximen clan. Wai Yonho then introduced himself. Ximen Daein stated she was on a mission from the Orthodox Murim Alliance, but Wai Yonho said he thought she was a thief because she was on the run. She explained she had no way to prove it now, but he would believe her if he encountered her pursuers. Wai Yonho asked who they were. She told him to lower his voice, but he insisted on knowing who those people were first. She revealed they were from the demonic cult. Wai Yonho repeated demonic cult and asked if they were gone. She confirmed those were their remaining members, making him conclude this was bad. Ximen Daein exclaimed that she had already told him that. Wai Yonho clarified that was not what he meant. He called out for someone to come out, saying he knew who they were now, which surprised Ximen Daein. A shadowy figure with glowing eyes asked how he knew. The figure asked how Wai Yonho knew they were there. Ximen Daein exclaimed that it was them, the pursuers. The leader of the pursuers asked Wai Yonho if he was from the Orthodox Murim Alliance. Wai Yonho denied any connection to them and said he did not want to get involved. The leader smiled menacingly. He stated he would believe Wai Yonho and told him he could talk to King Yama, drawing his glowing sword. Ximen Daein shouted for them to wait. She yelled that Wai Yonho knew nothing and to let him go. She offered to tell them everything she knew if they released him. The leader considered it a not bad offer. Wai Yonho interrupted, saying there was a problem because he knew they were from the demonic cult, and Ximen Daein asked why he would say that. The demonic cult members looked surprised, asking if he was insane. Wai Yonho smiled, stating that since he knew they were from the demonic cult, he did not intend to simply leave. He explained his father always told him to fight demonic cult members if he ever saw them. Ximen Daein was shocked, saying the demonic cult was no mere bandit group, and asked who his father was. Wai Yonho declared his father was Wai Jianghan of Guangdong's Wai clan. The demonic cult members were shocked, exclaiming Wai Jianghan of Guangdong's Wai clan. The leader glared, saying he was the righteous chivalrous swordsman's son. The leader shouted for Wai Yonho to blame his father for his death and attacked him with a glowing sword. Ximen Daein cried out that he was in danger. Wai Yonho blocked the demonic cult leader's glowing sword with his own. The demonic cult leader looked shocked. The leader was pushed back by Wai Yonho's block. Ximen Daein watched in surprise. Wai Yonho's bandages unraveled as he said he did not call himself the best son there was. He drew his sword, stating that if his father was so insistent, then he should listen to him. Wai Yonho attacked the demonic cult members with his glowing sword. He warned them to be prepared, claiming his sword is sharper than his father's. Under a full moon, two figures stood on a cliff observing the forest below. One of them, an old man, intently watched a group of people moving through the trees. The old man then asked if the person was Wai Yonho, and his companion Blue Moon confirmed he was the righteous chivalrous swordsman's second son. The old man pondered why such a conspicuous child had no news circulating about him in Jianghu. Blue Moon explained that Wai Yonho had been missing for some time and was connected to the sex demon. The old man remarked that something significant must have occurred for Wai Yonho to possess such strength at his young age. As he watched the scene below, the old man's eye began to glow red with intensity. Down in the forest, Wai Yonho's sword glowed with a bright blue energy. A nearby female character looked shocked, questioning what was happening. She mentally called Wai Yonho an idiot as he attacked the demonic cult members with his glowing sword. Wai Yonho delivered a powerful punch directly to a demonic cult member's face. He then blocked another cult member's sword attack using his glowing blade. Wai Yonho continued to engage two demonic cult members in close combat. He landed another strong punch on one of the cult members. Wai Yonho kicked one cult member away, immediately moving to strike another. Suddenly, a cult member was struck by a burst of purple energy and fell to the ground. A masked cult member looked around in confusion, wondering where Wai Yonho had gone. Wai Yonho then appeared directly above the masked cult member. He stomped down forcefully onto the masked cult member's head. Two more demonic cult members were sent flying through the air from Wai Yonho's attack. Wai Yonho continued his assault, attacking demonic cult members with his glowing sword. He skillfully deflected multiple attacks launched by the cult members. Wai Yonho kicked one cult member while simultaneously blocking another with his sword. He landed amidst several already defeated cult members. Wai Yonho stood ready, his glowing swords poised. Nearby, a demonic cult member's arm was severely cut and bleeding profusely. The injured cult member screamed out in pain. Wai Yonho looked down as the cult member began regenerating, surrounded by red energy. The cult member yelled, urging himself to get up as the red energy intensified around him. He screamed again as the red energy continued to intensify. Soon, other defeated demonic cult members also began to rise, similarly surrounded by red energy. Wai Yonho smiled, asking if they were truly getting up even after their tendons had been cut. The cult member retorted that Wai Yonho's father had not told him everything about the demonic cult. Wai Yonho replied calmly that it was fine, and he would simply cut off the cult member's leg instead. As the cult members attacked, Wai Yonho jumped into the air. In Jianghu, one must be cold and show no unnecessary mercy in real battles. Wai Yonho engaged two cult members now glowing with pink energy. He slashed at one cult member with his glowing blue sword. Wai Yonho continued his intense fight against the cult members. A cult member yelled die, attacking Wai Yonho with a powerful pink energy blast. Wai Yonho stood amidst the powerful pink energy blast, remarking that not even a turtle would get hit by this. He then looked at the female character and casually said, "Oh well." Why Yonho's sword glowed blue as he decided against directly blocking the attack. Instead, he deflected the attack with a spinning blue energy shield. Why Yonho advised them not to go against the flow as he continued to deflect. The demonic cult members looked utterly surprised and shocked by his technique. Why Yonho spun enveloped in blue energy, stating with the touch of the wave, "The calamity of the sword shall return to your hand," as the energy exploded outwards. A massive blue explosion then erupted, engulfing a large section of the forest. From the cliff, the old man watched the powerful explosion unfold. Why Yonho stood within a large crater surrounded by the defeated cult members. One cult member coughed, wondering if he was the sole survivor. The cult member looked shocked as he attempted to bite down on something. Why Yonho asked the female character if he should capture the cult member alive, and she responded that it would be nice. The cult member was attempting to swallow a poison pill hidden in his mouth. Why Yonho questioned how he dared to try and kill himself. He punched the cult member in the face, declaring it was not allowed. A small green poison pill then fell to the ground. Why Yonho held the poison pill, remarking that his father's stupid little stories were finally proving useful. The female character looked surprised by his comment. Why Yonho stood with the female character over the defeated cult member, who was revealed to be a martial master. Elsewhere, a man with spiky hair asked if he had left. A plump man in fine clothes questioned if he was a beggar from the beggar sect, noting the spiky-haired man did not look rich either. The spiky-haired man laughed nervously in response. The plump man then asked who they were and what brought them there. Why Sanho introduced himself as Yonho's older brother, stating he was searching for family. The plump man exclaimed in surprise that Why Sanho was indeed his brother. The plump man then rushed off to bring the manor master. The spiky-haired man questioned why the manor master was needed, wondering if Why Sanho's brother had stirred up trouble. Suddenly, a horse-drawn carriage approached. The spiky-haired man recognized it as belonging to the Hao sect from the Kaifeng branch. Why Sanho confirmed the coach was from the Hao sect, asking if he could tell simply from the carriage. The spiky-haired man assumed they were being chased and called the woman a viper. The carriage stopped near Why Sanho and the spiky-haired man. A foot then stepped out of the carriage. An older man with a beard fully exited the carriage. Why Sanho looked surprised and called out father. Why Jianghin and Han Sang-ah were revealed to be inside. Why Sanho looks surprised and calls out to his father. Another group arrives, stating they are also looking for Yonho, and noting why Jianghin's group was one step ahead. Why Jianghin immediately asks for Yonho, but Sanho replies that he left a while ago. Why Jianghin is shocked to hear of Yonho's departure. Han Sang-ah scolds him for not hurrying, and he stutters a defense. As they speak, a young boy and an older man approach, with the boy greeting them as Grandmaster Why Yonho's family. The boy introduces himself as Jin So-ah, master of the Sacred Hand Manor, offering to serve them due to their great debt to Grandmaster Why Yonho. Why Sanho is surprised by the boy's title as Manor Master and questions the designation Grandmaster Why Yonho. Jin So-ah invites them for a meal, but Why Jianghin declines, saying they cannot impose. Jin So-ah insists that Grandmaster Why's family is like their own and asks them not to embarrass him. Why Jianghin agrees to enter if they can explain what Yonho did there. Inside, a lavish feast is laid out on a table, exciting Why Jianghin. Han Sang-ah sighs, stating she does not want to eat and worries about Yonho, but Why Sanho tells her not to worry. Meanwhile, the other group discusses that the beggar sect and Hao sect received requests and will quickly find Yonho due to their competition. Why Sanho tells his mother to eat first to stay healthy for the search. Han Sang-ah agrees, realizing she has not been taking care of herself. Jin So-ah angrily asks why no one informed him of Han Sang-ah's poor health and calls for the manager. A manager appears, asking if he was called, and Jin So-ah tells him Grandmaster Why's mother is not feeling well. The manager offers to prepare a physician right away, but Jin So-ah instructs him not to prepare just anyone. He instructs the manager to get the best physician they know. Why Jianghin wonders what Jin So-ah and the manager are discussing. Suddenly, a commotion begins outside the manor. Why Sanho and Why Jianghin look up in shock. A group of shadowy figures stands outside the manor entrance. Nok Mokbung appears, stating he has been waiting for someone to leave and asking if they thought they would escape. Jin So-ah looks distressed, questioning who the man is and how he got there. Nok Mokbung reveals they borrowed people from other forces, as several masked figures are shown. He declares they will kill everyone and take over Hubei today. Nok Mokbung points towards the manor surrounded by his masked subordinates. Jin So-ah and the manager look worried. Why Jianghin tells Sanho they need to work for the food they received. Why Sanho descends the steps towards Jin So-ah and the manager. He draws his sword, declaring he will quickly take care of the intruders. Nok Mokbung shouts to kill them all. Several masked figures leap down to attack Why Sanho. Why Sanho's hand glows with blue energy as he prepares his sword. The masked figures rush forward to attack. Why Jianghin comments that a crow flying high without knowing its place. Why Sanho's eye glows blue as Why Jianghin finishes his thought, saying it will be shredded by a dragon's claws. Why Sanho unleashes a powerful sword attack with a burst of blue energy. He performs a powerful sword strike. The attack, identified as Soaring Dragon, manifests as a blue dragon image. Why Sanho stands with his glowing sword. All the masked figures lie defeated and bleeding on the ground. Jinso Ah, the manager, and Wei Jianghin look on in surprise and admiration. Nok Mokpung is terrified, recognizing the attack as the demon-slaying sword. Wei Sanho grabs Nok Mokpung by the collar, ordering him to repair the broken gate and lead them to the assassin's origin, to which he quickly agrees. Now the Orthodox Murim Alliance Xinjiang branch as two figures enter. Gong Sanhyung of the Xinjiang branch asks what brings them there. Ximen Daiyin from the secret pavilion enters carrying a tied-up man over her shoulder. She drops the man, stating she captured a demonic martial artist, which Gong Sanhyung questions. Ximen Daiyin explains she needs help taking him to the main branch. Gong Sanhyung replies that it is not a good time as they lack people because everyone is searching for a secret martial text. Ximen Daiyin asks if all members of the Venerate Heaven Orthodox Murim Alliance went to look for it. Gong Sanhyung looks uncomfortable. He reveals the text belongs to the Sword Emperor, prompting Ximen Daiyin to ask who that is. The captured demonic martial artist also asks who the Sword Emperor is, surprising Ximen Daiyin. He states he knows Zhang Sanfeng and the Great Master, but not the Sword Emperor. Ximen Daiyin explains that Zhang Sanfeng and the Great Master founded the Shaolin Temple and Wudang sect with their disciples, spreading their stories. She concludes that a person's life is short but can be remembered by creating a force, which the Sword Emperor did not do. The demonic martial artist asks why the Sword Emperor did not create a force, and Ximen Daiyin explains his personality was so terrible he cut off his family. The demonic martial artist thinks the description sounds familiar. A carriage wheel rattles along a dusty road. Wei Yonho sits inside the rattling carriage, lamenting his life. Ximen Daiyin tells Wei Yonho she needs to go to the Orthodox Murim Alliance in Luoyang. He asks why she is following him, and she replies she has no destination, so Luoyang is fine. Ximen Daiyin asks if he is interested in the Sword Emperor's secret texts, but he replies his master said those things are useless and he is preoccupied. Ximen Daiyin realizes he does not want to go back up a mountain, and as the sun sets they decide to set up camp. Later, at a campfire, Ximen Daiyin asks Wei Yonho if he is from the Guangdong's Wei clan, and his relation to Wei Sanho, to which he replies Sanho is his older brother. Ximen Daiyin smiles, acknowledging he is Sanho's brother. Wei Yonho asks if she knows Sanho, and she says they are friends, making him realize she is older than him. Ximen Daiyin complains that she drove the carriage all day and her back hurts from the rough road. Wei Yonho tells her to rest, and Ximen Daiyin wonders if his attitude changed because she is his brother's friend. Wei Yonho tells her he will not talk to her anymore and to go to sleep early. Ximen Daiyin looks annoyed and calls him an asshole. She thinks that Wei Sanho was much more of a gentleman. Ximen Daiyin sits by the campfire when someone approaches. Three hooded figures appear, with one introducing himself as being lost in the mountains and asking her not to be wary. The hooded figure asks if they could stay with her tonight, and Ximen Daiyin looks at them. Another hooded figure suggests they should reveal their identity first, to which the first agrees. The first hooded figure introduces himself as JWA Yang of the Blessing Sect, stating they are chasing demonic martial artists. Ximen Daiyin recognizes JWA Yang as a Wudang affiliate and asks if Elder Hyung is okay. JWA Yang smiles, saying they do not have anyone with that last name in their sect. Ximen Daiyin realizes they are truly from the Blessing Sect, apologizes, and then invites them to the campfire. JWA Yang asks why she is camping out and if she is also chasing demonic martial artists. She replies it just got late while traveling, and he comments on the mountains being dangerous at night. Ximen Daiyin asks if he said they were chasing demonic martial artists. JWA Yang reveals a sex demon is on the loose. Ximen Daiyin stands up in shock. JWA Yang reveals it is the infamous Seo Ju-ak. A sudden blue burst of energy appears behind JWA Yang, startling him. The three hooded figures draw their swords. Wei Yonho asks who it is. Wei Yonho and the demonic martial artist are shown with a dead tree and bodies in the background, and Wei Yonho asks Seo Ju-ak. A close-up shows a red flower-like mark on a body. Wei Yonho screams Seo Ju-ak's name in rage as he is engulfed in red and orange flames. Wei Yonho, engulfed in red and orange flames, clenched his fists in a furious rage. A scarred hand was shown, and a thought echoed that 5 years had passed, but that person was not forgotten. A memory surfaced of Baek Muhan and a younger Wei Yonho, both with purple energy, with the thought if it were not for him. The younger Wei Yonho was seen fighting fiercely with a sword and purple energy. He then screamed out Muum, tears streaming down his face. Back in the present, Wei Yonho demanded to know the person's whereabouts. Jang Il replied that he was unsure of the exact location, but knew the person was headed toward Liu and was not far. Wei Yonho then told the group to proceed, turning and pointing forward. A female companion asked if he could not travel at night due to danger, to which he questioned dangerous. He declared himself more dangerous, clenching his fists with a wide, enraged smile. Meanwhile, Seo Ju-ak huffed, wondering when everything went wrong, and cursed. He thought the beginning was fine until people came for him during his seclusion. He recalled that in exchange for his flower-indulging palm, they had given him a treasure to live as he once did. He had considered it a good deal, which was pleasant until he got caught. He remembered the Sword Emperor's martial text was found drawing many martial artists. He cursed those bastards, thinking that if he learned the Yang supplement from Yin in this book, he would become a martial master. He smiled sinisterly, believing he would become a martial master in just a few years. A floating leg appeared, accompanied by the thought, life sure is funny. Seo-ju-ak looked up with a questioning expression. A new female character in a white and pink outfit stood holding a sword amidst falling petals. Lee Sealhwa introduced herself as a second-class disciple of Mount Hua, stating he should know who was going to kill him. Seo-ju-ak asked if she was serious about killing him, questioning what he had done wrong. Lee Sealhwa told him to be silent, asserting he deserved to die many times and she would punish him herself. Seo-ju-ak smiled, thinking people truly underestimated him. Lee Sealhwa then attacked with her sword, employing the Plum Blossom Path. Seo-ju-ak countered with green and pink energy, stating she had not fully blossomed her flower and a half plum blossom was nothing. His attack was revealed to be the Flower Indulging Palm. Lee Sealhwa was struck by his Flower Indulging Palm. She fell to the ground. She coughed while kneeling on the ground. Lee Sealhwa coughed blood, thinking her insides felt twisted. Seo-ju-ak walked towards her, saying she seemed to have underestimated the world's cruelty. He told her that tonight he would help her become a woman. Lee Sealhwa tried to move but could not, as his hand rested on her chest. He held her chin and she called out, "Master." A voice declared, "I found you," and Seo-ju-ak looked surprised. He quickly turned around. Wai Yonho was shown, smiling widely. Seo-ju-ak looked at him, wondering if he was insane. Wai Yonho asked if he was the flower-indulging scholar Seo-ju-ak. Seo-ju-ak identified him as one of those pursuing him, confirmed his own identity, and asked what of it. Wai Yonho laughed loudly. He declared he would beat Seo-ju-ak up and rushed forward. Seo-ju-ak was shocked by Wai Yonho's shifting form positions, swapping as he instantly appeared behind him. His eyes showed intense surprise. Seo-ju-ak turned and attacked Wai Yonho with a flower-indulging palm, telling him to die. Wai Yonho blocked the attack with a glowing blue energy. Lee Sealhwa watched distressed, thinking another innocent person would die at this criminal's hands. Wai Yonho pushed back Seo-ju-ak's attack with the blue energy. He then punched Seo-ju-ak directly in the face. The punch distorted Seo-ju-ak's face. Seo-ju-ak cried out as Wai Yonho continued punching him. Wai Yonho repeatedly punched him, sending him flying upwards. Seo-ju-ak fell to the ground as Lee Sealhwa watched. He groaned in pain on the ground. Wai Yonho told him not to fall yet, saying that was not enough. Wai Yonho was engulfed in flames, thinking, "Because of you." He yelled, "Because of you, I," as he lunged forward, while Seo-ju-ak tried to say he did not even know him. Wai Yonho punched him again, telling him to shut up. He punched Seo-ju-ak upwards into the air. Wai Yonho looked up with a determined expression. He declared this was not enough and it could not end like this, looking around for something else. He found 2 rocks on the ground. Wai Yonho held the rocks, his eyes glowing red, telling Seo-ju-ak he had felt a truth for 5 years that must now be experienced. Seo-ju-ak looked at him with a pained expression. Wai Yonho smiled maniacally, holding the rocks, and stated that rocks hurt more than fists. Wai Yonho's female companion and other men ran towards him. The female companion looked shocked. Wai Yonho jumped and stomped on Seo-ju-ak, repeatedly exclaiming, "What the hell?" The female companion grabbed him, telling him to stop because Seo-ju-ak would die, but Wai Yonho yelled, "Die, die." His face was contorted with rage as he thought about the suffering Seo-ju-ak had caused him. The female companion asked if this was the flower-indulging scholar, and Wai Yonho confirmed it. Seo-ju-ak's face was horribly disfigured as he groaned for help. The female companion suggested taking him to the Orthodox Murim Alliance because he would die otherwise, and Wai Yonho agreed. Later, the group gathered around a campfire with Seo-ju-ak lying injured, and someone commented on Wai Yonho's amazing feat. Lee Sealhwa coughed up blood as the female companion looked at her with concern. The female companion asked Lee Sealhwa if she was alright, noting she did not look well, and Lee Sealhwa responded hesitantly. Wai Yonho looked at Lee Sealhwa. He told her to give him her wrist, but she insisted she was fine. Wai Yonho insisted she was not fine and told her to stay still, explaining it might become a permanent problem if not stabilized immediately. His female companion wondered if he was capable of medical arts, and Wai Yonho said he was not a professional in this field. Lee Sealhwa asked what was not important after Wai Yonho dismissed the severity of her injury. Wai Yonho explained she could lose her martial arts prowess but would live as an ordinary civilian. Lee Sealhwa was shocked, asking if she could truly lose her martial arts and if it could not be treated. Wai Yonho explained he was not a physician, so he could not use needles and must instead place his hand on her danchin. Lee Sealhwa blushed and asked about his hand on her danchin. Wai Yonho told her it was her choice. Lee Sealhwa thought she had never met him, but it was better than never wielding a sword again. Lee Sealhwa then asked for the treatment, showing her danchin. Lee Sealhwa coughs up blood, looking distressed. Wai Yonho states they lack time and he will begin treatment immediately. He places his glowing hand on her danchin where a flower-like mark is visible. Lee Sealhwa groans in pain, sweating profusely. Wai Yonho glows with blue energy, continuing the intense treatment. Lee Sealhwa screams out in agony. Wai Yonho instructs her not to speak to avoid losing energy. Lee Sealhwa wonders about the powerful energy she feels within her. Wai Yonho removes his hand, declaring the treatment complete. She looks utterly exhausted with sweat dripping down her face. Wai Yonho assures her there will be no issues if she cares for it well. Lee Sealhwa responds with an embarrassed okay. The next morning, a bright sunrise illuminates a mountain landscape. Lee Xiaohua wakes up feeling sore while the woman next to her also stirs and Wai Yonho is seen tied to a roof. The woman asks if her sleep was uncomfortable and Lee Xiaohua replies it was comfortable. The woman then asks about Lee Xiaohua's body, reminding her of her recent injury. She tells Lee Xiaohua she is too dramatic and has no right to be her disciple. Wai Yonho appears asking if they agree with that statement. Lee Xiaohua and the woman greet him as their master. The woman thinks that Wai Yonho is the master of a second-class disciple from Manhua. The woman greets a man as senior, identifying herself as Ximen Daeyin of the Ximen clan, while the man is identified as Plum Blossom Sword Ghost Gong Mujin. Gong Mujin asks Ximen Daeyin her relation to Ximen Chinsei, and she replies he is her father. He then asks if she saved his lacking disciple. Ximen Daeyin denies it, asking what happened as Wai Yonho remains tied on the roof. Elsewhere, a man shouts that he found Wai Yonho introducing himself as Dio of the Hao sect. Another man tells Dio not to be so rash. Dio pouts, confirming he indeed found Yonho. Wai Jianghan and Han Sang-ah rush forward asking if he found Yonho. Someone reports that a man similar to Wai Yonho was seen in Xinjiang. Wai Jianghan declares they should immediately go to Xinjiang. A young boy asks what the breaking sound was as Wai Jianghan greets Manor Master Jin. Wai Jianghan tells the boy they found traces of Yonho, and the boy asks where Grandmaster Wai is. Han Sang-ah scolds the boy for his disrespect in front of their guests. Wai Jianghan and Han Sang-ah both look surprised. A young woman bows, introducing herself as Jin Yuren, Nature's Hand Manor's oldest daughter, greeting her savior's family. Wai Jianghan greets young lady Jin, asking about the savior comment. Jin Yuren explains that young master Wai Yonho once saved her and his grace is profound. Wai Jianghan and Han Sang-ah look delighted by this news. Han Sang-ah asks what brings young lady Jin here, and she replies she came to help with their treatment and repay his grace. Han Sang-ah asks Jin Yuren's age and if she is looking for a spouse, suggesting Wai Yonho. Wai Jianghan and the young boy look scared by her suggestion. Meanwhile, Gong Mujin ponders the situation. He considers that they easily defeated an opponent Lee Xiaohua could not even hit. Seeing the tied-up man, he believes the story of the rescue. Gong Mujin thinks about the single hit that took the opponent down. He asks Lee Xiaohua if she let her guard down, and she replies not at all. Gong Mujin deduces the opponent must have been very strong and asks about her body's condition. He states that a strong opponent is no excuse, and he cannot understand her needing help. Gong Mujin tells Lee Xiaohua he cannot let his disciple face such a fate and orders her to return to Manhua. He pauses, a new thought crossing his mind. Gong Mujin decides to see the savior who saved his cute disciple. He stands by the wagon and asks Wai Yonho if he is awake. Wai Yonho does not respond from inside. Gong Mujin repeats the question, tapping on the wagon. Wai Yonho stirs inside the wagon. Wai Yonho hangs upside down from the wagon door, asking what he is doing so early. Gong Mujin looks at Wai Yonho's feet still hanging. He thinks it is fair to be annoyed, but he should be patient with his disciple's savior. Gong Mujin tells Wai Yonho he heard he saved his disciple, and Wai Yonho asks if he means him. Gong Mujin clarifies his disciple is Lee Xiaohua and he came to thank him. Wai Yonho opens the wagon door fully and agrees. Gong Mujin smiles menacingly and says, "Excuse me." He radiates energy and asks Wai Yonho to come out so he can give his thanks properly. Lee Xiaohua and Ximen Daeyin are startled by the sudden display of power. Wai Yonho emerges from the wagon complaining he is sleepy and asks why they cannot just say thanks and leave. Gong Mujin thanks him for saving his disciple and asks his identity. Wai Yonho ties his hair up and states that even if he tells him, Gong Mujin would not know him. Gong Mujin insists his knowledge is not limited, but Wai Yonho repeats he still would not know. Gong Mujin smiles and suggests exchanging a few blows to see Wai Yonho's martial arts. Lee Xiaohua protests to her master that this is not right. Gong Mujin glares at her and asks how dare she tell him what is not right. Lee Xiaohua apologizes, but insists a duel with no justification is not right. Gong Mujin states he bears Manhua on his back and asks what is more important between grace and honor. Wai Yonho thinks that if Gong Mujin cannot reveal his name, his master is probably a nobody. Gong Mujin angrily states that being looked down on by a loser is the same as Manhua being looked down on. Lee Xiaohua worries that her master does not care about other circumstances, and this is trouble for young Master Wai. Ximen Daeyin tells Lee Xiaohua not to worry. She explains that even if Gong Mujin wants to fight, Master Wai cannot be coerced in a situation where grace is owed. Ximen Daeyin says not to worry about Master Wai because her master told her someone who hates to walk on 2 feet will never accept such a challenge. She recalls her master telling her to do everything as she pleases. Ximen Daeyin's master's words continue, stating that to those. He said to those who challenge his and her swordsmanship. He instructed her to ensure. Wai Yonho is shown with a glowing sword and a dragon spirit as the master's words conclude to prove its dignity to them. Wai Yonho states this is the last thing the challenger can do for him. A man in a pink robe expresses vigor, asking if he is the one challenging Wai Yonho. Wai Yonho accepts the challenge, standing ready with his sword. The man in pink draws his sword, commenting on challenging someone at this age. He challenges Wai Yonho and asks his name. Wai Yonho identifies himself from the Guangdong's Wai clan. The man recognizes the clan, asking if Wai Yonho is the righteous chivalrous swordsman's son. He suggests defeating the son first might bring the father, then asks if Wai Yonho is ready. Wai Yonho clarifies he does not use his clan's sword techniques, and his father would not come if he were defeated. Wai Yonho adds there is one more thing, prompting the challenger to continue. Holding his glowing sword, Wai Yonho states there are countless swords under heaven. He raises his sword high, declaring only the radiant sword is valid. Wai Yonho warns the challenger to be careful because his sword is not lazy even if he is. The challenger charges forward with his glowing sword, requesting a lesson from Wai Yonho. Wai Yonho parries the attack with his glowing sword, creating a bright impact. The challenger attacks with multiple glowing sword images, which Wai Yonho identifies as form shifting. Wai Yonho acknowledges that the challenger seems pretty strong. He blocks another of the challenger's glowing sword attacks. Wai Yonho ponders how strong his master must be if this fight is still easy for him. He repels the challenger with a blue energy blast from his sword. The challenger expresses understanding of Wai Yonho's arrogance, noting his rare skill for his age. Wai Yonho tells the challenger he is pretty good, which the challenger repeats in disbelief. The challenger powers up with pink energy, declaring he will show Wai Yonho the world is bigger than he knows. Wai Yonho looks up at the powerful display. The challenger leaps into the air surrounded by pink energy and falling petals. He creates multiple swirling pink energy formations around himself. Two women watch in shock. The challenger glares intensely, surrounded by pink petals. He unleashes the 24 forms plum blossom sword technique. Wai Yonho stands ready as the plum blossom spotting attack surrounds him with swirling pink energy and swords. Wai Yonho defends himself with a blue energy barrier as the attacks hit. He looks calm and determined, surrounded by a blue aura. Wai Yonho counters the multiple sword attacks with a powerful blue sword blast. The challenger is pushed back by Wai Yonho's attack. He is enveloped in blue energy and glowing petals. The challenger is thrown backward through a flurry of blue and pink energy and petals. He expresses disbelief and a look of shock. Still in mid-air, the challenger declares he must stop this. He unleashes the Plum Blossom Radiance release, clashing pink and blue energy. The two powerful sword energies collide. Pink petals and black debris scatter as the clash concludes. The challenger kneels on one knee, surrounded by scattered pink petals and debris. He looks up in shock and surprise. The challenger touches his chest, surprised to find himself alive. Two women react with alarm, one calling out "Master." The challenger looks sideways, still in disbelief. Wai Yonho stands over the kneeling challenger, holding his sword. Now the Venerate Heaven Orthodox Murim Alliance General Strategist Hall, where two men discuss the Sword Emperor's martial texts. Divine Strategist Jo Hyun, an old man with white hair and a long beard, ponders the situation. He and another man discuss the sudden discovery of the Sword Emperor's grave and the Poison King's secret storage, wondering if it is a coincidence. Jo Hyun expresses concern that this might all be someone's scheme. His thoughtful expression is visible. He asks for information on the Beggar Sect and how sect learning they are gathering in Xinjiang too. They deduce that the Sword Emperor's name was used to create an intelligence gap in other regions. Yeagle Chinji, a man with a mustache, suggests they just tell everyone about it. Jo Hyun replies that greedy people will only believe what they like, and the real problem is the areas without intelligence agents. Jo Hyun hopes it is not anything big and instructs his subordinate to keep a keen watch, which the subordinate confirms. The scene returns to Wai Yonho, now on a moving cart, as the challenger addresses him. Wai Yonho lies on the cart, and the challenger suggests he come out to feel the fresh air. The challenger invites Wai Yonho to consider the true martial path while enjoying the fresh air. He lectures Wai Yonho about wasting time sleeping and suggests they fight once more. Wai Yonho lies on the cart, annoyed that the challenger will not leave and his father knows him. The challenger places a hand on Wai Yonho's head, asking him to listen to his request. The challenger stands beside the cart with the two women as Wai Yonho remains inside. A group of 5 martial artists stand in the forest. A woman with short dark hair, Ximen Daein, asks what brings the Venerate Heaven Orthodox Murim Alliance's Hidden Dragon Martial Hall here. Sang Guanhong from the Hidden Dragon Martial Hall greets Ximen Daein. Ximen Daein introduces herself from the secret pavilion and recognizes Sang Guanhong as the Sword Dragon, a title he calls false. She questions why he is outside, as he should be banned from leaving, and warns she will assume he escaped if he does not answer. Sang Guanhong explains they did not escape, but are on their way to help Mount Na region as sect reinforcements were too slow. Ximen Daein deduces that if he is skilled enough to be a reinforcement, he must be part of the 3 dragons, 2 phoenixes. She asks if his hall master is doing well, and he replies that the master is great and enjoys torturing trainees, which makes her laugh. Sang Guanhong feels the 3 dragons, 2 phoenixes are compared to those before them and told to try harder. Ximen Daein advises him not to take the words too harshly, as she was also compared to former generations. She suggests blaming the demon-slaying sword, whose skills are far too advanced for the rest of them. Sang Guanhong agrees that the demon-slaying sword is the best the Hidden Dragon Martial Hall has had. He states he knows he is not as good as him now, but he will definitely surpass him. Ximen Daein praises his mindset and wishes him luck. Wai Yonho scoffs from the cart. Ximen Daein reacts with a surprised expression. Sang Guanhong looks angry and wonders if Wai Yonho just scoffed at him. Ximen Daein asks if someone else is inside the carriage. She then urgently asks Sang Guanhong if his grandfather is doing alright. Sang Guanhong asks if she knows his grandfather, and she confirms having met him, noting his connections. He replies that his grandfather is rarely home, causing Ximen Daein to sigh in relief. She then comments that this is an interesting group of kids. A graphic introduces the hidden dragon Martial Hall's 3 dragons and 2 phoenixes. Ximen Daein thinks they have surpassed her in martial prowess, wondering if it is strange to see them as cute. She concludes this feeling is probably because of the person inside the carriage. Inside the carriage, Wai Yonho is seen sleeping soundly. A wider view shows the group traveling with a thought-expressing feeling full just looking at the Jianghu pillars. The group is now seated at a meal where someone remarks that the rumors exaggerate their abilities. Sang Guanhong asks if it is alright not to wake his companion for the meal. Ximen Daein tells him to leave Wai Yonho alone, assuring that he will crawl out when hungry. Sang Guanhong wonders if Wai Yonho is a martial master with a terrible personality. Jiang Marion stands up, announcing she has something to say. She looks directly ahead, addressing the group. Pio Jongchun asks if she is the martial phoenix, then tells her to continue. Jiang Marion says she heard Mount Hua's sword is unrivaled and asks for a chance to witness it. Pio Jongchun praises her spirit, but advises pushing off the duel as Han Xianghai's internal wounds have not recovered. Jiang Marion clarifies she was not talking about Miss Xiaohua. She states that Miss Xiaohua is not the only one present who knows the Mount Hua sword. Pio Jongchun looks surprised by her words. The other hidden dragon Martial Hall members react with shock and anger at her words. Pio Jongchun then asks Jiang Marion if she wants to duel him instead. Jiang Marion clarifies she is asking for a teaching, not a duel, while Sang Guanhong tries to stop her. Pio Jongchun laughs, acknowledging her greed for martial arts and passion, then asks if she is prepared to die. Jiang Marion replies that there is no better way for a martial artist to fall than while trying to better their skills. Pio Jongchun then leads her to a more open space to show her the Mount Hua sword. He warns her to be careful, stating he will not go easy on her. Jiang Marion draws her sword, stating that her own sword is sharp too. Han Xianghai asks Ximen Daein if they should stop them, but Ximen Daein replies that Pio Jongchun does not listen to others. Ximen Daein thinks Pio Jongchun is pretending to be good in front of Mr. Y, but his personality has not changed, so to stop the duel it would be better to. Sang Guanhong also asks Ximen Daein if they should stop them, but she apologizes, saying Jiang Marion is too crazy about martial arts to be stopped. Pio Jongchun tells Jiang Marion to start offering her 3 moves. Jiang Marion repeats the word 3 in response. She then performs 3 swift sword slashes in quick succession. Pio Jongchun looks confused and asks what she is doing. Jiang Marion replies that she used up all 3 moves since he said he would not go easy on her. Pio Jongchun laughs, angrily asking if she is underestimating him, and states he was going to play along. He then powers up, surrounded by a pink aura, threatening to show her why the Mount Hua sword is scary. Han Xianghai warns Pio Jongchun not to use purple mist enhanced chi, or he will kill Jiang Marion. She thinks that the only person who can stop him right now is Mr. Y. Han Xianghai and Ximen Daein shout for them to quiet down. Wai Yonho emerges from the carriage, complaining that it is too loud and he is trying to sleep. Pio Jongchun immediately stops his power-up and greets Wai Yonho respectfully. Sang Guanhong is shocked that Pio Jongchun referred to Wai Yonho as Sir. Jiang Marion also looks surprised by the sudden change. Ximen Daein tells a person that they need absolute rest for at least 3 days and should not move too much. The person agrees and excuses himself. Ximen Daein watches him leave. Wai Jianghan asks Ximen Daein if she thinks the woman they just saw is pretty, and she replies that no woman is prettier than him in her eyes. Wai Jianghan clarifies he meant as a potential daughter-in-law and agrees she is pretty. He expresses worry for a pretty woman like her going around the slums alone despite her kindness. Ximen Daein reassures him, saying the Hao sect is protecting her, and Yonho requested it, calling him a good man. Wai Jianghan is surprised Yonho helped and wonders if he is interested in her. Ximen Daein agrees but says they should have more conscience, asking what he means. Wai Jianghan says Yonho does not deserve a woman like that, comparing it to putting dirt on white jade. Pio Jongchun tells Wai Yonho it is not his fault, explaining that Jiang Marion requested the duel. Wai Yonho looks at Jiang Marion and remarks that she is just a kid. He then accuses Pio Jongchun of being a child abuser for fighting kids young enough to be his grandkids. Ximen Daein agrees that Pio Jongchun is a child abuser, but says he is right this time because Jiang Marion challenged someone out of her league. Jiang Marion's sword clangs as it falls to the ground. Pio Jongchun and Ximen Daein look at Wai Yonho in surprise. Wai Yonho wonders if Jiang Marion knows him, as he has never seen her before. Jiang Marion approaches him directly. She points at him and asks if his name is Wai Yonho. Wai Yonho starts to confirm his identity, but Jiang Marion slaps him across the face with immense force. Wai Yonho is sent flying through the air from the impact. He lands hard on the ground while Jiang Marion looks on. Pio Jongchun and the others watch in shock. Wai Yonho shouts in disbelief, asking why she slapped him, and warns that he could kill her if he hit her with all his strength. He touches his cheek in confusion. Jiang Marion starts crying, asking where he has been all this time, as she has been looking for him everywhere. Pio Jongchun laughs, saying a man should take responsibility for his mistakes, while Ximen Daein calls him the worst. Wai Yonho frantically denies knowing Jiang Marion. Jiang Marion cries out, calling him brother. Why Yonho looks utterly bewildered by the revelation. A flashback shows a young girl crying and telling someone not to go. The young girl calls out Yonho's name. Why Yonho looks at Jeong Maryun and asks if she is Why Suryun. Why Suryun cries out that they have been looking for him for so long. Why Yonho hugs Why Suryun, finally reuniting with his family. Why Yonho asks the woman if she is truly Suryun. Why Suryun cries, asking how he cannot recognize his own sister. He explains it has been 5 years and she grew so much he would not recognize her. Why Yonho then asks why she uses a different name. She explains that Sanho said she would get unwanted attention because of him. She continues that Sanho suggested she pretend to be someone else to focus on martial arts. Why Yonho expresses surprise at Sanho's words but admits the reasoning makes sense. Why Suryun hits him, asking how long they have been looking for him. He smiles and says he met a ghost. She asked about a ghost and he says it is a long story as they walk inside. Outside, 2 onlookers comment on her changed demeanor around him. One onlooker asks if her real name is Why Suryun and if she is Why Sanho's sister. He then realizes her skill makes sense if she is Sanho's sister. The onlooker then wonders if Why Yonho is also Sanho's brother. Inside, Why Suryun feeds Why Yonho at a table with other people. She tells him he has gotten skinny and feeds him more food. A man asks if the Y clan possesses rare resources given their many skilled members. He praises the Y clan's talent and predicts their name will rise soon. The man doubts Yonho will help much, but Why Suryun laughs. He finds it strange Yonho traveled so far if he is lazy, and Yonho replies his master made him. Why Yonho explains his master said experience completes martial arts, so he needs to learn through seeing, hearing, and feeling. The man listening reacts with understanding. He agrees that isolation will get him nowhere. The man then sits to meditate as pink energy surrounds him. Another man yells for everyone to guard him. Several people stand guard around the meditating man. Why Suryun tells Why Yonho to come this way, explaining the man is going through enlightenment. The man glows with pink energy and petals float around him. His eyes glow white as the pink energy intensifies. He rises into the air surrounded by a pillar of pink energy. The man slowly descends as the pink energy fades. The guards congratulate him on his enlightenment. He thanks them all. He thanks Why Yonho, saying he broke through a wall he was stuck at thanks to him. A guard says that now he has passed this wall, he will be called the best swordsman in Zhangyuan soon. He laughs, saying there is no way since he cannot even defeat Why Yonho. Why Yonho replies that he will catch up to him before he gains such a title. The man says they do not know about that, while Why Suryun says the food is good. Why Suryun tells Why Yonho to eat lots and grow fat because his back hurts when he sleeps without fat to cushion him. She cries, saying he must have been through so much, while a man comments that Yonho looks fine. Why Suryun asks Why Yonho what he will do next. She explains that Sanho will probably kill him if he finds him. Why Yonho grimaces, thinking that violence is Sanho's only form of affection. Why Yonho says he will not get beaten up and will just beat Sanho instead. He smiles and says he is pretty strong now. He adds that Mr. Gong Mujin was easy. He thinks that his master was not wrong and his martial arts transcend time. Why Suryun asks if he is truly saying he can defeat Sanho. A man says he thinks so. Why Suryun hits Why Yonho, saying he has lost his mind and does not get it. Why Yonho wonders why his body does not react when she hits him. The man says he cannot just let that go. He explains that the demon-slaying sword is considered superior to all young martial artists. He asks Why Yonho if he is saying that none of them are a match for him if he can defeat Sanho. Why Yonho asks if that is a problem. The 3 people standing look angry at his response. The man asks how Why Yonho can tell without having fought him. Why Yonho replies that he can tell. Why Suryun hits Why Yonho again, telling him to apologize and that he would never be a martial master. The man says words cannot resolve this and asks if Why Yonho is willing to prove himself through a duel. Why Yonho makes a face and says he does not want a duel. The man warns that if he turns down a duel, he will be branded a coward and his family's reputation will fall. The man asks if Why Yonho is admitting he is a coward. Why Yonho says he is a coward and that one needs to be a coward to live a long life. The man and woman look angry at his response. The enlightened man asks Why Yonho if he did not say he accepts any challenge to his sword. Why Yonho explains that applies when his sword is challenged, but this is his family's business, so he does not care. The man says he will not challenge the Guangdong Y clan. He points at Why Yonho and says, but you. Why Yonho looks at the man. Why Suryun apologizes in his stead, saying he does not know how the world works and offers to fight instead. The man tells her it is not her business and she just wants to fight. Why Yonho tells Why Suryun to stay out of it, saying rules are rules. Why Yonho accepts the challenge as they stand facing each other outside. The man introduces himself as Sang Guanhong of the Sang clan. Sang Guanhong challenges Why Yonho's sword today. He tells Why Yonho to be careful because his sword is terrifying. Why Yonho shushes him, saying there is no need for words when they have swords in their hands. He adds that he is tired and wants to rest, so he will get this over with fast. Sang Guanhong says perhaps the demon-slaying sword will come to him if he defeats Why Yonho, so he will give it his all. Why Yonho draws his sword and says Sang Guanhong talks too much. Why Yonho moves quickly towards Sang Guanhong. Sang Guanhung thinks Wai Yonho is fast and needs to dodge. Sang Guanhung is surprised and warns Wai Yonho not to move that way. Wai Yonho kicks Sang Guanhung in the groin. Onlookers react with shocked expressions. A sound effect and image of 2 cracking walnuts appear. Sang Guanhung remains on the ground writhing in intense pain. Onlookers express shock at the horrible sight of him. One onlooker covers his mouth, declaring that the Sang clan bloodline now ends. Meanwhile, a hand prunes a bonsai tree with shears. Baek Myuhan asks Mun Yuwon about the treasure map. Mun Yuwon explains that the map fell into the pursuers' hands, who are now gathering at Mount Luo. Baek Myuhan asks if Mun Yuwon can see, and he confirms he can. Baek Myuhan states that natural things become ugly weeds if left untended. He continues that the same applies to the Jianghu, where what should be eliminated must be eliminated. Mun Yuwon bows, confirming they will proceed with the plan. Baek Myuhan remarks it has been too quiet and instructs Mun Yuwon to show them how sharp their blade is. Elsewhere, Wai Yonho stands beside a carriage with a tied person on top, asking if he has to get off. A woman explains that the tied person is a patient who cannot walk. Wai Yonho says oh well, as 2 men help the tied person. The woman holds a large piece of white cloth. She then jumps onto the roof of the carriage. The woman spreads the cloth over the carriage roof. She smooths out the cloth on the roof. The woman tells young Master Wai that everything is set up for him. Wai Yonho lies on the cloth on the carriage roof, saying it is the best place to be. The man tied to the carriage asks Sealwa about himself. He wonders why he took her in as a disciple. The group travels at night with Wai Yonho sleeping soundly on the carriage roof. Gong Mujin on horseback thinks about being in the backlines. He looks surprised by something. 2 figures approach the group under the moonlight. Gong Mujin senses their aura. He realizes they are martial masters. Gong Mujin feels relieved that he is not the only martial master there. Wai Yonho is still seen sleeping soundly on the carriage roof. Gong Mujin observes that the martial masters are coming closer. The 2 old men continue walking towards the group. Gong Mujin turns to face them. The white-haired old man chuckles and mentions Mount Hua. Gong Mujin asks for their names if it is not rude. The white-haired old man begins to reply about their names. He finds it funny to be called elders by Mount Hua and says he will let it go this time before bidding farewell. Gong Mujin thinks they do not seem like bad people, but he has a bad feeling. Wai Yonho sits up on the carriage roof and asks the old man a question. The 2 old men look back in surprise. Wai Yonho asks if something happened up ahead from where the old men came from, and the white-haired old man replies there was a small village with only beasts and no people. Wai Yonho asks about a village without anyone, and the old man asks what he means. Wai Yonho looks at the old men intently. He asks if the blood stains on their sleeves are from killing beasts. The white-haired old man laughs about making such a mistake and says a blade grows dull without experience. Gong Mujin realizes that a village with only animals and no people means they massacred those people. He sternly asks for their names again, demanding an answer this time. The white-haired old man says he wanted to let them go, but now they are asking to be killed. He introduces himself as Gong Kai the Ghost Demon and the other old man as Bayab Hang the Blade Demon. Gong Mujin is shocked that the Ghost Blade Demon duo is back. Gong Kai says the Sword Emperor's secret technique called for them, and they just happened to kill a village in their way. Gong Mujin angrily declares they deserve punishment. Gong Kai asks if he can do that as he powers up with a green aura. Gong Mujin draws his sword. The group stands ready to fight. Gong Mujin looks at his companions. His companions declare they cannot do nothing when there are evil people and will not fall back. Gong Mujin thinks it is worth a fight if they work together and that justice still thrives. Wai Yonho stretches and complains about being too lazy to stand, wondering if Gong Mujin has any sense of justice. Gong Kai prepares his demonic hand technique, saying he will taste the blood of the young. Gong Kai attacks with his demonic hand. Gong Mujin counters with a powerful sword technique called Scattered Plum Blossom Fall. Gong Kai smiles mockingly, saying how pathetic. The 2 attacks clash with each other. Gong Mujin blocks a blow from Gong Kai's demonic hand. Gong Mujin's companions join the fight, attacking Gong Kai. Gong Kai grins menacingly. Gong Kai performs the demonic hand ascension technique, deflecting the attacks. Gong Mujin and his companions are pushed back by the attack. Gong Kai licks his hand and says it is a fruitful night with the Mount Hua, the Ping clan, and the Namgung clan present. Gong Mujin realizes this is not good. He notes they did not even scratch Gong Kai, and the Blade Demon has not done anything yet. Wai Yonho asks why Gong Mujin is not doing anything. Gong Mujin asks Wai Yonho if his master did not say anything about dealing with monsters. Wai Yonho replies that his master told him to mind his own business, and that it is up to the court to decide the morals of the world. Wai Yonho adds that his master also said whether a sword is drawn is up to the mood. He draws his sword and explains that he should just kill people if he feels like it. Wai Yonho declares that he feels really bad right now as he walks forward. Gong Kai laughs and asks what is up with that kid, saying he needs to learn what fear is. Wai Yonho suggests they stop talking and start fighting. Gong Kai asks Wai Yonho if he knows who he is. Gong Kai looks at Wai Yonho with a smirk. Wai Yonho performs a powerful sword slash. Gong Kai wonders what Wai Yonho is doing, thinking he is just slicing the air. Gong Kai's eye widens in shock. Gong Kai is struck by an unseen force and falls to the ground. He screams in pain and asks what just happened. Why Yonho says he missed a bit, but it is actually better this way. Why Yonho states he cannot have Gong Kai dying too easily. Two figures hesitated before Why Yonho. An old man warned Gong Kai to compose himself, recognizing Why Yonho as a master of the highest level. Gong Kai, ignoring the warning, demanded to know what Why Yonho was. Why Yonho countered by asking if knowing his identity would change anything. He then declared his indifference to chivalry or interfering in others' affairs. Why Yonho added that his blood was boiling, and Gong Kai would serve as his temporary stress relief. Gong Kai scoffed at being called stress relief, denouncing him as an insolent bastard for treating the legendary Ghost Blade Demon duo as playthings. He then attacked Why Yonho, unleashing a serpent strike technique. Why Yonho swiftly blocked the incoming attack with his sword. Immediately, he swung his sword in a powerful counter-attack. Gong Kai was visibly surprised by the force of Why Yonho's strike. The attack landed squarely on Gong Kai. Gong Kai screamed in pain from the impact. Yelling that he would kill Why Yonho, Gong Kai charged again despite the old man's attempts to stop him. Why Yonho observed Gong Kai simply uttering the word humans. Gong Kai attacked once more, this time with a green demon serpent strike. Why Yonho declared that humans should understand their place. He then blocked Gong Kai's strike with his bare hand. Gong Kai screamed as his attack was effortlessly countered. Why Yonho kicked Gong Kai into the air, stating that is what it means to be human. He followed up with another powerful blow on Gong Kai. Gong Kai then plummeted to the ground. Why Yonho stood over the defeated Gong Kai. Why Yonho remarked that while evil deeds often have excuses, killing people for fun did not. Gong Kai lay severely injured, bleeding from his mouth. Why Yonho concluded that granting Gong Kai a quick death would be a luxury he did not deserve. Why Yonho then turned his attention to the old man, who was trembling in fear. He fixed his gaze upon the old man. The old man in turn called out to Gong Kai. Why Yonho asked if the old man was grieving, adding that he had no right to complain, as the families of his victims felt the same way. The old man yelled back, demanding to know what Why Yonho understood. Why Yonho simply replied that he had no desire to know. He then told the old man he would send him to reunite with Gong Kai in the afterlife. Panicked, the old man pleaded with Why Yonho to wait, claiming he was not ready. Why Yonho advanced, stating that stalling would change nothing, while the old man insisted he was not. The old man shouted that he merely wished to give his best as a martial artist. Why Yonho questioned if that was truly his intention as a martial artist. Why Yonho then attacked him with a downward strike. The old man attempted to block the powerful blow. He struggled to defend against Why Yonho's powerful strike. Why Yonho prepared for another strike. His sword began to glow with immense power. Why Yonho struck the old man, who cried out in pain. The old man yelled defiantly at Why Yonho. Why Yonho blocked the old man's subsequent attack with his sword. The old man continued his assault, wielding glowing blades. Why Yonho dodged the old man's attacks using a kick to create distance. He then prepared another swift strike. The old man barely managed to block Why Yonho's incoming attack. Why Yonho questioned how the old man dared call himself a martial artist while killing innocent people for fun. The old man's face contorted in anger at the accusation. Yelling "shut up," the old man was sent flying by Why Yonho. Why Yonho looked up at the old man, now airborne. He kicked the old man again while he was still in mid-air. The old man cried out as he was sent flying even further away. Why Yonho stated that the old man did not deserve to utter grand words about doing his best as a martial artist. The old man was shocked as Why Yonho relentlessly continued his attack. He thought Why Yonho was a monster, possessing the composure to talk while unleashing such powerful strikes. The old man screamed as Why Yonho's energy attack enveloped him. In response, the old man's blade glowed with purple energy. Yelling "die," he unleashed a purple energy attack at Why Yonho. Why Yonho prepared to counter the incoming attack. The old man screamed as Why Yonho's counter-attack struck him. Why Yonho stated the only thing the old man had in common with a true martial artist. He finished his sentence, declaring it was death in battle. Why Yonho's radiant attack completely engulfed the old man. The old man was consumed by the bright energy. He realized in his final moments that this was the Thousand Swords technique. The old man's face faded into light as he was utterly defeated. A final burst of light signified the battle's conclusion. 3 onlookers watched in shock at the immense display of power. One man exclaimed Why Yonho was incredible, while a woman questioned if that was truly Yonho Oppa. A voice from off-panel exclaimed Master. Why Yonho stood victorious, stating that since the old man had not lived like a martial artist, he concluded that at least the old man could die like one, as his weapon lay broken on the ground. Elsewhere, a man with a goatee inquired about the progress of the secret manual search. Another man reported it was proceeding smoothly, though competition was fierce, with Wudang and Shaolin now making their move. The man with the goatee instructed him to ensure the manual ultimately ended up with the strongest individual. The subordinate reported that the person who interfered with the second and third young master's affairs was confirmed to be the same individual. The man with the goatee questioned if it was indeed the same person. The subordinate confirmed it was Why Yonho, second son of Guangdong's Why clan, a supreme level master, or above, yet also known as the laziest person under heaven. The man with the goatee questioned the description of the laziest person, asking if their plans had been ruined by one such individual. The other man confirmed it was true, adding that the manual's current path followed Wai Yonho's trail, making an encounter likely soon. The man with the goatee found it a strange coincidence, as if heaven itself had sent down an obstacle. He noted that Wai Jianghin's son, a troublesome, righteous, chivalrous swordsman, had gotten involved, deciding they would wait and see for now. He stated they would observe if Wai Yonho could survive among those crazed for the manual, then inquired about their father. The other man replied that their father was in the garden looking at flowers to calm his mind, likely having gained new insight. The man with the goatee then pondered Wai Yonho. He wondered if the laziest person under heaven would indeed become a variable in their grand plan. 3 figures stand over several bloodied bodies discovered in a forest clearing. The master in a pink robe observes the scene and declares the perpetrator a monster, expressing disbelief at the sight. Another man agrees with his assessment, likening the feat to a rabbit killing a tiger, then complains about his back. Jang Il approaches the group asking what happened. 3 other guards look on with surprised expressions at the grim scene. These 3 guards then show expressions of distress as they take in the situation. Jang Il notices their reactions and asks what is wrong. He repeats his question while 2 other guards stand near a cart holding a body covered by a white sheet. Wai Yonho is seen sleeping soundly under the white sheet on the cart as the master watches him. The master remarks that the Jianghe's future is dark and calls Wai Yonho a loser despite his martial talent. An attendant woman offers Wai Yonho sweets, suggesting he is low on blood sugar, and he reacts to her offer. Wai Yonho eats the sweets while the master looks away, seemingly annoyed by his disciple's behavior. The master laments that his disciple's future is also dark, extending his earlier concern. The group travels on a road with Wai Yonho still lying on the cart, asking if they are going to eat soon. The master on horseback scolds Wai Yonho for only eating and sleeping. Wai Yonho asks if the master does not do those things too, calling it a nice life, as the attendant woman gives him more sweets. The master complains that the attendant woman feeds Wai Yonho sweets, but offers him rock-hard jerky instead. Wai Yonho asks if they are almost at their destination, and Mun Yunji replies they will arrive in about 3 days. Wai Yonho comments that it takes a long time, and Mun Yunji blames him for the delay. Mun Yunji, however, thinks to herself that Wai Yonho was cool despite his current demeanor. She then asks if they should speed up their journey. Wai Yonho complains from inside the cart as it bumps along the road. He tells Mun Yunji to slow down because they have a patient on board. The master asks Wai Yonho if he does not train and how he maintains his skill level, then clarifies if he means Suryeon. Mun Yunji expresses confusion as the master clarifies he meant the word Suryeon for training. Wai Yonho thinks the master would treat him like a psycho if he said he trained in his sleep. The group continues their journey along a path leading to a small village with an inn. Wai Yonho exclaims that they finally found an inn for real food, and Mun Yunji comments that he likes food now unlike before. Wai Yonho explains he realized after 5 years of eating moss that his mother's food is the best, then clarifies it was the cook's cooking, not his mother's, and Mun Yunji thinks he would miss the moss if he ate his mother's food. Wai Yonho then thinks about his mother. Elsewhere, a different cart speeds along a path. Jang Il and another man are on the cart, with the man asking if this is truly the right way. Jang Il confidently states he is sure, but the man points out he does not see a single soul. Jang Il explains that civilians are hiding and martial artists are after the secret technique, making the man wonder if the person they are looking for would have been swept into the mess. The man reassures Jang Il that the Zhongyuan is big and not to worry about their target. The man states his brother is very talented, prompting Jang Il to ask at what. Jang Il replies his brother is talented at bringing misfortune onto himself and attracts all kinds of trouble. Baek Myuhan peeks out from behind a wall and agrees, saying anything he does goes wrong somehow. The man asks how someone can be like that, referring to the brother. Jang Il and Baek Myuhan both reply that his son and brother are like that, confirming the shared trait. Meanwhile, a bloodied man runs through a forest gasping, thinking about the disaster he might attract. He coughs up blood as he continues his desperate flight. He holds a manual and thinks if he stops he will die. He is out of true chi and his danshin is stinging painfully. He thinks that with the manual he will become the most powerful in the world and cannot give it up. He stumbles through the darkening forest, growing weaker. A young man in white clothes suddenly appears in the forest. The bloodied man sees him and thinks he must be trying to steal the secret technique. He yells that he will kill him, coughing up more blood in his exertion. He collapses to his knees, still coughing, as the young man looks on. The young man asks if he is hurt somewhere, observing his condition. The bloodied man thinks he is being asked that while covered in blood and wonders what he is seeing. The bloodied man says he cannot give it up, never clutching the manual. The young man thinks the man is going to die soon and finds it pathetic to die like this. The young man gently pats the bloodied man's shoulder and tells him it is all right and not to worry. He tells the man no one is trying to steal it from him and to sleep well. The bloodied man thinks no one is going to steal it, seemingly reassured. The bloodied man then falls over, completely succumbing to his injuries. The young man is surprised and says he was not expecting him to just die like that. He sighs and says he does not want to just leave the body there. The young man carries the dead body over his shoulder, saying he will not expect a whole funeral for him. A bloodied book titled Sword Emperor's Treasure lies on the ground where the man fell. The young man picks up the book and thinks the heavens rewarded his kindness, though a real treasure would have been better. He tucks the Sword Emperor's treasure into his belt. Mun Yoonji then calls out Wai Yonho's name, having found him. She asks where he has been and gasps in surprise upon seeing him carrying the body. Mun Yoonji screams at Wai Yonho, asking if he killed the man. Wai Yonho asks if the question should be if the man is dead, prompting Mun Yoonji to repeat her accusation about him killing the man. Wai Yonho says he did not kill him, and that the man just died on his own, explaining he suddenly appeared, threw up blood, then died. The master and other guards approach, looking at the dead body Wai Yonho carries. The master tells his men to watch closely, as this is the harsh reality of the Murim, and a martial master is allowed to do this. Wai Yonho shouts again that he did not kill the man and explains he appeared with the book then died. The master looks shocked by this new information about the book. The master asks if the book is the Sword Emperor's treasure. Wai Yonho confirms it is, as it clearly says so on the cover. The master shouts at Wai Yonho, asking why he took it, and warns that everyone is looking for it and he will die if he keeps it. Wai Yonho replies there is no owner anymore, but the master yells at him to throw it away immediately or people will come after him. Wai Yonho says he has it, so it is his, and wonders what will happen if anyone tries to steal it from him. The master yells at Wai Yonho, asking what he is scheming, and to not make that defiant face. A powerful burst of energy erupts from Wai Yonho, seemingly in response. A strong gust of wind blows past Wai Yonho, the master, and the other guards. An old man with white hair and two other men suddenly appear, drawn by the disturbance. The dead body lies on the ground in a pool of blood, now fully visible to the newcomers. The old man says Guak Soon is dead, and that is what he gets for going after a treasure he does not deserve. He tells one of his companions to look at what is in Guak Soon's hand. The other man sees the Sword Emperor's treasure, confirming its presence. The old man says Guak Soon must have given it to Wai Yonho before dying and tells him to hand it over, promising not to hurt him. Wai Yonho holds up the book and asks if they mean this, and the old man confirms it is not something Wai Yonho can handle. Wai Yonho asks why he should give it to them since it is now his possession. Wai Yonho asks for an answer as his eyes glow ominously, challenging their